One day, the world suddenly came to an end, and humanity faced the threat of total annihilation. First came a global pandemic of an unknown virus that claimed the lives of millions of young people under 30. Soon, states began to fight over resources and territory, sending thousands of their citizens to die on the battlefield. The global economic crisis has led to mass famine and widespread social unrest. But the final nail in the coffin of humanity was not people, but other creatures who arrived from other worlds. Horrible monsters have appeared in all countries of the world, starting to wreak havoc and kill surviving people. Goblins, skeletons, beetles, and other embodiments of nightmares scattered across the ruined cities, beginning to seize new living space. After their appearance, all people gained access to a mysterious gaming system that allowed them to level up and transform into powerful superhumans. But, unlike in fantasy novels, in reality, the players were not strong enough to contain the invasion of creatures and stop the apocalypse. The action moves forward 3 days after the first appearance of the monsters, to a multi-story residential building. The main character, a young man named Kim Jae-hyun, lives in a large apartment on the top 30th floor. Before the world completely fell apart, he decided to live normally for a few more days. At the moment, the guy is finishing up chips and drinking soda after a hearty lunch of instant noodles. He sits in the living room next to the TV, right in front of an open window overlooking the ruined city. Jae-hyun idly reflects on the fact that he lives all alone in a spacious 100 square meter apartment. His parents and grandparents are outside now, and his father bought him this apartment for 400 million won. Kim lives here alone because someone has to live in the new apartment for 2 years before a tax refund can be claimed on its purchase. That's why the protagonist found himself trapped in this place at the very beginning of the apocalypse. He looks gloomily at the screen of his mobile phone, which shows no internet connection. Having once again lost hope of getting online, Jae-hyun suddenly hears loud screams from the street. The protagonist puts his phone away and looks out the window in confusion, trying to determine the source of the noise. Suddenly, he notices the huge silhouette of a winged monster quickly approaching his apartment. The flying monster opens its toothy mouth, preparing to break through the balcony and eat Jae-hyun. The protagonist shields himself from the inevitable collision in a last attempt to survive. The screaming monster is already a few meters from the window, and is ready to fly into the apartment in the next second. Kim steps back and screams desperately, realizing that she could die now. A second later, a loud sound is heard, but the flying monster still does not get into the apartment. Jae-hyun sees himself crash into a blue energy wall, and the system issues a message that an unauthorized subject is attempting to enter. The protagonist recalls that at the beginning of the end of the world, he received a special ability, reclusion, due to which no one can enter his house without permission. The guy calms down and remembers that this power is the only reason he is still alive. The residence permit skill from the recluse profession surrounds his apartment with an impenetrable energy barrier that no one can pass through without Jae-hyun's consent. The protagonist approaches the main door of the apartment and desperately tugs on the handle, trying to open it. Giving up on trying to open the door, Jae-hyun swings his leg, wanting to knock it down with a powerful kick. But he only feels pain in his leg from the blow, and there is not the slightest dent left on the door. Kim returns to the living room and remembers that it is already the 3rd day since the end of the world began, and thanks to this unusual ability that protects him, he found himself locked in his house. Hours later, Jae-hyun sits gloomily in a dark room, staring at the system message in front of him. It says that a recluse cannot leave his home, regardless of his desire. The guy doesn't know what to do next, and returns to his main problem for the near future. He's running low on food, just a few instant noodles and some leftovers from the fridge. The refrigerator itself has stopped working since yesterday when the power went out. For 3 days, Jae-hyun has been surviving on ready-made meals from the refrigerator prepared by his mother. But the food supply is already running low. The puzzled protagonist wonders what to do next and where to get food. Suddenly, he sees a new system message, bringing him out of the captivity of dark thoughts. The system claims that he killed a level 23 Calican and gained a huge amount of experience, as well as increasing his skill level. Kim, confused, goes out onto the balcony to look at the flying monster that fell down after colliding with the wall. On the square in front of the house, a group of goblins are cutting up the dead Calican for meat and skin. Jae-hyun assumes that he was counted as the murderer because the monster flew into his house. The system displays a notification about acquiring a new skill and calculates rewards for killing a monster, and Kim hears screams from the street. The goblins below began to scream furiously, raising their hands to the sky in a frantic dance. While the protagonist tries to understand the reason for their joy, the monsters calm down and continue to dismember Calican. The system message shows Jae-hyun his reward for killing the monster, 2,203,000 won, credited to the recluse's wallet. While the guy is trying to comprehend what happened, the light suddenly turns on in his apartment. Kim is surprised that the power has returned, and the system shows that his resident skill has increased to level 3. He also gained a new passive skill, Maintain Comforts, which restores half of the functions in his home. The joyful protagonist runs to the bathroom, wanting to make sure there is water. He runs to the sink and turns on the tap, hoping to solve the problem of the imminent lack of drinking water. The tap actually produces a stream of clean, cold, drinkable water. Next, Jaehyun checks the shower's status using the electronic interface, which has also started working. Kim returns to the kitchen and cries with joy that everything works as before, and household comforts have returned to the state they were in before the fall of the world. Next, a delighted Jaehyun decides to check his internet connection, hoping to contact his family, but the mobile phone still displays a message about no network connection. The protagonist stops being happy and realizes that his skill only returns half of all the amenities at the current level. Suddenly, he notices a flash drive on the floor of the room, which he had previously been unable to use due to the lack of electricity. Kim turns on her computer and looks at the wallpaper with funny kittens on her desktop. He inserts the flash drive into the computer and starts looking through the family photo album. In the first photo, his mother holds him after birth. In the second, a laughing boy, Kim, holds his mother's hand. In the third photo, teenager Jaehyun's parents pose with him in front of a park. The last photo shows the happy family celebrating adult Kim's birthday, blowing out the candles on the cake. Jaehyun looks at family photos and becomes angry at his inability to help his parents. He decides to bring his family here by any means necessary to protect them with the powers of the recluse. The guy goes out onto the apartment balcony and declares that he has to do this as quickly as possible. Suddenly he notices a new system notification, distracting him from his sad thoughts. The system shows him a new skill, Shop, which allows him to purchase items at the original price. Jaehyun tries to open the store, but quickly realizes that it is completely empty, and he has to add items there himself for further purchases. The protagonist looks with disbelief at the game store icon, which offers him to add his first item. After a brief moment of thought, he clicks on the store, showing him an empty shopping list and a wallet containing 2 million won. Kim guesses that this skill is related to the recluse's wallet, since his money balance is shown in the store. Jaehyun opens the window, wanting to go out onto the balcony and leave the area of his apartment. The energy wall still won't let him out, and the system displays a message that the recluse cannot leave his home. The protagonist realizes that despite increasing his skill level, he still cannot leave the protected area. But now he knows a way that will definitely help him one day free himself from domestic captivity. If the guy continues to kill monsters, he will be able to get more experience points. His playing level will increase, new skills will appear, and existing abilities will begin to develop. Jaehyun thinks that if he has a high enough level, he will be able to obtain a skill that will allow him to go outside. But he doesn't know how he will kill monsters in this position, because the flying animals no longer notice him. Looking down, Kim notices several goblins continuing to cut meat off the dead Calican. The protagonist decides to try killing goblins, since there are no other options in sight. He takes a plastic bottle of water, intending to use it as a projectile. Jaehyun swings his arm, wanting to test if he can freely throw objects outside the protected area. A plastic bottle flies freely out the window, and the skill wall around the apartment does not react to it at all. Kim was glad that he had found a way to fight monsters. Now he could throw objects from the 30th floor. He opens the nearest cabinet and takes out a small black dumbbell. Jaehyun plans to use a 3-kilogram dumbbell to kill goblins from a great height. The guy approaches the balcony and starts looking out for monsters below to throw at. The goblins have collected enough meat from the dead Calican and are now listening to the cries of their leader. Soon they collect the remaining meat and get ready to go hunting elsewhere. Kim begins to panic, realizing that if the monsters move far enough, he will no longer be able to reach them. The protagonist takes a deep breath and swings the dumbbell, preparing for an aimed throw. With great force, he throws the dumbbell upwards, mentally hoping that he will be able to kill at least one enemy. The dumbbell falls down at great speed, hitting the remains of a dead Calican carcass. The goblins stop, and a frightened Jaehyun anticipates trouble ahead. He only had one dumbbell left, and once he lost it, there would be no more suitable throwing objects left in the apartment. The main character ponders what to do next, since he is not strong enough to throw furniture or a television. The loud cries of the goblins interrupt his thoughts, forcing him to look down again. The goblins below have figured out where the projectile came from, and are now looking out for the shooter. The head goblin points towards Jaehyun's apartment, holding a raised dumbbell in his hands. Kim begins to openly panic when she meets the goblin commander's gaze. The monsters let out loud screams when they see the lonely figure of a guy on the balcony of the 30th floor. The goblins rush furiously towards the multi-story building with the intention of going inside and going up to Jaehyun. The protagonist watches the enraged monsters, and suddenly comes to the conclusion that everything is not so bad. The goblins come closer, giving him the opportunity to try a new trick that should work at close range. An unexpected idea appears in his mind, offering a way to precisely destroy the goblins. The guy opens a game store, which remains empty and without items. Kim selects the add item option, and looks around for the last dumbbell. Taking the dumbbell in his hands, he selects it as an item to add to the store. The system scans the object in his hand, identifying it as a classic 3-kilogram non-slip dumbbell. The item appears in the in-game store and costs 17,000 won per piece. Jaehyun notices that the price of the dumbbell is the same as it was online when he first bought it. The protagonist decides to buy 2 additional dumbbells first, wanting to test the store's operation. A bright light emanates from the system interface, concentrating on the floor of the apartment. There, 2 black dumbbells begin to form, as if created by a magical printer. Jaehyun is glad that his idea worked, and now he has over 100 attempts to buy dumbbells before he runs out of money. The protagonist picks up the first dumbbell and throws it down, aiming it at the group of screaming monsters. A heavy object hits the goblin's head at high speed, killing him instantly. The system notifies the guy that he killed a level 7 goblin, received some experience, and 3,301. The goblins below gather around their fallen comrade in confusion, uttering cries of fear. The goblin commander looks up with hatred, but another dumbbell is already flying towards him. The goblins scatter, dodging the thrown object. Jaehyun gets angry about his unsuccessful throw and buys 3 more dumbbells from the store. New items are quickly created while the goblins below prepare for their next attack. Without wasting any time, Kim immediately picks up a new dumbbell and throws it at the monsters. It hits the enemy right in the head, before he has time to run away in the other direction. For killing a level 6 goblin, the protagonist receives 2,501 and a new skill. The new ability turned out to be the warehouse, a space in an alternate reality used for storing items. The protagonist believes that this is a very useful skill at the moment, and orders the warehouse to be opened immediately. He decides to place 1 black dumbbell there, wanting to test the skill. The system scans the item and moves it into the warehouse's pocket space. Jaehyun calls the dumbbell back to test his guess. The object materializes right in his hand, where he wanted to summon it. Kim's theory turned out to be correct. He really can summon items from the warehouse wherever he wants. With a cold glint in his eyes, he prepares to try out a new combination attack. On the 30th floor, the light from the system's interface burns brightly, continuously creating more items. Jaehyun places all the dumbbells he bought into the warehouse, and decides to open it right in front of him. The guy concentrates on a point in space a few meters ahead, where he is going to summon the stored items. Dozens of black dumbbells materialize a couple of meters from his balcony. The sports equipment hangs in the air for a split second and begins to fall rapidly downwards. The goblins look with fear at the iron rain that suddenly falls on their heads. The monster commander manages to let out one last furious scream before the dumbbell smashes his head. System messages show that Kim Jae-hyun killed several goblins and received a large amount of experience. For killing them, he receives 54,001, which is credited to his wallet. He then added the remaining items from the house to the store. Buldak ramen, drinking water, rice, eggs, milk, nori sheets, canola oil, and ketchup. The guy sold the unused dumbbells back and also quickly cleaned out the apartment. Suddenly, Kim notices something strange in the game store interface in front of her. His wallet balance dropped by 1 won, which led him to think about consuming money to maintain the comforts of his life with his skill. Jaehyun looks around nervously, his gaze lingering on the working refrigerator. It consumes the highest amount of electricity among all household appliances, which can be a problem. The protagonist looks at the refrigerator with displeasure and curses the goblins. After his dumbbell attack, all the surviving goblins abandoned the bodies of their dead comrades and simply fled. Now Jaehyun has no one to hunt, and monsters no longer appear near the house. The guy notices the corpse of a Calican, gnawed to the bones by hungry goblins. The protagonist thinks that this toothy bird was clearly not alone in its kind, and that all he needs to do is wait for its relatives to appear. A few hours later, Kim Jae-hyun stands on the balcony and continues to look out for flying monsters in the sky. Suddenly he notices a strange silhouette in the distance, which he had not seen before because of the bright sun. A huge Calican flies rapidly towards him, but does not yet notice the player on the balcony of a multi-story building. The monster opens its toothy mouth and screams loudly, announcing its presence to the entire surrounding area. The recluse is shocked that the hag has actually appeared, and that God has answered his prayers. The guy runs from the balcony into the apartment in search of objects to attract the monster's attention. He ties the mirror to a folding clothes dryer and carefully extends it beyond the protected area. At the right moment, Kim Jae-hyun reflects the sun's light directly onto a passing Calican. The mirror shimmers brightly in the window of his apartment, attracting the monster's attention. Calican sees a man on the balcony and instantly changes the direction of his flight. With a loud scream, the flying monster rushes towards the recluse, preparing to break through the window and climb into his apartment. Calican swings a huge claw at Jae-hyun, who stands fearlessly on the balcony with a drying rack. The guy is delighted by the monster's attention and is already anticipating a bunch of rewards for killing him. Calican screams furiously, crashing into the energy wall around the recluse's apartment. Jae-hyun hopes to see a repeat of the previous scene, how the monster will crash into the wall and die from the impact. Kim is absolutely confident that he will be able to level up and gain other skills if he kills this creature. Suddenly, the Calican stops and aborts its assault on the wall, not taking fatal damage from the collision due to its low acceleration before the attack. A strong gust of wind from the flapping of the monster's wings pushes Jae-hyun back. The protagonist tries to understand what happened when he opens his eyes after an air attack. Calican suddenly disappeared, although just a second ago he was trying to break through the barrier. A frightened Jae-hyun looks outside and finds a winged monster perched on the roof of the building. The monster stopped hitting the wall and decided to wait near the barrier until its prey left the safe zone on its own. The protagonist realizes that his plan has failed, and now the Calican is going to sit near his apartment, scaring away the rest of the monsters. The winged monster begins to hit the energy wall with its beak, trying to carefully break through it. Kim Jae-hyun watches the monster's efforts in confusion, while a system message indicates an unregistered entity is trying to get inside. A frightening thought creeps into the recluse's head that the barrier might not hold up and might soon break. The guy decides to do something immediately, and opens a store in search of the necessary items. He remembers that the reward for killing a monster is only given if its corpse is nearby. His recent goblin hunt was not entirely successful due to this quirk of the system. Then the surviving goblins dragged away the corpses of their dead brethren, which is why their bodies were not counted as those killed by the recluse. Thus, if the distance exceeds a certain limit, no rewards are calculated. Jae-hyun needs to kill the Calican with one attack, otherwise it might fly away due to non-lethal damage. The protagonist notices canola oil in the list of items in the store and thinks he could use it. Kim Jae-hyun immediately buys 10 bottles of fresh canola oil. 10 yellow liter bottles materialize on the floor of the apartment as the monster continues to pound the wall. The protagonist gathers up an armful of canola oil and runs to the kitchen. There he takes a large saucepan and places it on an electric stove set to high heat. The guy pours all 10 liters of purchased oil into a pan, hoping to use it to kill the black-legged roach. He then turns the heat up to maximum, wanting to get a pot of hot oil as quickly as possible. While the oil is heating up, Jae-hyun takes a stick and ties a cotton cloth to it. He soaks the crafted weapon in hot oil, intending to use it as a torch. After the pot boils, Kim Jae-hyun picks it up and opens the store. He adds boiling canola oil as a new item to buy. The guy takes a lighter and prepares to light a homemade torch made from a rag and oil. With a burning stick in his hands, he goes to the balcony, where the hag continues to beat against the wall. A huge monster sits on the roof of a building, hanging its head near Jae-hyun's apartment. The protagonist approaches the balcony carefully, trying not to attract the enemy's attention. Concentrating on the desired point in space, he summons boiling canola oil from the warehouse. A hot, viscous liquid is poured onto the head of a screaming Calican. The winged monster roars loudly and tries to shake off the sticky oil. Kim Jae-hyun hits Calican with a flaming torch, igniting the oil on his body. The fire quickly engulfs the monster's head, which roars desperately in agony and falls to the ground. With a loud noise, the monster falls to the asphalt and takes fatal damage from the impact with the ground and burning. The system notifies Jae-hyun that he has killed a level 27 Calican, gained a huge amount of experience, increased his skill level, and acquired a new skill. As a reward, 9,340,000 won was credited to his wallet, which shocked the protagonist. Suddenly, a system message notifies that the conditions have been met and the house territory is expanding. Jae-hyun's apartment begins to shake violently as its owner tries to stay in place. After a second, the shaking stops, but the protagonist's eyes suddenly turn black. The space around him becomes dark, like on negative film. Kim Jae-hyun feels a sharp pain in his chest and almost falls to the floor, but still finds the strength to stand still. The darkened perception of the world rapidly expands beyond his apartment, engulfing other parts of the multi-story building. A family of 4 lives in the neighboring apartment, a man, a woman, and 2 little girls. Jae-hyun, with his black eyes, can see these people from a distance as long as they are in his dark perception zone. He sees the father of the family trying to pray while the girl plays with a stuffed bunny, and the mother distracts her from sad thoughts. A sweaty Kim Jae-hyun tries to understand what is happening to him and how he can see people in another place. He continues to watch his neighbors, sitting silently at the table in gloomy thoughts. Suddenly, the darkened area of perception dissipates, bringing Jae-hyun back to reality. The guy catches his breath and tries to comprehend what happened, but notices a new system message in front of him. It shows information about the people he found. The first photo is of a man named Choi Hyojin, about 40 years old. Next comes his wife, Park Hae-won, also about 40 years old. At the end, photos of their daughters are shown 6-year-old Choi Na-young and 3-year-old Choi So-yeon. The system notifies about the detection of creatures in the recluse's territory and offers to grant them citizenship, and Jae-hyun asks what will happen if they do not receive it. The system responds that stateless creatures will be expelled from the house, and the recluse thinks that in this way he will condemn this family to death at the hands of monsters. Kim Jae-hyun decides to grant them 4 citizenships, which the system immediately complies with. The protagonist reflects that he should have acquired other citizenship-related skills. The guy's new skill was the absolute sight skill of the first level, allowing him to observe everything that happens in a protected area. Jae-hyun remembers the black eye perception and decides to look for something related to the citizens. In the menu with the residence permit skill, which prohibits outsiders from entering his home, he finds the Citizens tab. The system shows that his zone can have a maximum population of 600 people, and the 4 new citizens have a trust scale, currently ranging from 18 for his wife to 40 for his daughter. Jae-hyun looks at Choi Hyojin's page, where he can set the percentage of experience or money distribution for him, give him a quest, or banish him. The recluse understands that he can take a percentage of the experience and money that citizens receive for killing monsters, as determined by him. The protagonist decides to test the possibility of issuing quests to citizens. The assigned quest can be customized with a description, time limit, reward, and penalty for failure. Kim Jae-hyun sets up a quest for Hyojin to kill a goblin within 168 hours for a little experience as a reward. The guy realizes that he can set death as a penalty for failing a quest, and decides not to issue such a task. The protagonist realizes that he can kill any villager if he wants, with such quest settings. Jae-hyun looks suspiciously at the interface of the system that gave him such a powerful ability. The guy thinks about what to do next and remembers the family in the neighboring apartment. He activates the absolute sight skill to see what's going on in their home. The space around him becomes dark again, and his eyes turn black. The protagonist begins remotely monitoring the family's actions again. Park Hae-won asks her husband what they should do next, since their food supplies are running low. Choi Hyo-jin replies that he must leave the house and find water while his wife stays in the apartment with the children. The woman says it's too dangerous outside and asks where he's going to look for water. Heejin wants to try to get to the grocery store near the high-rise building, where there should definitely be groceries. Choi So-yeon tells her mother that she is thirsty, which only worsens her parents' mood. A frightened Hyojin gathers his strength while the mother tries to calm her daughter. The man tells Hae-won to believe in him, because he will definitely return home with water and food. The wife is forced to admit that they urgently need food, but she does not want to let her husband go to a dangerous place. Kim Jae-hyun cancels the absolute view after seeing enough to proceed. The guy notes that the situation is worse than he thought and opens a store. More items cannot be added due to the ability's low level, causing Jae-hyun to open the skill window. He has 3 unused skill points that he can use to upgrade his shop, maintain comforts, and warehouse skills. First of all, the guy decides to increase the level of the store so that he can add more items there. The second level store allows you to add up to 20 items, and all goods are now discounted by 10%, which the protagonist is quite pleased with. He has 2 development points left, which he decides to invest in the shop and maintain amenities skills to prepare for the arrival of new people in his area. The third level store allows you to add up to 40 items, and has the ability to return old items to exchange for new ones. Kim Jae-hyun is completely satisfied with this development, and decides to test the updated store. After adding a few items, he buys drinking water and jeju tangerines. The protagonist invests his last skill point into maintaining amenities, hoping to restore electricity and water to the neighboring apartments. The level 2 skill Maintain Comforts allows him to register vassals, which causes confusion in the protagonist. Meanwhile, Choi Hyo-jin is getting ready to go outside with a backpack and a golf club. His wife Hae-won sees him off with his daughters and asks if he has really decided to go. Hae-jin tells the girls and his wife that he will return soon, and asks his daughters to protect the house in his absence. Choi Na-young asks her father if he really wants to go outside. The father tells her that he must find them some food and water, and also asks the girls to listen to their mother until he returns. Na-yeon starts crying and screaming that there are scary monsters living on the streets now. She recalls what happened a few days ago when the girl and her sister were playing in the sandbox on the playground. A group of goblins appeared out of nowhere, quickly looked around, and headed towards the girls with angry faces. The frightened sisters noticed the green monsters and abandoned the sandbox. The girls ran away towards the house, and the goblins rushed after them. Suddenly the girls' parents appeared, picked them up and ran towards the high-rise building. Hae-jin and Hae-won managed to escape from the goblins and hide in their apartment, while the monsters were distracted by other people. Choi Hyo-jin also remembers the situation at the playground, but is determined to go outside to look for food. The girls continue to cry loudly while their mother tries unsuccessfully to calm them down. An unpleasant thought creeps into Hyo-jin's head that this might be the last time he sees them. He pauses, hesitant, fighting the urge to stay safe at home. Suddenly someone knocks loudly on the front door, frightening the whole family. Park Hae-won hugs her daughters as her husband steps away from the door and picks up his hockey stick. The unknown person continues to politely knock on the door, waiting for a reaction from the apartment owners. After a couple of minutes, the mysterious guest stops knocking and directly asks to open the door for him. Choi Hyo-jin is shocked by this turn of events, but suspects that some monsters can also speak Korean. The man takes his club at the ready and thinks that there might be a person behind the door, but it is still too dangerous to open it. The unknown visitor continues to ask if anyone is home. Hyun and the girls try to remain as quiet as possible while Hyejin prepares to fight. Suddenly there is knocking on the door again, but after a few seconds the noise dies down. A frightened Choi Hyo-jin guesses out loud that the stranger has finally left. Suddenly the front door opens, allowing light from the hallway to enter the dark apartment and frightening the man even more. Hyejin drops the club and hugs her family, wanting to protect them from the monster that entered. With tears in his eyes, the man asks the stranger not to touch his wife and children. A quiet greeting from an unknown guest interrupts his hysteria and forces him to look at the door. An embarrassed Kim Jae-hyun enters the apartment with a bag full of water and tangerines. A slightly calmer Choi Hyo-jin asks the stranger who he is. The guy introduces himself as his neighbor Kim Jae-hyun and hands him bags of groceries. The recluse says he has some water and a tangerine, and after a short meal they will definitely be able to talk calmly. Confused, Hyojin doesn't know what to do next, and looks to his wife for moral support. Park Hae-won is also surprised and cannot even say a word, silently hugging her daughters. Haejin thinks that there is no reason for him to refuse food and water, especially from someone who wants to help them. The man finally comes to his senses and invites his neighbor to come into the living room. Jaehyun follows the owners into the apartment, but the girls continue to look at the guests suspiciously. The protagonist notices their glances and realizes that he has frightened the children too much with his visit. He sees blackout curtains on the windows and notes that they do a very good job of blocking out light from the street. Kim Jae-hyun eats a tangerine and thinks that thanks to these curtains they were able to hide from the attention of the flying monsters. Next, the main character wants to deal with the light, because there is no electricity in this apartment either. The guy activates the preservation of comfort skill and gives a mental command to turn on the light, and his eyes turn blue for a second. The lights turn on in the apartment, and a confused Hyejin exclaims that the electricity is back. Jae-hyun hands the man bottles of water and advises him to share it with the children first. Choi Hyojin thanks the neighbor for his help and gives the girls drinking water. The daughters quickly remove the lids and begin to drink greedily, trying to quench their long thirst. After a couple of seconds, they finish drinking, and Soyeon even coughs due to the haste. Jae-hyun watches his neighbors silently, patiently waiting for them to finish with the water. He then offers the girls tangerines, attracting the children's suspicious glances. The guy hands a large tangerine to a confused Soyeon, and she shyly thanks him. Park Hae-won takes the tangerine from her, offering to help the girl peel it. After peeling the fruit, the woman takes a tangerine slice and places it directly into Soyeon's mouth. The girl is surprised by the sweet taste of the tangerine, which feels very juicy after her recent thirst and hunger. The girl happily chews a slice, putting her hands to her face in happiness. The mother asks Soyeon if the tangerine is tasty, to which she replies yes. Choi Nayeon, who was observing the situation, also asks her mother to give her a slice of tangerine. The eldest daughter also gets her share of the juicy fruit and enjoys the food. The system notifies Jaehyun that Soyeon's loyalty and trust meter have exceeded 50, and she has reached the requirements to become a vassal. The recluse looks in surprise at the joyful Nayeon, who is waiting for a peeled tangerine from her mother. The guy rejects the idea of turning Soyeon into a vassal due to her young age. He notes that he can only appoint 10 vassals, and they must be adults capable of carrying out his quests. Choi Hyojin is a player level 8, but his trust is currently at 31. Kim Jae-hyun ponders how to increase a man's loyalty to further transform him into his first vassal. Suddenly, Hyojin himself addresses Jae-hyun, bringing him out of his deep thoughts. The man thanks his neighbor for the food and asks how he can repay him for his help. The recluse offers to talk to him alone in the hallway, to which Hyojin hesitantly agrees. A minute later, the men leave the apartment and find themselves in the corridor of a multi-story building. Jaehyun asks his interlocutor if he and his family have received citizenship. Choi Hyojin answers positively and shows the system notification his family received 30 minutes ago. When a neighbor asks if there's anything unusual, Hyojin replies that they were unable to move for a while before receiving citizenship. Kim Jae-hyun realizes that his reclusive power can freeze people who have entered the protected area and have not received citizenship. The protagonist offers to help Hyojin return to the life he had before the apocalypse. The man in glasses clearly did not expect to hear such words, and asks him again in bewilderment. Jae-hyun promises that he can definitely do it and ensure the safety of his house from monsters. Choi Hyojin decides to trust the strange neighbor and asks if this is really possible. The recluse calmly replies that he can do it, and is waiting for Hyojin's decision. The father of the family understands that protection will not be free, and asks what he should do. The protagonist tells the man that he could die, and asks if he is really ready to risk his life. Hyojin immediately replies that he is ready for this, because before the neighbor arrived, he was going to go outside anyway. The man says he is ready to do anything for his family, which sounds quite convincing to Jae-hyun. Suddenly, the recluse remembers the golf club, and asks his interlocutor how much he originally paid for it. Puzzled by this question, Hyojin recalls that he bought it for 400 or 500,000 won. Kim Jae-hyun thinks this item is too expensive to add to the store, and now he needs to save money. Choi Hyojin asks why the guy asked about the hockey stick, but he changes the subject. Jae-hyun asks his interlocutor if he remembers the day the monsters first appeared. Hyojin replies that it was a day off, so he didn't go to work and stayed home with his family. A man recalls a group of goblins appearing on a playground, and the family fleeing from them while the monsters were distracted by other people. A gloomy Choi Hyojin says it was truly scary. The recluse suggests that those who remained at home that day may have survived in their locked apartments. He reflects that goblins alone do not possess much physical strength. Their fighting ability is lower than that of the average adult male, but they always travel in groups. People are very similar to them in this regard, because in a team they achieve more than alone. Jae-hyun thinks that first he needs to create a strong army of players capable of killing monsters. Having finished his internal monologue, he turns to Mr. Choi, who was standing silently next to him. The protagonist invites the man to search for survivors together, and save them from a painful death at the hands of monsters. The action moves forward a few hours when evening arrives. Kim Jae-hyun lies in his apartment and watches Choi Hyojin's trust meter grow. His trust is currently stuck at 40, and the guy thinks that if he creates an army, he will be able to meet his family one day. Suddenly he hears loud screams of goblins coming from the street through the open window. Jae-hyun immediately runs to the balcony and tries to assess the situation, while the goblins continue to scream. Looking down, the protagonist notices something truly unusual there. A group of young men and women with a bat, a bow, and a baseball confront several goblins. The recluse notes that they are far from home, and it will be difficult for him to help them. Meanwhile, the goblins let out furious battle cries and begin their attack. One of the guys throws a baseball with great force, cracking the goblin's skull. The slain monster flies back a few meters while its fellows stand in indecision. Kim Jae-hyun is shocked by such a powerful blow, which is clearly incapable of an ordinary athlete. A girl from the group shoots 2 arrows from a bow at the same time. Both arrows hit the goblins' heads accurately, piercing their skulls and killing them instantly. A tall guy with a baseball bat approaches the nearest goblin, who is frozen in place after the death of his comrades. The guy jumps several meters into the air and swings the bat to deliver a powerful vertical strike. With great force, he brings the bat down on the monster's head, shattering it into pieces. The remaining goblins scatter in all directions, unwilling to fight such dangerous opponents. A group of people gather around a Calicanin killed by a recluse and take a break. Suddenly, the girl with the bow notices some movement and takes her weapon at the ready. She notices something fallen on the ground and knocks an arrow for a quick shot. On the asphalt, she discovers a pack of instant noodles that has fallen from the sky. Looking up, she notices the figure of Kim Jae-hyun waving at her from the balcony of the 30th floor. The main character waves his arms in a welcoming manner, trying to attract the attention of the people below. The surprised girl looks at the protagonist skeptically, but says nothing to her comrades. Jae-hyun starts waving his hands more actively, dissatisfied with this reaction from her. Suddenly the doorbell rings, and the recluse says that he has finally arrived. A confused Choi Hyojin stands outside the door with a large cardboard box in his hands. Kim Jae-hyun opens the front door and invites his neighbor into his apartment. Hyojin thanks him for the invitation and tries to step over the threshold. Suddenly, he comes across an energy wall that does not let him into the apartment. Jae-hyun is stunned by this turn of events, and a message appears on the wall that the unworthy are not allowed to enter the house. Choi Hyojin also sees this notice and asks what unworthy means. The protagonist finds it difficult to answer, and begins to think about the functions of his wall. In his mind, he suggests that no one can enter his house at all, or people appointed as vassals may become exceptions to the rules of the seclusion zone. Deciding to find out later, he takes the box containing the items he collected that could be used as weapons from Hyojin through the threshold. Kim Jae-hyun takes out all the contents of the drawer onto the floor. Knives, first aid kits, and other useful items. Next, he calls the store and buys 5 bottles of water and 5 packs of buldak. Choi Hyojin watches in shock as products materialize from the store's interface. Jae-hyun puts water and food in a box, gives it to Hyojin and asks him to go down to the first floor and place the box at the entrance of the building. The man hesitates because he has to go to the first floor where monsters might live. The protagonist reassures him, saying that goblins are only active during the daytime. In addition, there is a group of strong people outside, but Jae-hyun decided to keep quiet about this for now. The protagonist wants to attract their attention and lure them to his side in order to turn them into his soldiers. Jae-hyun is confident that once they realize that he has endless food, those people will immediately agree to join his faction. The guy tells Hyojin that he has a plan, and asks him to take the cardboard box of food again. The man asks again if he just needs to carry her down to the first floor and come back, which Jae-hyun confirms. Choi Hyojin agrees to carry out the all-powerful neighbor's order and goes to the stairs. The recluse manages to thank him one last time and decides to follow the man's actions. But first he wants to help such a good guy with something, for which he opens the quest window. Jae-hyun gives him a quest to bring water and food to the first floor, and return within 24 hours with experience as a reward. The recluse answers his neighbor's puzzled question by saying that it's like leveling up in games, and Hyojin himself is already level 9. The protagonist tells the man that he is counting on his help, and that after leveling up, he will be able to receive good rewards. Choi Hyojin is trying to absorb new information, even though he had little interest in games before. A few minutes later, a man with a box and a hockey stick approaches the stairs on the 30th floor. At the end of a long descent, he reaches the first floor, and after a short breathlessness, goes outside. On the site in front of the house, he doesn't notice the monsters, and looks out for a place where he can put the box. Hyojin decides to just leave it in plain sight and go back home. Suddenly he notices some movement ahead and freezes, still tired from the stairs. A few meters away from him, dark silhouettes of humanoid creatures are visible. Choi Hyojin immediately remembers the goblins and decides that he has fallen into their trap. Without dropping the box, he prepares to quickly run towards the entrance of the building before the monsters catch up with him. A man accidentally trips and twists his ankle on level ground, falling to the ground. Hyojin hits his face on the asphalt as food and water fall out of the box. Sprawled on the ground, he groans dully in pain and begins to slowly rise to his feet. Suddenly, he realizes the situation he is in, and desperately tries to get up before the goblins catch him. Footsteps are heard from behind, which sends Hyojin into a panic attack, forcing him to freeze in place. The man turns to face his enemies and covers himself with his hands in an attempt to protect himself. Suddenly, someone asks him if he's okay, causing a frightened Hyojin to open his eyes and see a group of young boys and girls in front of him. Kim Jae-hyun receives a system message that creatures not authorized to enter are attempting to do so. The guy activates the absolute gaze skill to look at the new guests. As expected, they turn out to be the same group of fighters from the street who are following Choi Hyojin. The boys and the girl discuss the fact that they should inspect the house and replenish their food supplies, which are running low. Jaehyun turns off the absolute sight, and a system message states that the recluse can offer citizenship to the creatures that enter. The protagonist notes that now he can only offer citizenship, and not forcibly issue it, as was the case with Hyojin's family. The protagonist understands that Hyojin's family entered the zone during the expansion of space, and people who entered voluntarily can decide for themselves whether to accept citizenship or not. Kim Jae-hyun thinks that they might very well reject his offer, and then he will lose the chance to get a squad of strong fighters. The confused recluse tries to decide what to do next, and win the guest's trust. Suddenly, he hears the sound of his communicator on the wall, alerting him to Hyojin's call. The guy goes to the communicator and sets up a connection with Hyojin, who is on another floor. Jaehyun opens the quest window and decides to change the task for Hyojin. The recluse adds a new condition for completing the quest, feeding 6 guests. Choi Hyojin notices the quest has changed, and Jaehyun tells him that he has changed the task. The recluse asks to persuade the group to enter the zone, where he will feed them hot food. After finishing the communication session, Hyojin turns to the boys and girls standing behind the energy wall. He approaches them and explains the situation, trying to convince the guests to come inside and have lunch. Soon, Hyojin contacts Jaehyun again and says that the newcomers have agreed to eat. The recluse orders the system to offer 6 citizenships to people attempting to enter the protected area. The first new resident accepts citizenship and carefully passes through the energy wall. Soon, all the newcomers, Ha Dong-yoon, Kang Dek-seo, Kim Ga-yoon, Yoo Hyo-rin, Kim Gaeon, and Moon Ben-cho, were given access to the 30th floor. The number of inhabitants reaches 10, which means that the hermit will now receive 10% of experience and money on top of the rewards of his citizens. Jae-hyun is confident that he will get a great boost in development if he helps the new residents hunt monsters. The recluse checks the newcomers' backgrounds and sees that Ha Dong-yeon is already level 23, making him comparable in strength to the Calicanin. Ha Dong-yeon's page shows his special ability, Serve, which allows him to increase the power of his throws by 3 times. The protagonist remembers that in baseball, depending on who throws the ball, the pitcher's throw can be a real weapon. And the triple boost to this throw is perfect for killing monsters. Jae-hyun wants to establish contact with the newcomers, and Dong-yeon to increase their trust, and also sets the distribution of experience and money to 70%. This setting will allow him to automatically take a portion of the rewards from the specified citizens for killing monsters. After establishing a relationship, Kim Jae-hyun plans to give them quests to destroy monsters, which will help him level up and earn more money. But first, you have to get to know them and make a good first impression. After all, it is with their help that the recluse will one day be able to meet his family and protect his loved ones. Suddenly, the system shows an increase in Ha Dong-hyun's trust, which surprises Jae-hyun, followed by an increase in Kim Ga-yoon and Yoo Hyo-rin's trust meter. Meanwhile, Choi Hyojin invites guests into his apartment, lit by bright lamps. Park Hae-won asks her husband what's going on, but he promises to explain everything later. But for now, he asks her to warm up some food for everyone. The wife points out that she will have to cook for such a group. But Hyejin persuades her to work hard to fulfill Jae-hyun's plan. After a brief hesitation, Hee-won agrees to help him, trusting the decisions of their all-powerful neighbor. She asks the guests to wait a little while she prepares the food, to which they thank her for her work. Ha Dong-hyun asks Hyejin what kind of person this Kim Jae-hyun is. The owner of the apartment replies that he himself knows little about his neighbor, which surprises Dong-hyun. Choi Hyojin calls Jae-hyun an intriguing figure, and claims that they got light and food thanks to his help. Dong-hyun quickly comes to the conclusion that this neighbor is a superhuman. The guy looks at the bag of chips that Jae-hyun threw to them from the balcony, and thinks that this neighbor must have a really incredible ability to protect territory and create food. Dong-hyun decides to impress him by any means possible, worrying about the well-being of his friends. The baseball player muses that Jae-hyun is powerful enough to provide electricity, food, and water to an entire apartment building. In today's world, this ability is incredibly valuable, which puts such a neighbor on a completely different level. Choi Hyojin suggests that they take a shower while they wait for the food to cook. The girls Kim Ga-yoon and Yoo Hyo-rin, their eyes shining, ask again if it is really possible to wash here. Ha Dong-yeon understands that if there is electricity, then most of the household amenities are also available. Hyejin confirms his thoughts, saying that they even have hot water. The girls are shocked by such capabilities, and Hyejin says that it's all Jae-hyun's power. The man tells the girls that their apartment has 2 bathrooms, so they can both wash at once. A bespectacled guy named Kim Gaeon asks Dong-yeon about this superhuman, to which the baseball player replies that his ability is much stronger and more useful than the power throw. A guy with a bat named Kang Dek-seo suggests beating up this all-powerful neighbor, but Dong-hyun sharply pulls him back and says that they need to behave decently and make a good impression on Jae-hyun. Daxo is perplexed by such demands, to which Dong-hyun simply asks him to do nothing and remain quiet. After settling all differences, Ha Dong-hyun tells his friends that they need to please this neighbor. It is important for them to get as much food as possible and to show themselves in the best light in front of the powerful Superman. Kim Gaeon and Kang Dek-seo agree with the baseball player's opinion, also wanting to replenish their food supplies. Moon Ben-cho stands silently to the side of the group, lost in his dark thoughts. Ha Dong-hyun draws his attention by placing his hand on the sad boy's shoulder. Dong-hyun apologizes to him for the recent events, but Bencho says that he did nothing wrong. Dong-hyun replies that if only he hadn't invited them all to his housewarming party, they would be with their families now. Bencho convinces him not to worry, because he came because he wanted to. Dong-hyun suggests that Bencho get some food and go to his grandmother's house together. Moon Bencho thanks his friends for their support, but he himself believes that it is too late. He remembers the goblins and other scary monsters they fought on the street on their way to the high-rise building. His old grandmother, left alone at home, would hardly have been able to survive in such an environment. Ha Dong-hyun says that his grandmother's house is not far from here and they will be able to get there soon. Bencho thanks his friend again for his help, but suggests that they focus on the superhuman next door for now. Suddenly the front door opens, forcing the guys to stop talking and turn around sharply. The door to the apartment slowly opens, letting in the person who had been standing silently behind it. Ha Dong-hyun takes the baseball at the ready, sensing possible danger. Kim Jae-hyun enters the apartment with a confident look and bags full of food. From the very beginning, he tells those gathered that he can help them all survive the apocalypse. Dong-hyun and the others immediately felt the mysterious aura of the stranger, radiating strength and authority. They felt a strange feeling that it was Jae-hyun who could pull them out of this pit of despair. The recluse and 6 guests sit silently at the dining table in the living room. Park Hae-won sheepishly apologizes that their apartment is not big enough to comfortably accommodate so many people. Ha Dong-hyun asks her not to worry, since they are the ones who suddenly came here without an invitation. Choi Hyojin enters the room with a tray and announces that the food is ready. He places bowls of food on the table while the guests gaze in fascination at the hot food. Hae-won modestly says that she doesn't know if they will like her cooking. The table displays bowls of rice, appetizers, scrambled eggs, salads, and egg rolls. Kim Ga-eun carefully picks up the shiny yellow roll and tastes it. After chewing the dish, she excitedly declares that the roll is magnificent, and its taste is simply heavenly pleasure. Park Hae-won claims that she prepared the dishes using ingredients given to her by Jae-hyun. The housewife's confidence suddenly rises to 50, which the recluse notices, and is surprised that she reached this mark faster than her husband. Everyone sitting at the table thanks the hosts for the food, takes up chopsticks, and begins to eat. Guests are actively enjoying hot dishes that they haven't tried for several days since the apocalypse began. The egg roll deserves special praise and was a big hit with the girls. Park Hae-won thanks the guests for their compliments, but suddenly her daughter Choi So-yeon approaches her. The girl asks for an egg roll too, casting envious glances at the dining table. Hae-won says she'll make new rolls for her daughter after dinner, but So-yeon isn't happy with that answer. Kim Ga-eun calls the girl over to the table, offering to eat egg rolls together. A joyful So-yeon sits on her new friend's lap, who feeds her rice and rolls. The girl genuinely enjoys her food, attracting approving glances from other boys and girls. So-yeon's parents are a little embarrassed by her behavior, and are worried that their daughter might disturb the guests. Kim Jae-hyun invites the apartment owners to join him for dinner, which they agree to after some hesitation. Those gathered at the table eat animatedly and converse on various topics, while the recluse remains lost in his thoughts. He looks sadly at the egg roll and thinks that food has not been so pleasant for him in a long time, remembering his parents. After finishing the meal, a tired So-yeon tells her mother that she wants to sleep. Park Hae-won picks up her daughter and goes to the nursery, accompanied by Na-young. Kim Jae-hyun suggests continuing the conversation since the meal is over and the children have left. The protagonist asks Moon Bencho why he can't go to his grandmother's house since he is nearby. Ha Dong-hyun replies that the main problem for their advancement is the goblins. The protagonist asks what kind of difficulties they are creating, already tired of clashes with these green monsters. Dong-hyun explains that the goblins are using the apartment complex's underground parking lot as their camp. The baseball player estimates that there are currently several thousand goblins on 2 levels of underground parking. Kim Jae-hyun thinks that the recluse zone skill only extends to the 30th floor of the building, which is why the goblins were able to infiltrate the underground parking lot. Ha Dong-hyun continues that they found several entrances to the subway, but they didn't dare go inside. Jae-hyun reminds them about the side entrances, but Dong-hyun says that they already tried to get through them. But there they discovered another monster that looked much more dangerous than the goblins. Dong-hyun recalls that the new monster looked like a large brown bear. The bear attacked the goblins, allowing Dong-hyun's group to escape while the green monsters were distracted by it. The huge beast quickly dealt with the goblins and remained roaring in the parking lot while the team ran to the surface. The protagonist processes the new information, trying to remember everything he knows about bears. Dong-hyun says he's not sure if it was a bear because it was dark in the parking lot. Jae-hyun states that they can't avoid encounters with the goblins forever. Dong-hyun agrees with his words, but replies that they have a serious problem that prevents them from continuing to fight. The protagonist asks what the problem is, and Ga-eun explains that their weapons are a single bow and a baseball, but they are not enough to fight a large number of enemies. Kim Jae-hyun is ready to help them with this difficulty and asks to show him the bow, arrows, and ball. They hand over their humble weapons to the recluse, not understanding how he can help them. Jae-hyun adds new items to the shop, starting with a baseball. He then takes a bow and arrow, but the system message states that adding such an item will cost 1.5 million won. The recluse decides not to skimp on such an important weapon, which could significantly increase the combat power of his soldiers. After adding new items to the store, Hyun asks those sitting at the table if everyone knows how to shoot a bow and watches their confused faces. The recluse buys 5 sets of bows and arrows for his new comrades at the store. A weapon materializes on the table, and Hyun tells his friends to use it to practice before the real fight. The group's trust in the recluse increases, and Moon Bencho thinks that with their new friend they can definitely save his grandmother, causing his trust meter to also rise sharply. Ha Dong-yeon says that with this arsenal, their hunting speed will increase, and Kim Gaeon is pleased that they now have an endless supply of arrows. Kim Jae-hyun states that they first need to significantly reduce the goblin population. Dong-yoon agrees with his opinion and asks when they start hunting. The recluse suggests conducting a goblin raid tomorrow, surprising the others with such haste. Jae-hyun says that the sooner they finish with the monsters the better, and Dong-yoon doesn't know what to say to that. The recluse suddenly declares that they will definitely be able to save Grandma Bencho, causing an awkward silence in the room. Moon Bencho was delighted by this statement, and his hope for saving the old woman flared up with renewed vigor. Ha Dong-yeon again agrees with the protagonist's words, but doesn't understand how they will do it. Jae-hoon announces that they will use a biter strategy to destroy the goblin nest. The people at the table are pondering the recluse's plan, which remains behind the scenes. Dong-yeon believes it could work, although there are some risks. Suddenly, Kim Jae-hyun receives a notification that Choi Hyo-jin has completed the quest and received 30,000 won as a reward, which was debited from the recluse's wallet. The protagonist understands that he can only issue quests if he has money in his account. The guy thinks that now he needs to be more careful when giving out tasks so as not to waste money. The system shows that Hyejin's trust and loyalty have exceeded 50 and reached the required requirements, causing Jae-hyun to register him as the first vassal. Choi Hyo-jin feels an extraordinary surge of energy filling his body. The man states that something strange has just happened to him as blue energy engulfs his body. Jae-hyun gains the summon vassal skill, which allows him to teleport a vassal to his home, and Hyejin gains the gorilla strength skill, which gives him immense physical strength. The system notifies that the experience and gold from the rewards for the first vassal are doubled, and Jae-hyun finds a new plus button on the Hyojin data page. The recluse presses a button, and the system offers to raise his vassal level for 1 million won. Hyejin and Hwon notice the protagonist's gloomy mood, but he tells them not to worry. Hyejin says he's overwhelmed with power, and Jae-hyun confirms it's his doing. A confused Hyojin feels like he's aged 10 years as blue energy emanates from his body. The recluse hands him a bow and asks him to join the mission to clear out the goblins. Choi Hyo-jin hesitantly agrees, and the protagonist thinks that, as a vassal, the man will be able to level up well due to the double experience. The protagonist tells him that he must kill as many monsters as possible, to which a frightened Hyojin quietly agrees. Jae-hyun smiles widely and encourages his neighbor, while he himself thinks about raising his levels. After some time, the team of new residents and Hyejin go down to the first floor. Kang Dek-seo doesn't understand why they came here, and Dong-hyun replies that they are acting as a rescue team on Jae-hyun's orders. The recluse gave them their first mission to rescue all the residents in the residential complex and move them to the 30th floor. Ha Dong-yeon tells his friends that they are going to lure the goblins into the building and kill them. To deal with them, they will need the help of as many survivors as possible. The comrades understand the importance of the rescue mission and are ready to begin work. Dong-yeon orders to start from apartment 101 and be careful in case goblins appear. Rescuers enter apartments 101 and 102, the corridor in front of which is stained with blood. Inside apartment number 101, Ha Dong-yeon sees a terrifying apartment that leaves him in shock. Kim Ga-yoon, Yoo Hyo-rin, and Moon Byung-cho also see this and cover their mouths with their hands, fighting the urge to gag. On the floor of the apartment lie the mutilated bodies of the murdered owners, who were attacked by goblins. Dong-yeon leaves the apartment and calls the others to follow him, not wanting to stay here any longer. In the neighboring apartment, Kang Dek-seo looks angrily at the remains of the murdered people, torn to pieces by goblins. They soon inspect all the apartments on the first floor, but find no survivors. Ha Dong-yeon suppresses the negative feelings he has from what he saw, and orders the group to go up to the second floor. The second floor corridor is littered with the corpses of former residents who also failed to escape from the goblins. The team surveys the aftermath of the carnage that took place 3 days ago, with disgust. After a short search, Dong-yeon tells his comrades to go up to the third floor. There are no signs of blood or struggle in the third floor corridor, which gives the friends hope. Dong-yeon knocks on the door of the nearest apartment, and loudly asks if there is anyone inside. The rest of the group members disperse across the floor, and also knock on different doors. After some time, they gather together, having made no progress in searching for survivors. Ha Dong-yeon tries not to despair, and directs his comrades to go up to the next floor. On the fourth floor, he starts knocking on the door of the nearest apartment, calling himself a rescue team. Suddenly the door begins to slowly open, letting light from the hallway into the dark apartment. A middle-aged man peeks out from behind the door and asks if they are really a rescue team. A delighted Dong-yeon confirms that they came here to rescue the survivors. A gloomy man asks for some water and says that he is very thirsty. Dong-yeon hands him a bottle of drinking water, shocking the man who initially mistook him for a robber. The man opens the door wider and asks again if they are really a rescue team, and Dong-yeon replies that their group consists of residents of this house, who are busy rescuing survivors. The man opens the door completely, and 2 more teenagers find themselves inside the apartment. The man introduces himself as Gong Jiang-soo and invites the rescuers in, apologizing for his suspicion. Ha Dong-yeon also states his name and shakes Jansu's hand, hoping to get along with him. The guy asks Ga-yoon and Hyorin to take the found people to the 30th floor and then return to the rescue mission. Gong Jansu asks why they need to go to the 30th floor, and if they aren't planning on leaving the building. His son comes out of the apartment and reassures his father, suggesting that they probably have a helicopter on the roof. Kim Ga-yeon replies that there is no helicopter, but on the 30th floor you can eat well and take a shower. Jansu's daughter reacts emotionally to the opportunity to wash herself, which she has not had in recent days. Ga-yeon confirms that there is hot water upstairs, and it is possible to take a shower. Jansu's children are getting ready to leave with the rescuers, and advise their father not to be stubborn, and to go with them. Tired, Gong Jansu doesn't want to argue and agrees with the children's opinion. After some time, the rescue team finds more survivors. The number of citizens increases to 40, and the additional experience and gold of the residents increases by 90%. Kim Jae-hyun looks at the system notifications that there are now 40 people living in his zone. He asks the children and the elderly to stay in Choi Hyojin's apartment, wanting to place them in a warm and safe place. The remaining survivors temporarily settled in the corridor of the 30th floor. Ha Dong-yeon tells the protagonist that his team has completely searched the building and brought back all the people they found. The baseball player claims they checked all 29 floors, and most of the survivors have not left their apartments since the apocalypse began. Jae-hyun thanks him for his work and thinks that Heejin's apartment is already completely full of people. The guy activates the absolute view skill and quickly examines the high-rise building. Moon Bencho is busy building barricades out of furniture to slow down the goblins' advance. Choi Hyojin and Kim Ga-yeon lay thick black wires along the stairs between floors. Kim Ga-yoon and Yoo Hyo-rin carry the same wires to the entrance of the underground parking garage. Ha Dong-yeon and Kang Dek-seo carry a large metal boiler filled with water up the stairs. Soon, Kim Jae-hoon turns off the absolute view, finds Dong-yeon and tells him that the job was done well. Now it's time to move on to the second part of the goblin hunt and head to their nest. After some time, the team gathers near the underground parking lot, where Ha Dong-yeon begins the briefing. He tells the assembled group that their goal is to lure all the goblins out of the parking lot. Dong-yeon explains that their strategy starts from Sector B1 and shows his comrades a map of the parking lot. They will split into 2 teams, lure out all the goblins from floor B1 and kill them. They will then descend to floor B2 and finish off the remaining goblins, cutting off their escape routes. Kim Gi-yeon asks what they should do if there are more goblins there than they expect. Ji-yeon is worried that they might get surrounded on the first underground floor, and something might happen while they are moving the goblin corpses. Kim Ga-yoon and Ha Dong-yeon are confident that the plan will work, because now they have many more weapons and many arrows. Ji-yeon trusts the opinion of his comrades, but suddenly a loud scream is heard behind him. Ga-yeon and Ga-yeon quickly turn around, recognizing the sound as the goblins' battle cry. A group of goblins walks into the corridor and looks aggressively at the people ahead. Kim Ga-yeon instantly fires 2 arrows, trying to delay the monsters and prevent them from calling their kin. The arrows hit the goblins right in the heads, pushing them back and killing them on the spot. Kang Dek-seo rushes at the last goblin with a furious cry, swinging his bat. A powerful blow decapitates the green monster, causing it to fly back several meters. All 3 goblins died before they could escape or signal their fellow goblins in the underground parking lot. Kim Gi-yeon asks Dek-seo why he took the bow if he doesn't use it anyway. Kim Ga-yeon suddenly tells his friends to look at something, pointing to the remains of the monsters. The goblin corpses begin to slowly disappear, like dead characters in a computer game. Moon Bencho suggests that this is also one of Kim Jae-hyun's abilities. Dong-yeon tells his comrades to quickly go down to floor B1 to begin eliminating the goblins. Moon Byung-cho, Kim Ga-yoon, and Yoo Hyo-rin's trust increases as they trust Jae-hyun's plan. Meanwhile, the recluse sits in his apartment, drinks water, and watches the pages of his citizens. At first he didn't intend to, but he still decided to watch the destruction of the goblins, fearing for the safety of the team. Moon Bencho's trust score exceeds 50, which surprises Jae-hyun, as it has only been a few hours since their meeting. The recluse thinks that everything is going well, and the more vassals he gets, the faster his growth will be. Suddenly he notices that Moon Bencho's loyalty stat has reached 88, which is the highest among all the citizens in the seclusion zone. The protagonist approves the registration of Moon Bencho as his second vassal. The action shifts to the stairs to the underground parking lot, where the guys fight goblins, and Bencho begins to glow with a bright white light. Bencho looks at his body and doesn't understand what is happening to him now. The team members also cannot find an explanation for what is happening and look at their shining friend with fear. The goblins on the stairs are blinded by the bright light and close their eyes, slowing their progress. After a few seconds, Bencho stops glowing, and the temporarily blinded goblins continue to rub their eyes. Dong-yeon shouts that what happened to Bencho doesn't matter yet, and that they need to run away immediately. The team breaks into the underground parking lot while goblins are hot on their heels. Ha Dong-yeon and Kim Ga-yoon shoot the monsters with bows, giving their comrades time to advance further. The shot goblins die, but their angry kin continue to advance. Kim Ga-yeon accelerates, firing several quick shots from his bow at once. Goblins step over the bodies of their fallen kin and pursue the fleeing people with loud cries. Bencho yells that there are too many enemies, and Dongyun says that he didn't expect so many monsters. Dexo assumes that the goblins from the lower level of the parking lot have also come here and shouts to his comrades to run to the emergency exit. Kim Gaeon holds the door while his friends run towards the stairs to the surface. Dongyun tries to close the door, but one goblin managed to block it with his hand. The other guys rush to the baseball player's aid, trying together to hold back the enemy's onslaught and slam the door. The goblins are slowly winning the power struggle, and Gaeon shouts for the others to run to the first floor. Suddenly, Choi Hyojin tells the boys to move away, activating his new skill, Gorilla Strength. With one hand, he pushes away all the goblins and closes the door, keeping the enemies behind it. Ha Dongyun doesn't want to leave his new comrade here, but Hyejin demands that he go upstairs. Hyejin holds the door with all her might while the goblins on the other side go completely crazy. The team goes upstairs and Donghyun shouts to Hyejin that everyone is safe and he can go up too. Mr. Choi throws the door and runs quickly up the stairs, hoping to outrun the goblins and slam the door in their faces on the first floor. He slips on a step, twists his ankle, and falls to the floor as a crowd of goblins screams and opens the door. The goblin raises its clawed paw over him, and Hyejin shouts at the others to drop him and run upstairs. Kang Dexyo dives down and swings the bat, knocking the goblins away from Hyejin. He extends his hand to Mr. Choi, but several goblins are already preparing to drag him into the underground parking lot. Suddenly, Hyojin disappears, leaving behind a trail of dark energy. Kang Dexyo doesn't understand what just happened and freezes in bewilderment. The goblins rush towards him with war cries, forcing him out of his stupor. Dongyun, Gayun, and Gaeun cover Dexyo with arrows and shout at him to quickly get up. The guy with the bat rushes forward, running away from the horde of green pursuers. He runs up the stairs, just a meter ahead of the crowd of evil monsters. While the team is fighting the goblins, there is also some activity happening on the street in front of the high-rise building. A huge bear with a mad gleam in its eyes furiously tears apart a dead goblin. The bear's thoughts are focused on killing, and the beast itself wants to find more goblins. The bear notices a light on in an apartment on the 30th floor and decides to check the building for goblins. The action moves back a couple of minutes, when Choi Hyojin suddenly teleported to the corridor of the 30th floor. Kim Jae-hyun approaches him and says that he managed to get his neighbor out of that mess in time. Hyejin looks at the completely calm Jae-hyun leaning over him in surprise. The recluse recalls that he was monitoring the group's actions through the absolute sight, and managed to call on his neighbor at a dangerous moment. Hyejin is unable to stand up due to the bleeding wound on his right leg left by the goblin. The man asks how he ended up here, but the protagonist advises him not to think about it and asks about his leg. Hyejin tries to look confident and claims that such a wound will heal quickly. Kim Jae-hyun decides to help him, but first he needs to add medicine to the store. The recluse asks his neighbor to sit on the floor for a while, and he himself goes into his apartment. He finds a medicine chest in the closet, containing everything he needs to provide first aid. The protagonist recalls how his mother forced him to drink bitter syrup when he was little, and becomes nostalgic for the old days. Jae-hyun lays out on the floor the basic medicines, bandages, and other medical items that will be useful now. He reflects that he only has 40 items in the store, where he won't be able to add all the available medications. Instead, the guy puts everything back and adds the entire first aid kit to the store, which can now be purchased for 77,000 won. The recluse buys a new first aid kit and takes it to Choi Hyojin, who is waiting in the hallway. Kim Jae-hyun begins to examine his neighbor's wound, ignoring his quiet protests. First, the protagonist decides to disinfect the wound with cotton wool and alcohol. Choi Hyojin thanks his neighbor for his help, and his loyalty and trust increase again. Jae-hyun packs the first aid kit back up, tells his neighbor to rest, and returns to his apartment. There he activates the absolute sight and shifts his attention to the lower floors, where the battle continues. The team continues to cover Kondexo as he flees from a crowd of enraged goblins. A horde of green monsters goes into a battle frenzy and climbs the stairs with loud screams. A breathless Dexo runs a meter ahead, trying his best to keep them from catching up. Friends have already set up barricades on one of the floors to hold back the goblins. Dexo jumps over the barriers, but a pair of goblins are right behind him. Moon Bencho rushes forward with a furious cry, shielding his comrade from the goblins' attacks. He swings his bow, sending enemies flying down the stairs with unusual force. An enraged Bencho continues to beat the goblins, ignoring the cries of his comrades. The rest of the group look at Bencho in confusion, not understanding where he learned to fight so well. Kim Jae-hyun continues to watch them and notes that they are doing well. Moon Bencho, as the second vassal, received a new ability, Teleport, which consumes spirit and allows him to instantly move short distances within line of sight. Downstairs, Kim Gaeon tells Ha Dong-hyun that he has prepared the extension cord and is ready to implement the next part of the plan. Dexo and Gayun are standing next to the metal boiler that the boys had previously dragged up the stairs. Tired from the battle, Bencho runs up the stairs and jumps over the barricades. The goblins pursue him and discover new barriers with a boiler ahead. Suddenly the boiler cracks, releasing a large stream of water that washes the goblins down the steps. Dong-hyun yells at Gaeon to start as the monsters struggle to hold on to the stairs. Kim Gaeon plugs in the extension cord, connecting to the electrical grid on the 30th floor. A powerful bolt of electricity rushes through the wires laid out along the stairs, causing great damage to the goblins. Kim Jae-hyun sees messages about killing goblins, receives more than 300,000 won, increases his skill level, and gains a new ability. He feels a sharp pain in his chest again as the protected area begins to expand again. The boundaries of the protected space quickly extend to other floors of the residential complex. Within seconds, they even cover the underground parking area. The goblins on the stairs enter the expanded confinement area. Their heads begin to deform when the system recognizes hostile entities and begins to eliminate them. The goblins' heads explode, and Jae-hyun, up above, receives notifications of their kills. A group of goblins runs screaming up the stairs to join the battle on the upper floors. Suddenly, there is a rustling sound behind them, which quickly turns into a quiet growl. One goblin slowly turns back as the shadow of an unknown creature covers him completely. Turning around, the green monster notices a huge bear standing on its hind legs in front of him. The bear immediately rushes to attack, sinking its teeth into the frightened goblin's neck. The remaining goblins freeze in fear for a couple of seconds, shocked by the appearance of a new enemy. The bear notices the mood of the enemies, drops the killed monster, and attacks its frozen comrades. Now the beast deals powerful blows with its claws, tearing one goblin into pieces. The goblin, thrown into the air, dies, bleeding and screaming hysterically. The remaining goblins recover from their shock and let out war cries, preparing to fight to the death against the enraged bear. Green monsters attack the roaring bear from all sides, and he fights back, tearing the goblins to pieces with his claws. The surviving goblins finally overcome their fear and encourage themselves with furious cries, rushing towards the growling beast. One goblin notices a gap in the bear's defenses, which has risen up on its hind legs while killing other monsters. The nimble goblin jumps onto the bear's back and tears a piece of flesh from its skin with its sharp fangs. The bear roars angrily and tries unsuccessfully to throw the monster off its back, while the remaining enemies continue their attack. In a matter of seconds, the goblins pounce on the beast from all sides, biting through its skin in an attempt to tear the enemy apart. The seriously wounded bear loses a lot of blood and senses his imminent death as the monsters continue to tear chunks of flesh out of him. Suddenly, the heads of all the goblins explode at once, and their headless bodies fall to the ground. The bear lets out a puzzled roar and tries to understand what just happened. A system notification appears in front of him that he has received citizenship. The wounded bear finally loses strength and consciousness, beginning to shrink in size. His huge body begins to bend backwards in a strange way, making loud sounds. From under the thick fur appears the human face of a woman who has been a bear all this time. The bear's appearance finally disappears, and in its place a young girl in a white t-shirt appears. The exhausted girl falls to the floor after a tiring battle and bleeds from her wounds. Kim Jae-hyun had been watching her through the absolute sight skill all this time while in his apartment. He continues to look at the unconscious girl, surrounded by the corpses of decapitated goblins. The stranger lies motionless on the ground with no visible signs of wounds, and Jae-hyun decides to find out who she is. The citizen card in the system shows that her name is Oh Yeonju. She is level 33 and has the bear ability, which allows her to transform into a bear. The protagonist is surprised that she herself reached such a level, and was able to awaken an A-rank ability. Meanwhile, Ha Dong-hyun, Kang Daxi, and Yoo Hyo-rin's trust levels reached 50. Jae-hyun registers Kang Dexo as a new vassal, planning to expand his troop of people with special powers. Dexo gains the B-rank Iron Knight ability, which summons armor and a halberd. The protagonist wonders if the awakened ability depends on the user's level. He recalls that Choi Hyojin obtained the C-rank skill Gorilla Strength when he was at level 20. Kan Dexo has now received a B-rank ability, remaining at level 25. Amun Bencho has the A-rank ability Teleport and is currently at level 30. Kim Jae-hyun understands that at the time of their registration as vassals, their ability class was comparable to their current levels. The recluse asks himself whether the ranks of abilities are determined randomly, or whether there is some kind of pattern. He makes the assumption that Moon Bencho received an A-rank skill according to his loyalty level, but then Hyojin should have received an ability of the same class with his high loyalty. At the same time, Kan Dexo had only 31 points of loyalty, but received a B-rank ability. Jae-hyun thinks it would be good to know what causes high-ranking abilities to appear. The recluse can only register 10 vassals, so it is advisable to choose those who can obtain a higher-ranking ability. And it is unknown what will happen if the main character registers a werewolf as a vassal. Kim Jae-hyun leaves the apartment and goes to the elevator to go down to the werewolf girl. In front of the elevator, he activates absolute sight again and looks around the room with that girl. The stranger continues to lie unconscious and shows no signs of life. The elevator goes up and reaches the 30th floor, where the recluse's apartment is located. The protagonist turns around and calls out to Choi Hyojin, who is waiting silently behind him. Hyojin responds and asks how he can help his all-powerful neighbor. Jae-hyun thinks that after clearing the building of goblins, all the doors are open and there is no more danger. The recluse asks Hyojin to go down to the underground parking lot and bring back the girl who lost consciousness there. Meanwhile, Kan Dexo and his friends stand on the stairs and examine the corpses of the decapitated goblins. Dexo wonders why the goblins suddenly died in the middle of the battle. Kim Gaeon helps his friends remove the ropes from the ladder and assumes that someone killed them. A gloomy Ha Dong-hyun silently looks at the goblin corpses and thinks about how terrible this power is. He remembers the moment when a horde of enraged goblins was suddenly destroyed in a second, and understands who helped them win the battle. Dong-hyun recalls Choi Hyojin's words about his unusual neighbor, whom he then called quite an intriguing person. Jae-hyun's abilities were even able to restore the hot water supply to his apartment, and Hyejin's wife set the dinner table for them then, using ingredients that Jae-hyun got from who knows where. Ha Dong-hyun realizes that the power of the mysterious guy from the 30th floor gives him all these amazing abilities. Dong-hyun's attention shifts to Moon Bencho, who is winding up the ropes on the ladder. Dong-hyun recalls how the usually reserved and modest Bencho suddenly gained great strength after meeting Jae-hyun and killed many goblins in battle. Dong-hyun believes that the recluse should not be underestimated, and despite his abilities, they must continue to cooperate and earn his favor if they want to survive. As Dong-hyun continues to ponder, the image moves to the elevator descending into the parking lot. Choi Hyojin quickly runs out of the elevator doors and runs to the center of the basement floor. He runs up to the girl lying on the floor and carries her towards the elevator, stepping over the corpses of goblins. Kim Jae-hyun watches his neighbor's actions, ready to help him if a threat arises. The action moves back several days, to the first minutes of the disaster. A little boy plays with a car on the playground and laughs happily. The baby turns around and laughs as he notices his mother watching him play. It turns out that she is the same werewolf girl Oh Yeonju, who will soon gain the ability to transform into a bear. The baby waves his hand happily as a dark figure appears behind him. The mother notices that she is behind the child and falls into a stupor for a second. The next moment she rushes forward in horror, trying to take her son. The boy was surrounded by 3 goblins, who were looking at the small prey with a carnivorous expression. The girl screams loudly, trying to divert the monster's attention to herself, but realizes that she won't make it in time. The goblins ignore her and attack the boy who just noticed the monsters approaching. Yeonju watches in tears as green monsters tear her little son apart. A separate memory remains of his toy car, stained with the blood of the murdered boy. The action returns to the present, where Oh Yeonju wakes up screaming in bed. Kim Jae-hyun greets her and calls her by name, while the girl looks at him suspiciously. The protagonist remains calm and waits for further actions from the lieutenant. Yeonju sits up in bed, feeling a headache after the battle with the goblins. Jae-hyun introduces himself and extends his hand to her in a formal introduction. The girl ignores the handshake and asks if he did it then. Kim Jae-hyun asks again, confused, not quite understanding what she's talking about. Yeonju asks if it was he who blew up the heads of those goblins in the underground parking lot. The recluse removes his hand and confirms her words that it was indeed he who did it. Oh Yeonju looks suspiciously at his new acquaintance, who is capable of such miracles. She thinks that his ability is incredibly powerful since he can destroy a group of goblins in an instant. Suddenly the thought occurs to her that if he is so strong, then perhaps he can help her. With trembling hands, she gathers the courage to make a request that represents her last hope. Oh Yeonju asks the protagonist to return her son, who was killed by goblins a few days ago. The crying girl begs him to bring her son back for at least one day if a full resurrection is impossible. She wants to spend at least one more day with him and asks Jae-hyun to help her. The girl talks about her son's death, and the system's message shows that her trust has grown incredibly. The protagonist realizes that she hunted the goblins with such fury, wanting to take revenge on them for the death of the child. Yeonju continues to sob, unable to calm down as memories flood back. Jae-hyun looks at the crying girl and thinks how he can help her. He decides to try giving her a quest to kill 1,000 goblins with no time limit, and with the resurrection of her son as a reward. The system announces that such a quest cannot be issued, much to Jae-hyun's obvious disappointment. The protagonist reflects that such a quest should be impossible, since it is impossible to bring back to life those who are no longer with us. But then the system displays messages that he does not have enough funds to issue a resurrection as a reward, and he needs to try later when he has more money. Shocked, Kim Jae-hyun is speechless with surprise. He understands that he will now be able to resurrect people as long as he has enough funds in his account. The recluse returns to the crying Yeonju, and thinks that he doesn't yet know how much money is needed for resurrection. But now he knows for sure that it is possible, and he is ready to give her a final answer. He calls the girl, to which she wipes away her tears and looks at the man who entered the room. Jae-hyun claims that he can help her bring her dead son back to life. Yeonju looks at the protagonist in shock, unable to believe his words. She asks the guy again if he was right when he said that he could really return her son to her. Jae-hyun claims that it is possible, but it can't be done right now. He adds that this is still possible, but it will take an indefinite amount of time. Yeonju says that she will do whatever is necessary, and is ready to follow his orders. Jae-hyun thinks that in Ha Dong-hyun's group, only Kang Dek-seo and Moon Bencho were able to awaken. And if Oh Yeonju, who had reached level 33, joined them, it would be much easier for them to deal with strong monsters. The recluse believes that it would be best to make the 7 of them his vassals. Jae-hyun invites the girl to get up and go with him to meet a group of interesting people. He soon introduces her to Ha Dong-hyun and his friends as a new member of the team. To Dong-hyun's surprise, Yeonju recognizes him as the guy who hunted goblins with a baseball bat. She then recognizes Kim Gaeun, who used a bow to kill monsters. Gaeun asks her new acquaintance in surprise how she knows about them. Yeonju says that they have met before and growls softly, imitating the sounds of a bear. Dongyun, Gayun, and Daxo look at the girl in confusion, not understanding what her growling means. Yeonju decides to show them her ability and begins her transformation into a bear. Dark energy engulfs her body, turning into thick brown fur. The girl's face becomes covered with fur, and her body rapidly increases in size. Kim Gayun exclaims in shock, recognizing her as the very same beast from the side entrance. Yeonju completes his transformation and now towers over the group, his head touching the ceiling. The girl calls herself a bear, showing that even in this form she is able to speak. Yeonju tells her stunned friends that she even helped them with the goblins a few times. Donghyun recalls those incidents and thanks the bear for helping him in battles. Kim Jae-hyun comes into the room and says that everyone has already introduced themselves to each other. He says he is now ready to make an important announcement about their next steps. Starting tomorrow morning, they move on to a plan to rescue Grandma Bencho, who may still be locked in her house. The protagonist believes that now that the number of goblins has significantly decreased, they will be able to save her. Choi Hyo-jin will not be taking part in the surgery due to previous injuries. So, instead of him, Yeonju will go on tomorrow's mission and show his strength to the others. Jae-hyun advises everyone to eat and rest so they can face the morning with renewed energy. Ha Dong-hyun agrees with the leader's plan, and everyone present begins to disperse to their rooms. Jae-hyun calls out to Moon Bencho and Kang Daxio, who are also about to go to bed. The protagonist asks them to go out into the corridor with him for a minute to discuss something important. The recluse stands in the corridor in front of the window and asks the boys if they understand why he called them. Bencho and Daxo exchange puzzled glances and then look questioningly at Jae-hyun. The protagonist says that they are here because of their recent awakening and acquisition of new abilities. Moon Bencho gained the teleport ability, allowing him to instantly move short distances. Kan Dexo gained the Iron Knight skill, which he hadn't used yet. The recluse thinks they need to help them figure out their abilities before tomorrow's mission begins. To begin with, he decides to give them a group quest, to demonstrate their awakened abilities within 1 hour. As a reward, he gives a positive training result, and as a punishment, a night on the street. Suddenly, Kan Dexo's voice brings him out of his thoughts about giving out a new quest. Daxo excitedly asks if he really has a special ability like Donghyun now. When asked about the nature of the ability, Jae-hyun replies that it allows him to summon iron armor and a halberd. A confused Dexo tries to repeat the word halberd, causing the glow of the created object to appear next to him. The frightened boy runs back to the wall screaming, accidentally canceling the creation of the halberd. Kim Jae-hyun watches him silently, waiting for Daxo to calm down and try again. Meanwhile, Moon Bencho activates the teleport ability and moves a few meters to the side. A delighted Bencho exclaims that the skill actually works. He is confident that with this power, he will definitely be able to fight the monsters and save his grandmother. Moon Bencho thanks the recluse for his support, and his trust and loyalty meter quickly rises. But Jae-hyun asks him to wait with the joy of gaining a new skill. The protagonist advises him not to rely on his ability to teleport for now. To Bencho's bewilderment, he replies that he has no guarantee yet that he will be able to control the skill well. The teleport he just made could have been an accident due to a surge of emotion. Jae-hyun advises to find out the range of teleportation and the possible frequency of use. Their conversation is interrupted by a bright glow that appears behind Bencho in the corridor. A huge, shining halberd, as tall as a man, appeared from the bright light. It was held by a tall warrior in iron armor that completely covered his body. Kang Daxo looks at his new armor as if he can't believe his eyes. He joyfully exclaims that he was finally able to use the skill, and his trust and loyalty grows. While Daxo is happy, Jae-hyun calls out to Bencho, who must continue training. He points Bencho to the balcony of a nearby building and asks him to try to teleport there. Bencho looks out the window doubtfully, unsure if he can do it. He decides to give it a try anyway, and Jae-hyun gives him a quest to use the teleporter to move to the next building within 3 minutes. Bencho prepares to teleport, while Kan Dexo cheers him on in full battle gear. Gathering his strength, Moon Bencho releases energy from within himself and activates the skill. He disappears from the corridor of the high-rise building, leaving behind a gust of wind. A split second later, Bencho appears inside a nearby building in a flash of energy. The guy is happy that he succeeded, and looks out the window of the high-rise building, where Jae-hyun and Daxo are watching him. The recluse and the knight look at Bencho, who is actively waving his hand at them. Jae-hyun is pleased with his individual progress, and the system reports that the boy has completed the task. Moon Bencho continues to wave his hand, but suddenly feels unwell. Due to a sudden surge of fatigue, he cannot stand on his feet and loses consciousness. Jae-hyun and Daxo watch in horror as Bencho falls to the floor of a nearby high-rise building. The protagonist uses the summon vassal skill to teleport Bencho to him. The boy appears next to them in a flash of dark energy, but remains unconscious. The protagonist and Kang Dexeo carry him to the bed and wait for him to wake up. Daxo asks if he's okay while Jae-hyun looks at his status in the system and thinks that the teleport is draining him a lot. The system shows that the guy is in a stable condition and is simply sleeping due to exhaustion from using the skill. Daxo is glad that his friend is not in any danger, and Jae-hyun suggests continuing training. The recluse asks a puzzled Dexo if he has done any exercise today. Kim Jae-hyun gives him a new quest, to complete 100 push-ups and squats in full gear in 10 minutes. Kang Daxio begins his workout, starting with push-ups in heavy armor. After finishing the exercise, he moves on to squats, trying to complete them within the allotted time. A few minutes later, the sweaty guy successfully finishes his workout. Hyun thinks that since he was involved in sports, he has developed endurance, which allows him to easily endure such loads. A system message appears in front of him that Kang Daxio has completed the quest. The system suddenly starts evaluating the completed quest, leaving Hyun confused. A tired Daxio asks the leader if he is sure he is done training for the day. The recluse praises him for his hard work, and advises him to rest before tomorrow's sortie. Daxio goes to his room, thanking him for his concern. The system completes the quest evaluation, and indicates to the protagonist that his strength has increased slightly. Dark energy spreads throughout his body, slightly increasing his physical stats. Hyun smiles, realizing that he can become stronger as his vassals train. The action moves to the next day in one of the alleys of the ruined city of Busan, where a breathless Ha Dong-hyun shouts at his friends to run away with a frightened expression on his face. The team flees from a group of muscular goblins who pursue them with war cries. An angry Kang Daxio turns to face his enemies, preparing to fight. The guy activates the Iron Knight skill and blinds the monsters with a flash of light for a second. An armored Daxio stands before the goblins and swings his massive halberd. With a powerful blow of his weapon, he pierces through the nearest goblin before his enemies can come to their senses. With sweeping blows, he kills a couple more monsters, cutting off their heads. The surviving goblins scream in rage and rush forward, wanting to avenge their fallen kin. Kang Daxio steps aside, but the goblins continue to run further towards his friends. Mun Bencho kills 3 goblins with precise bowshots, piercing their heads with arrows. Daxio looks in shock at his friend, who has suddenly learned to shoot a bow accurately. Bencho yells at him not to worry about the monsters he let pass him by. Daxio thanks him for his help and returns to the fight, holding his halberd forward. The goblins scream in confusion, but do not dare to launch another frontal attack. After a brief moment of deliberation, the goblins decide to flee, while Daxio curses angrily at them. Suddenly, a new enemy appears in front of the monsters, growling and blocking their escape route. An enraged female bear, Oh Yeonju, stands on her hind legs, preparing to tear apart the enemies in front of her. The goblins make pitiful sounds with tears in their eyes, realizing that they cannot escape. The battle continues as Kang Daxio and Mun Bencho work together to fend off the monsters' attacks. Oh Yeonju fights alone, methodically killing each fleeing goblin. A few minutes later, Ha Dong-hyun calls out to Mun Bencho while continuing to fight the goblins. He yells at him to run to his grandmother's house while the team holds off the monster attack. Bencho uses a teleporter to escape the battle, leaving his friends to deal with the goblins. He moves 10 meters to the side and runs towards his grandmother's yard. Meanwhile, Kim Jae-hyun watches them through the absolute sight skill and looks at the system message that Oh Yeonju has completed her quest. 130,000 won were credited to his wallet. But the recluse does not understand why he is now receiving money as a reward. He recalls that he received power for completing Daxio's quest, which means the reward given to the recluse may be random. The protagonist assumes that the reward will be greater if the quest's difficulty is higher. Mun Bencho is also on his quest for today, and Jae-hyun is already anticipating the reward. Suddenly, the system shows that the protagonist has won the jackpot, causing him to choke on his noodles. Jae-hyun chews his noodles and sees that the system has awarded him 1 skill point as a jackpot. Meanwhile, Mun Bencho continues to use the teleporter to move faster through the streets of the ruined city. He quickly tires of using the skill frequently, but is determined to see it through to the end. A few minutes later, he reaches his grandmother's house, around which no monsters are visible. The guy carefully opens the door and goes inside, trying not to make any unnecessary noise. He runs into the house and calls for his grandmother, hoping that she was able to survive this nightmare. Bencho finds the old woman sleeping peacefully under a blanket in a dark room with closed windows. The guy approaches the old woman and quietly tries to wake her up and check if she is still alive. The grandmother opens her eyes and immediately recognizes her grandson, calling him by name. Bencho cries with relief, realizing that now he can definitely save his grandmother and take her to a safe place. A guy hugs a seated old woman, following a fleeting impulse of feelings. He asks her forgiveness for having to wait so long for him to arrive in such a terrible situation. Mun Bencho's loyalty reaches 100 units, and the system notifies that the number of vassal registration slots has been increased. The vassals page states that you can now register 11, and also level them up for money. Jae-hyun decides to check how much it costs to level up Bencho. The system reports that 100 million won is needed to raise his level, and the recluse currently doesn't have enough money in his account. Kim Jae-hyun mentally apologizes to Bencho, and promises to give him more tasks to gain experience. Suddenly, the main character hears sounds coming from the elevator and wonders who it could be. He activates absolute sight and scans the corridor near the elevator. There, he sees 2 people, a young man and a girl, standing in front of Choi Hyojin's apartment. The strangers look serious, and the tall guy is holding a large box in his hands. They knock on the door and loudly ask if anyone is inside, attracting Park Hae-won's attention. The woman opens the door and asks, embarrassed, who they are and why they have come. The girl greets with a cheerful smile and introduces herself as Kim Dabin. She introduces the sullen guy with the box as Kim Minho, to which he nods silently. Kim Dabin explains that they live on the lower floors in apartment 1701, and Hyun asks why they came. Dabin replies that they are here because she needs help with something. Confused, Hyun asks how she, as a simple housewife, can help. A sweaty Dabin says her next words might sound a little harsh, and apologizes in advance for them. The blushing girl quickly asks if she can take a shower with them. Park Hae-won looks at them in complete bewilderment, not understanding what all these preparations were for. She asks if they really just need to take a shower, or if there is something more important. Having received an affirmative answer, Hae-won invites the young people into the apartment and agrees to help them. Kim Minho brings a box into the apartment and asks the owner where to put it. When she asks about the contents, Kim Dabin replies that the box contains canned goods and other things. To confirm her words, Minho opens the box, revealing more than a dozen shiny cans of fish, corn, beans, and other food. Hyun tries to refuse such a generous gift, but Kim Dabin claims that it is because they came to strangers with such a strange request. Dabin suddenly goes silent as he sees several new bows and metal bats that Jaehyun recently created with his skill. The girl asks if these bows and bats belong to the owner of the apartment. Hyun replies negatively and says that the story of their appearance is somewhat convoluted. Kim Jaehyun watches their conversation through the absolute view. The protagonist notices that they don't look like bad guys, but decides to keep an eye on them. He plans to visit them later to get to know them personally and discuss important issues. Jaehyun wonders if his new comrades will be able to help them rescue the survivors in the neighboring building. Suddenly, the system announced that he had killed the Red Tiger, gained a lot of experience, raised his skill level, and almost 40 million won had been credited to his wallet. The shocked recluse immediately activates Absolute Sight, visually moving towards Ha Dong-hyun's group. The boys and girls are covered in blood and look exhausted after an intense fight. In front of them lies the corpse of the Red Tiger and the seriously wounded Oh Yeonju in the form of a bear. Jaehyun tries to understand what happened there, but suddenly feels a strong pain in his body. He breaks out in a sweat and tries to control his voice, fighting the painful heat in his bones. His skill level increases, which causes pain in the protagonist's body. The system notifies that there are people in the recluse zone who can be granted citizenship, to which Jaehyun orders them to be made citizens. The system shows that citizenship has been granted to 10 people, bringing the total number of citizens to 50, causing the experience and money earned by residents to increase by 100%. Due to the large number of residents, all citizens receive the power of trust skill, but Jaehyun decides to focus on the group outside for now. Moon Bencho runs through the city towards a secure high-rise building with her grandmother on her back. The rest of the team runs with him, and Kang Dek-seo carries the seriously injured Oh Yeonju. A worried Kim Jae-hyun tries to figure out who was injured and what kind of help Yeonju will need. Suddenly, several goblins appear in front of the group with a war cry. Kim Gi-on fires an arrow from his bow, killing all the attacking goblins at once. Yoo Hyo-rin is amazed by his shooting skills, but the guy himself does not understand how he managed to do it. Kim Gaeun notices that her body feels lighter, and she can run for a long time without getting tired. Ha Dong-hyun agrees with her, wondering why he doesn't feel tired after such exertion. Jae-hyun learns a new skill, Power of Trust, which increases citizens' stats by a percentage equal to their trust level toward the recluse. He recalls that all of Dong-hyun's group members have a trust level of at least 50, which explains why their physical attributes suddenly increased so much. Moon Bencho is sure that they owe their sudden surge of strength to Jae-hyun, and no one dares to argue with that. Kim Gaeun and Yoo Hyo-rin's loyalty scores exceed 30, giving them the potential to become vassals. Jae-hyun immediately orders the system to register both of them as vassals. The girls glow with blue energy, and are surprised to feel a new strength in their bodies. Gaeun gained the skill Puncture, and Hyorin gained Poison Mist, and the next second, goblins appeared behind them. Kim Gaeun draws back her bow and fires an arrow at the monsters, accidentally activating her new ability. A glowing arrow flies forward quickly, piercing the head of the nearest goblin. The arrow then begins to loop, successively killing 3 more goblins behind the first. Confused, Gaeun doesn't understand what happened and why the arrow started flying like that. Jae-hyun sees the description of the girl's skill that fires a piercing arrow and decides to give her the quest. According to the task, Gaeun will need to kill 10 goblins in 10 minutes using her new skill. Next, the recluse learns Yoo Hyo-rin's new ability, which creates a deadly poisonous mist. The skill has an area effect and can harm allies, which is why Jae-hyun decides to postpone training with it until another time. The system notifies that Kim Gaeun has successfully completed the quest, and the protagonist decides to look at the inhabitants of the lower floors. His attention is drawn to a lonely guy walking along the corridor between apartments. He walks into the bathroom and approaches the water with an empty bottle in his hand. The stranger begins to fill the bottle with drinking water, which Jae-hyun notices. Then he sees a couple more people from the lower floor, a guy and a girl, dining on rice and dried meat. The protagonist realizes that they did not join Ha Dong-hyun's group's expedition, because they can still get food on their own. Then he notices a girl lying motionless on the floor in one of the apartments. Jae-hyun rushes to the elevator to go down to the bottom floor and help the stranger. He looks at her system page, which states that her name is Kim Da-jung, and that she has the healing skill. Jae-hyun realizes that she can become their healer, capable of potentially healing any injury. A few minutes later, the protagonist reaches apartment 2902, where Kim Da-jun lives. He began to slowly open the door to the dark apartment, not wanting to frighten the owner. The latch on the door does not allow it to be opened, and the metal parts jingle, attracting attention. Hyun decides to use a new skill, Invisible Hand of the Recluse, which summons a phantom hand for various manipulations. The protagonist sees the situation as a great way to test out a new ability. He concentrates on the door lock, imagining it breaking. Suddenly, a phantom bolt cutter appears in front of him instead of a phantom hand. Kim Jae-hyun mentally controls the bolt cutters to carefully cut the bolt. Opening the door, the guy runs inside and runs into the room to the lying girl. Kim Da-jun lies motionless on the floor, showing no signs of life. The recluse leans over her and tries to wake the girl from a deep sleep. He quickly realizes that her condition is much worse than he expected. Da-jun is severely dehydrated due to not being able to drink water for the past few days. Jae-hyun decides to quickly bring her back to her senses, so that she can use the skill to bring the group back. Suddenly, the shocked guy notices a plastic bottle of drinking water on the table in the room. Deciding not to think about how she could have ended up in this state with water, he concentrates on trying to help her. The guy opens the system and gives Da-jun a quest. Take a breath once, and as a reward, she will receive recovery from dehydration. The girl takes a breath and blue energy engulfs her body, healing her from the effects of dehydration. Da-jun slowly opens her eyes and sees Kim Jae-hyun asking how she is feeling. The girl asks who he is, not understanding where the stranger came from in her apartment. Jae-hyun gives his name and claims to be her neighbor from upstairs. The suspicious girl asks how he got in there, to which the guy replies that he broke the lock and went inside. Suddenly, Da-jun remembers the events of the past week, including the appearance of the monsters. The girl begins to panic and wipes away tears from the unexpected attack of fear. Confused, Jae-hyun doesn't know how to help her, but decides to ignore his emotions in this situation. He tells the girl directly that he urgently needs her help now. A recluse convinces a tearful Da-jun to help his friend, who has been badly hurt. Kim Da-jun stops crying and looks suspiciously at the intruder. She doesn't understand what he's even talking about, and how she can help anyone in her current state. A terrible thought comes to her mind that he knows too much about her. She begins to tremble, trying to understand how he knew that she was a nurse. Deciding not to create a conflict and to observe the situation, she asks where to go. Jae-hyun asks her to wait and assigns her a quest to cure Oh Yeonju within an hour. He hands the girl some food and tells her to eat and calm down, and he will bring the victim to her. Da-jun looks in shock at the system's window, and the tangerines handed over by the neighbor. She screams sharply and asks him to wait with the food and the victim. The girl wants to know what this system window is and how he called it. Confused, Jae-hyun says he'll explain it to her later, but there's no time for that now. Before leaving, he advises the girl to eat and rest, leaving her in a dark apartment with tangerines on the floor. A shocked Kim Da-jung carefully picks up one tangerine and looks at it incredulously. She still can't believe her eyes and assumes she's still asleep. A few minutes later, Kim Jae-hyun returns to his top-floor apartment. The system notifies him that Kim Da-jun's trust in him has increased. The recluse was satisfied with this development of the relationship, and thought that it would also be difficult for him to trust a stranger who broke into his apartment. He goes out onto the balcony and looks down at the street where Ha Dong-hyun's group should have already appeared. Suddenly he notices another huge tiger below, roaring and chasing a group of people. Dong-hyun's team runs with all their might towards the high-rise building, only a few meters ahead of the hungry tiger. A tired Jae-hyun curses the evil fate that keeps sending him more troubles. This red tiger is even bigger than the previous one, and is full of strength for the upcoming battle. And Dong-hyun's group members are too weakened from fighting the previous monsters and retreating for a new battle. The protagonist looks at what is happening below in horror, and does not know how to help his friends. The tiger had almost caught up with the retreating ones, and tried to catch the nearest fugitive with its huge paw. Suddenly, Yoo Hyo-rin trips and falls to the ground, hitting her head hard. Kim Ga-eun stops and prepares to shoot a bow to save her friend. Hyo-rin tries to get up with her injured leg, losing a few seconds to escape. By the time she gets to her feet, Tiger is already behind her, and is now preparing to bite her head off. Hyo-rin already feels the hot breath of the monster on her neck, and prepares to accept her death. The tiger closes its jaws, but the girl suddenly disappears in a flash of energy. The confused monster growls in bewilderment and looks around in search of prey. A frightened Yoo Hyo-rin appears on the top floor of a secure high-rise building. Standing before her is Kim Jae-hyun, who summoned her at the last moment with his vassal teleportation skill. The recluse notes that it was close, and he managed to use the ability at the right moment. He decides to leave the wounded girl in a safe place for now, and help the rest of the team. Outside, the rescue team members continue to run away from the tiger, which wasted several seconds in an unsuccessful attempt to grab Hyo-rin. Jae-hyun gives citizenship to Bencho's grandmother, and teleports them both to his apartment. Moon Bencho asks the protagonist to take care of his grandmother. The recluse asks him to wait and returns to the window to watch the tiger. Bencho remembers his friends downstairs and realizes they need help. The monster on the street continues to quickly close the distance between itself and the fleeing people. Jae-hyun activates the invisible hand skill, summoning the phantom bolt cutter again. Red Tiger is almost catching up with the rescue team, and is already preparing for the final throw. Donghyun realizes that they can't escape and decides to hold off the monster to give his comrades time to escape. He activates the throw skill and swings the baseball with the last of his strength. The guy throws the ball at the monster with great force, aiming for its eyes. Red Tiger moves to the side, allowing the projectile to fly past him half a meter. The monster leaps towards Donghyun in one leap, preparing to kill him with a powerful bite. Kim Ga-eun tells his friend to run and prepares to shoot a bow to distract the enemy. But time is running out. Only a couple of seconds remain before the tiger clamps its jaws on the baseball player's head. Donghyun realizes that he can't run away with his friends and is going to give them the opportunity to leave. He abruptly moves to the side, trying to lead the monster away with him. Red Tiger runs after him with a roar, forgetting about the other members of the group. Ha Donghyun runs towards the underground parking lot, away from the building entrance. This time the tiger finally catches up with him, no longer giving him the opportunity to escape. Donghyun stops, ready to fight the monster one last time. Suddenly, large phantom pincers appear above Red Tiger's head. The magical construction tool closes around the monster's neck and lifts it up. The tiger growls loudly, trying to escape the chokehold of the pincers. Donghyun watches what is happening in surprise, forgetting about escaping. Kim Ga-eun and Kim Ga-eon run to his rescue and also see the tiger dangling in the air. A system message appears in front of the girl, attracting her attention. It was Kim Jae-hyun who assigned her a new mission to kill the red tiger. The recluse watches the situation from the balcony and thinks that thanks to Ga-eun, he will be able to get 4 times more experience and money. The girl activates the puncture skill and aims at the choking tiger. The monster notices her and begins to growl furiously, trying even harder to escape from the clutches. The arrow flies towards the red tiger and pierces his head, killing him on the spot. The system informs the recluse that he has killed a level 28 red tiger and received 63 million won. Ha Donghyun's loyalty has exceeded 30 points, giving him the opportunity to become a vassal. The action moves forward a few minutes to a high-rise apartment, where Kim Da-jun begins treating Oh Yeonju. The girl clumsily uses the heal ability, trying to heal the werewolf. Yeonju's wounds begin to heal quickly, stopping the bleeding. The nurse continues to treat the patient, who has not yet regained consciousness after the battle. Jae-hyun watches what is happening from the sidelines, and is glad that he found the healer in such a timely manner. He asks Ha Donghyun where the red tigers came from on their way. The guy replies that Bencho's grandmother's house is apparently located in tiger territory. Jae-hyun thinks that the environment around his grandmother's house really looked suspicious. There wasn't a single goblin there, and other monsters avoided the place. The recluse considers the tiger's presence there to be an incredible stroke of luck, because otherwise the goblins would have definitely killed the grandmother. Kim Da-jun finishes his treatment and receives 73,000 won for completing the quest. She asks Jae-hyun if she can go home, but he asks her to help someone else. They come to Choi Hyojin's room, who was not expecting guests to appear. A man looks around the apartment and awkwardly asks if there are too many people gathering in his house. The rescue team and a couple of newcomers look away in embarrassment. Jae-hyun asks him to calm down and states that apartment 2901 is currently empty and he will connect water and electricity there soon. The recluse then turns to Kim Da-bin, whom he had met a couple of minutes ago. He tells her that apartments 2101 and 2 are now also empty and asks her to tell other citizens that they can now use the shower and toilet there. Da-bin and Minho agree to pass on his words, not wanting to argue with the owner of the protected area. To their surprise, Jae-hyun suggests that the two of them take one apartment and divide the other between the rest of the people. In order to receive separate housing, he wants to ask them for a favor. He asks them to become a link between him and the other survivors. Da-bin asks if this sounds like a representative position, and is told yes. Jae-hyun asks her to tell the others that the team that kills 100 goblins the fastest will get an empty apartment with electricity, water, gas, and food. Also, if the team brings 10 new survivors into the house, they will also receive such an apartment. However, provision of amenities may take longer depending on the floor. Jae-hyun decides that from now on, only people who are useful will receive all the privileges of living in the house. This is the only way to create more experienced warriors capable of successfully surviving new dangers in the near future. He gives all citizens a new quest. Kill 10 goblins in a week, otherwise they will be banned from using the common areas. The action moves forward a few days, where an unknown guy is running away from a large group of goblins. The monsters scream angrily and pursue him, anticipating good prey. The sweaty guy curses loudly and continues to run with all his might. Ahead, he sees a door and rushes towards it as a chance for salvation. The guy manages to roll into the room, getting a few meters ahead. He shouts to his comrades that he has arrived at the place and asks them to begin. 3 young men with spears praise him for his good work, and one of them is upset that there are so few monsters. The boys begin stabbing the goblins with spears through the windows and door, slowing their progress. The monsters start a crush near the door while the guys continue to methodically kill them. The guys successfully hold the defense, quickly reducing the enemy's numbers. The goblins continue their unsuccessful attempts to break through to the people, but each time they retreat. More and more monsters die without being able to cause any harm to people. The surviving goblins notice that the situation is now clearly not in their favor. The frightened goblins try to escape, and the people give chase. The guy with red hair suggests that his comrades not run after them, but look at his skills. He takes the homemade spear in one hand and takes careful aim. The guy throws a spear with great force towards the fleeing goblins. The projectile flies right on target, catching up with the nearest green fugitive. The spear strikes one monster in the chest, killing it instantly. A satisfied guy shows off to his friends, who are amazed by his new skill. After the fight, he asks his friends how many monsters they killed today. After counting, they find out that they have killed more than 100 goblins. Suddenly, the first runner boy scolds the red Sunhyub, who said that he would need to bring no more than 10 goblins here. Sunhyub doesn't like this attitude, so he prepares to start a conflict. The runner claims that he brought many more than 10 monsters and almost died. Sunhyub replies that they will get a new house as a result, but the runner remains angry that he could have died today. Sunhyub approaches his angry comrade and tells him to listen carefully. He claims that he himself came up with this method of hunting, and came up with the distribution of roles. The blonde twins made spears and fought the monsters, while the runner just boasted about his speed. Sunhyub states that if a runner is not satisfied with something, he can always be kicked out of the team. The twins pull apart Sunhyub and the runner Sungmin, convincing them not to fight. Sunhyub continues to be angry, and the twin convinces Sungmin to apologize to him for being rude. A frightened Sungmin apologizes, not wanting to further escalate the conflict. Sunhyub tells everyone to forget about it and go up to the 21st floor for the reward. On the 21st floor, Kim Dabin tells them with a smile that another team has already received this award. Sunhyub's group is shocked by this news and wants an explanation. Sunhyub can't believe that the other team was able to kill 100 goblins faster than them. Sunhyub is sure that this is some kind of joke and asks Dabin to stop making fun of him. He demands that the joke be stopped and that they be given a new apartment as payment for their work. Kim Dabin replies that this is not a joke and points to the team that killed 100 goblins faster than them. This team turns out to be Kim Minho and a couple of pensioners whom he helped. Minho informs Dabin that in exchange for helping with the quest, Mr. Jiho's family received a new house, and his daughters were exempted from goblin-slaying duties. Dabin remembers that Jiho's daughters are minors, and don't need to complete these quests anyway. Jiho and his wife confirm that their daughters are already adults, but look younger than their age. The wife says that their daughters are good at archery, but their father is too worried about them. Minho reports that Jaehyun has already ordered them to be given new bows and arrows to hunt goblins near their home. An annoyed Sunhyub reminds them of his presence, interrupting their conversation. He accuses Dabin of giving her friend special privileges, creating unfair competition between citizens. Minho says that it's really unfair, so Jaehyun asks to send the second and third teams to the 30th floor to receive the rewards. Kim Dabin tells the boys that everything worked out well for them, and Jaehyun is already waiting for them on the 30th floor. Sunhyub calms down a bit, but remains angry as he walks to the elevator. In the elevator, they discuss Jaehyun, who is probably younger than them, but for some reason everyone treats him with too much respect. The twins agree and say that he looks like the cult leader that everyone reveres as a new god. Sungmin says that thanks to his abilities, they are all safe and there is no need to talk about him like that. The runner states that they need to win him over, not anger him. The rest of the team turns to him as if they can't believe he spoke. Sunhyub starts to get angry again, remembering his outburst after the battle with the goblins. The elevator doors open on the 30th floor, causing Sunhyub to decide to talk to Sungmin later. Kim Jaehyun walks towards them through the corridor, ready for a serious conversation. He greets the team with a slight smile, showing no signs of fear. The guests appear confused and frightened in the presence of the owner of the protected area. Baek Sun-hyub introduces himself and extends his hand in greeting, forgetting his words a minute earlier. Jaehyun shakes his hand and says he watched them hunt goblins, praising their use of the barrier. Sun-hyub asks fearfully how he knows such details about them. The recluse does not answer and says that he will bring electricity, water, and gas to apartments 1301 and 1502. Baek Sun-hyub is shocked that such a thing is even possible, given the abandoned state of those apartments. When asked how he does it, Jaehyun only says that they earned housing for killing hundreds of goblins. With a sinister grin, he declares that he is not a cult leader. He also tells the shocked guests that he has no intention of becoming a new god. Sun-hyub looks down in shame as the protagonist continues speaking. He states that he has a new task for their team with a different reward. The action moves to the street, where after some time, Seong-hyub's group escapes from huge orcs. With the last of their strength, they run around the corner of the building, where help is already waiting for them. Ha Dong-yeon stands there with spears, ready to kill monsters. The baseball player smiles and tells the boys to move aside so they don't get hit. Dong-yeon, who became a vassal, reached level 33 and gained new abilities. He takes a spear and uses the throwing skill, which increases the force of the thrown projectile by 5 times. At the same time, he activates a new skill, Puncture, which temporarily manifests the sword's aura and transfers its properties to the projectile. With the spearman profession increasing his attack power, Dong-yeon throws his spear with great force, piercing through the nearest orc. The remaining orcs do not look frightened and confidently continue their advance. One of them runs up to Dong-yeon and prepares to hit him with a sword. A blue arrow appears next to the guy, heading towards the orc. The arrow pierces the monster's head at great speed, killing it on the spot. The arrow was released by Kim Gaeun, who took up a position a few meters behind Dong-yeon. The spearman silently draws his next spear. preparing to kill the last orc. He throws a spear at the monster, who looks at the corpses of his comrades in confusion. The third monster dies, and the system notifies that 3,000,000 won have been received, and the team quest to kill 100 orcs has been completed. Dongyun approaches the 3 survivors he found, a young man and his parents. The spearman explains the situation to them and convinces them to go to the protected area. Dongyun, Gayun, Sungyub's group, and the 3 survivors arrive at the high-rise building where Hyun is issuing citizenship certificates to the newcomers. The recluse watched the battle through the absolute sight and was satisfied with its outcome. With them, the population will reach 200 people, which is why Hyun expects a new increase in skill. The system notifies that upon reaching a population of 200 citizens, the recluse receives the tax collection skill. The skill charges 10% of the citizen's balance as a tax and has a 30-day cooldown. The protagonist ponders the possibility of collecting a portion of the citizen's funds, despite the fact that he does not know their current wallet balances. He thinks that with such a skill he will be able to save enough money in only 10 months, and his parents need to be saved now. Hyun decides not to use the skill for now and simply change the percentage of fund distribution to 30% as an investment. The system reports that his residence permit skill has reached level 10, giving him 3 skill points. The protagonist again feels severe pain in his body as the protected area expands. The system notifies that he has acquired ownership of an entire building, a capital of 1,000,000,000 won, and has unlocked the construction function. Kim Jae-hyun is recovering from a bout of pain and wants to check out the new feature. The building gives him the opportunity to build a solar generator, a store, or a gymnasium using hundreds of millions of won of capital. The buildings will bring him 30,000,000 won in income per year, which does not suit Jae-hyun at all. With solar panels costing 130,000,000 won, it will take about 5 years to fully pay for themselves. The protagonist decides not to build anything, but to use the money from the capital to level up Dongyun. Suddenly he realizes that he cannot spend this money and seeks an explanation in the system. The terms of the capital state that money from it can only be spent on buildings. Jae-hyun stares at the terms of use of the capital for a few seconds, stunned. Then he happily declares that this changes everything, since capital is independent of his wallet. He decides that the money can then be spent on a few useful buildings. The recluse first orders the construction of a solar generator, but it takes 24 hours to complete the construction. Jae-hyun thinks that 1 solar panel won't be enough and wants to build more. The system notifies him that only 1 generator can be placed per building, so the guy moves on to the store. The conditions for construction and use of the store turned out to be better than he thought. This building is linked to the recluse's shop, and items he adds there can also be sold in the building. The store doesn't require employees and operates through a system that will solve the logistics problem and free Dabin from the work of delivering important items to different floors. With the store, people will now be able to buy the things they need on their own. Jae-hyun muses that he can also set prices for goods. This will allow him to earn money and increase the percentage of its distribution. The recluse decides to build a store in apartment 101 on the first floor, which was cleared out by goblins. There are 48 hours left until the store is completed, and Jae-hyun is currently moving on to the gym. The guy decides to open a gym on the second floor within the next 72 hours, where citizens can increase their strength and endurance at an accelerated pace. The system indicates that the recluse's shop has reached level 5, increasing its capacity, and adding a merchandising feature for purchasing said items separately. The protagonist decides to test the new feature by purchasing water. The store gives him a variety of different brands of mineral water in various volumes. Now the store has a much wider selection, although it does not cover all the needs of citizens. There are also now more varieties of instant noodles, including buldak, dongsang, ramen, and more. The action moves to the street, where Kan Dexo in knight's armor fights orcs. The orc was unable to penetrate his armor, allowing Dexo to deliver a fatal blow to the enemy. After the death of the enemy, the sweaty Dexo is called out by Ha Dong-hyun, who appeared from behind. He asks the knight what will happen if he throws the halberd. Kang Dexeo doesn't know what to say to this, and Dong-hyun asks to borrow his weapon for a second. The spearman takes up a halberd and uses his skills to enhance his throw. Dong-hyun throws the halberd forward with great force, ignoring Daexo's indignation. The halberd flies 10 meters and dissolves into thin air. Kang Daexeo asks in confusion why Dong-hyun threw away his favorite weapon. Dong-hyun tells him to repeat the halberd summon, wanting to test something. Dexo understands his friend's intentions, and decides to also find out if he can infinitely summon the halberd after losing it. He activates the skill by concentrating on summoning a weapon as part of his battle equipment. A new halberd appears in his hand, indistinguishable from the one he just threw away. An excited Daxo calls Dong-hyun a genius, but he just brushes it off and says that he tested his theory. Kim Gyeon runs up to them and says that they need to leave because she has no arrows left. Suddenly, she hears the sound of the system creating objects from behind her and turns around in surprise. A new quiver of arrows appears on the ground to replace those spent on monsters. Kim Jae-hyun has acquired a new skill, Omnifocus, which allows him to use his abilities in the area he is observing with his absolute sight. Kim Gyeon uses new arrows and continues clearing the area of monsters. Jae-hyun watches from the apartment as they complete the quest and receive stat increases and money as a reward. Watching his friend's strength grow, he begins to hope for his parents' quick rescue. Their house is 10 kilometers from the high-rise building. It used to take him about 3 hours on foot to get there. The recluse enters the elevator and goes up to the roof to freshen up and look around. Under a clear sky, he looks down on his hometown of Busan from the 30th floor. The city is completely destroyed, and most of the high-rise buildings have already partially collapsed. This happened in just a couple of weeks, which is why he needs to hurry before all the surviving people finally die out in this ruined city. He decides to once again examine the abilities of his vassals from Donghyun's group. Kim Jiyeon recently acquired the Summon Crow skill, which is used for reconnaissance. Hyun is considering transferring Giyeon to a group with Oh Yeonju and Kim Dajun. But if Kim Dajun has already become a vassal, then Yeonju does not yet have enough loyalty for this. After becoming a vassal, Kim Dajung received the skill's blessing to temporarily increase physical abilities, and magic armor to create armor to protect the target. Hyun thinks that maybe it's time to fulfill the promise he made to Oh Yeonju. He promised to resurrect her son for a simple quest, but before that he didn't have enough money. The system notifies that there is not enough money yet, and the recluse decides to try raising the difficulty level and set the goal of killing a monster of level 40 or higher. This quest will need to be completed within 24 hours, and the punishment for his failure will be death, from which there is no escape. The system informs that there is still not enough money, and you should try again when there are more funds in the account. Suddenly, a message appears next to him about the murder of an orc, who was destroyed by one of the vassals. Hyun remembers about team quests, and will try to arrange one for Yeonju with the same conditions. The recluse decides to try creating this quest, hoping to increase Oh Yeonju's loyalty level. After some time, someone started knocking loudly on the door of his apartment. Hyun slowly approaches the door, letting an excited Oh Yeonju into the apartment. The girl jerks open the door, slightly frightening the protagonist with her activity. An out-of-breath Yeonju tries to catch her breath after a long run up the stairs from the ground floor. With tears in her eyes, she tries to find words for what she just saw. Hyun confirms the reality of this quest, and warns about the time limit. Hearing his words, the girl falls to the floor, no longer able to stand on her feet. She starts crying uncontrollably and thanking Hyun for this opportunity. A tearful Yeonju says that even one day with her son will be happiness for her, and the girl's loyalty level exceeded 30, which allowed her to become a vassal. Sometime later, Hyun stands in an empty apartment and looks at the ceiling. He successfully turns on the lamp, illuminating the room and fully connecting electricity to the apartment. Next, he runs running water, which begins to flow from the kitchen faucet. A little out of breath, the recluse finishes working on the apartment and tells himself that he's already gotten used to this. In his mind, Hyun already imagines himself as a magician who can control electricity, gas, and water. The system notifies him that the store's revenue today was 320,000 won. He then activates Absolute Sight, deciding to follow the people in the building. His attention is drawn to the first floor, where dozens of people are walking around the store. Two guys are discussing that they will need to save up 150,000 won for about 15 days to buy a new bow. One of them objects that they will have nothing to eat for these 15 days if they transfer all their income into savings. Hyun continues to observe and thinks that the atmosphere here has changed significantly. After the store opened on the ground floor, game money really started to matter. Even small amounts of money for killing goblins began to attract people, who began to actively exterminate monsters. But now there are almost no goblins left nearby, which is why the hunters are forced to move further and further away from the residential complex. The standard of many citizens continues to rise, and new residents are arriving regularly. Currently, 789 people live in the complex, with a maximum capacity of 11,000 people. Meanwhile, Oh Yeonju's group went out to hunt monsters. The she-bear actively kills orcs, continuing to search for strong monsters for her quest. After killing the last enemy, she turns back into a human. Having shed her fur, the girl discontentedly examines the bodies of the slain orcs, whose level does not exceed 19. Kim Dajun and Kim Ga-yoon advise her to take her time so as not to accidentally get hurt. Yeonju asks them not to worry and apologizes for killing all the monsters herself. The she-bear didn't tell her friends about her quest, and suggests they continue searching for monsters. Kim Jae-hyun watches them through the Absolute Sight, and thinks that he was very lucky to put her in a team with Kim Dajun after becoming a vassal and strengthening her werewolf skills. Suddenly, the girls hear a loud roar of an unknown monster from the tunnel. Soon, a huge monster appears before them, having come out to the noise of their battle. A huge orc in armor appears before them, looking like the leader of the tribe. Oh Yeonju turns into a bear, managing to shout to Dajun to cover her. The she-bear takes a fighting stance in front of an orc who is as tall as she is. Yeonju charges in fury while the girls behind her yell at her to slow down. The orc swings his spiked club, also preparing to strike. He repels the bear's first attack, trying to withstand her furious onslaught. While Yeonju is fighting the orc, Kim Ga-yeon aims his bow at him, wanting to weaken the enemy. Taking aim, she releases an arrow enhanced by her special skill. The bear steps aside to avoid accidentally blocking the arrow's trajectory. The orc deflects the arrow with his club, but loses his balance due to the force of the blow. Yeonju takes advantage of the opportunity and lunges at his enemy, successfully knocking him to the floor. The she-bear begins to tear the prone orc to pieces, no longer able to wield the club. Jae-hyun, who was watching the battle, receives a notification that Yeonju killed a level 28 orc captain, earning 73 million won. The orc captain was the leader of Jongpo Station, and killing him added the outpost to the list of available buildings. An outpost is a safe zone that can be built outside of the main house, and while the structure is active, the area around it also becomes a protected area for the recluse. If an unregistered subject is in the outpost zone, it will be deactivated within 24 hours, and the construction of the outpost itself costs 1,300,000,000 won. Hyun thinks that he got a lot of money for killing the orcs, which can be invested in the outpost. To build an outpost, he needs to send 3 vassals to the chosen location for a week, but he can't send Donghyun, Yeonju, and Dajun there yet. They will lose a lot of time there, forced to stay in one place for 7 days. Hyun believes that it is too expensive, and that most of the monsters near Jeonpo Station have already been killed, making it pointless to build an outpost there. The protagonist refuses to build in this place, but thinks that he can build an outpost in a more advantageous location. The protagonist considers creating an outpost near his parents' house so that they will always be safe. It will also be too difficult to bring grandparents to the residential complex. Hyun mentally asks them not to die and to hold out until his friends arrive. The recluse decides it's time to take action and wants to send Ha Donghyun's group to his parents' house tomorrow. The action moves back to the subway, where the girls have finished killing the orcs. Kim Gi-yeon arrives at the battlefield and is amazed by the scene he sees. Oh Yeonju, in her bear form, tears the remaining orcs apart. One blow from her paw is enough to throw an orc into the air and cause him a fatal injury. Gi-yeon thinks that such power is quite expected, because even before joining their community, she possessed such a skill. He wonders why she switched sides if she was obsessed with killing goblins. The guy suggests that after becoming a vassal, she also received new abilities. Gi-yeon's team approaches him, having received a new group quest return to the residential complex in 1 hour. Donghyun says that they need to go back quickly, to which Gi-yeon starts whistling. A scout raven, summoned by Gi-yeon with his skill, arrives at the whistle. The raven lands on Gi-yeon's hand and caws loudly, announcing its return. Gi-yeon strokes the contented raven Churnish and thanks him for the work he has done. Donghyun asks his friend to check the way back to avoid any hiding monsters. Gi-yeon transmits orders to the raven, which flies away from the station to scout. The raven flies out into the street and over the city, surveying the streets from a great height. Having surveyed the city through the eyes of a raven, Gi-yeon informs his friends that the way is clear and they can move on. The group gathers their things and heads to the surface, expecting to return within an hour. Gi-yeon hears the rustling of a rat behind him, running down the tunnel away from the people. Kim Gi-yeon climbs onto the platform and takes one last look at the tunnel, where he sees the glowing eyes of a rat. After waiting for the people to leave, the rat also jumps out onto the platform and looks around. The rodent runs towards the stairs to the surface, quietly making its way through the station. The rat looks at the sign about the exit from the station and stops to think. After some time, Kim Jae-hyun bows his head to his friends and asks them for help. He tells them about his parents while the team silently looks at him. Donghyun and Yeonju exchange silent glances, pondering the difficulty of the mission. Jae-hyun, with his head down, says that he understands how slim the chances of success are. Donghyun asks if he is sure that his parents are in that house, but the protagonist has no guarantees. Moon Bencho loudly says that they will help, remembering Jae-hyun's help in saving his grandmother. The rest of the group look at the guy, who demands that the recluse let them help him. Donghyun agrees that they should help, since it's thanks to him that they're still alive, and asks Jae-hyun to simply explain to them what exactly they should do. The recluse says that after clearing out the orcs at Jeonpo Station, they will be able to follow the tracks to Seomyeon Station. From there, they need to go to the Chagalchi Station and exit through the second exit to the surface to his parents' house. Jae-hyun asks to focus on clearing Seomyeon Station first, rather than heading straight to the target house. The protagonist bows his head again, thanks his friends for their help, and asks everyone to rest before tomorrow's mission. Oh Yeonju asks to wait before leaving and says that she has a question. She wonders if he can't just teleport his parents here. Jae-hyun thinks that he has already tried different ways, but has not achieved success. Each attempt ended in failure when the system simply refused to do it. He even tried to make their teleportation a quest reward, but to no avail. That's why Jae-hyun was very happy about Bencho's teleport ability until he knew about its range. The protagonist assumes that the territory under his control simply does not reach the teleportation object. If that's the case, he won't be able to do anything even if his parents are on the verge of death. Jae-hyun replies that he is not omnipotent and there is something he cannot do, but he assures Yeonju that he will keep his promise in the form of that quest reward. Yeonju's trust level increases after her doubts disappear. The protagonist thanks everyone for their time and asks to rest before tomorrow's work. The group leaves the recluse's apartment and goes about their business. Donghyun finally asks the recluse to also rest so that he won't be tired tomorrow. Suddenly, Jae-hyun sees a message from the system that a creature without access rights is trying to enter the zone and can be granted citizenship. The protagonist activates the absolute view and agrees to grant citizenship to the unknown guest. The new citizen is level 31 and is named Seo Yejin, and she has the skill Rat Queen. Jae-hyun looks at the new citizen and sees a large subway rat sitting outside the apartment complex. The shocked recluse doesn't understand why the system considered a rat worthy of citizenship. The action shifts to the subway an hour earlier, where the rat watched Dongyun's group leave and couldn't understand how they managed to defeat the orcs. Seo Yejin was sure that humans were not capable of fighting orcs, much less killing them. The rat assumed that they were all awakened, but she didn't understand how they ended up together in the subway. Yejin decided to follow them and learn more about the group of mysterious strongmen. In the rat's opinion, for now its abilities should be sufficient for short-term reconnaissance. She believes that information about these people will help her cope with powerful monsters in the future. The rat carefully follows Donghyun's team through the city streets, trying not to attract attention. Soon she reaches a residential complex and climbs up to take a look around. In the area in front of the house, she sees a group of children happily playing in the sandbox. The rat is shocked by the scene of children on the playground while monsters roam the streets. Many people leave the residential complex without showing any fear of the dangers of the outside world. The rat looks suspiciously at the high-rise building, not understanding what kind of place it is. She decides to find out more and wants to get inside the building to study the situation. Suddenly, she encounters an invisible energy barrier that prevents her from going any further. The rat rubs its bruised head and sees a message from the system offering it citizenship. The rat squeaks affirmatively, mentally agreeing to accept the unknown citizenship. The system's notice remains hanging in front of her, offering citizenship. The distressed rat suggests that rodents cannot become citizens. Suddenly, a message appears that she has received citizenship, and the rat raises a clenched fist in approval. A rat runs inside a high-rise building, where it is noticed by frightened residents. People try to crush a rat that deftly dodges boots. The rat continues to run until it reaches the second floor and looks around. There she sees a modern gym and several guys working with dumbbells. Kang Daxeo sits on a bench, lifting a heavy dumbbell to pump up her muscles. In another part of the gym, Moon Bencho is spotting Kim Jian on the bench press. Kim Gayun and Yu Hyo-rin also work with smaller dumbbells. Oh Yeonju and Kim Dejun do stretching exercises. The rat finally stops understanding what is happening here and simply watches quietly. Suddenly, the picture shifts to the real Seo Yejin, who remains on the subway. She says she gets a headache if she uses the rat control skill over a long distance for a long time. Yejin happily exclaims that she has found a way to survive in this terrible new world. But to do this, she first needs to get to Jompo Station to get to the surface and reach a safe house. The only correct option is to go straight through the tunnels to the desired location. But then she will encounter that monster that lives at Seomyeon Station. But by controlling an army of rats, Yejin is confident that she can get to any place in the city. The A-class skill Rat Queen allows Seo Yejin to tame and control rats, as Kim Jae-hyun reads on the new citizens page. The recluse activates Absolute Sight, wanting to quickly find the awakened A-rank and make her his vassal. He explores the surroundings of the residential complex, trying to find the girl and give her a quest. The guy had already created a quest to visit his house, but suddenly remembered his recent conversation with Oh Yeonju. She then asked him if he couldn't just move his parents into the recluse zone, like he did with the vassals. Jae-hyun thinks he's tried it many times, but his skill's range of influence is too small. He reflects that the citizens are also part of his zone, and therefore he could summon them from anywhere. And for the monsters they kill, he receives experience and money, regardless of the distance. Then Jae-hyun changes the conditions of the quest. He sets the time limit to 10 seconds, and the punishment for failure in the form of a summons to his apartment. The protagonist thinks that he will now be able to design quests and failures for not completing them in a more original way. This way, he can easily summon citizens to his home regardless of distance, and one day save his family. Jae-hyun wants to send Ha Dong-hyun's group to search for his parents soon. He will build an outpost near their home and issue citizenship of the recluse zone to their relatives there. He will then be able to easily summon family members to the main house through quest failures. This plan seems ideal, but it still doesn't take into account many nuances. First, you'll need to find out how much money it will cost to complete these types of quests. Having finished his thoughts, the guy gives the quest to Seo Yeo-jin. 10 seconds later, she fails the mission, and to Jae-hyun's relief, only 31 million won is debited from his wallet. A shocked Seo Yeo-jin appears on the floor of his hallway. The recluse happily notes that the plan worked and runs out to meet the guest. In the hallway, he silently looks at the motionless girl sitting. The Rat Queen trembled with fear, looking at the unfamiliar guy with her mouth open. Kim Jae-hyun greets her, wanting to calm the frightened girl. When asked how he knows her name, the protagonist replies that he recently granted her citizenship. The guy explains that she is on the top floor of the house, which she saw through the rat. Jae-hyun apologizes for the sudden summons and gives her chocolate and soda. He tells the girl his name while she continues to look at him in surprise. Yojin takes the groceries, and the guy says that it was he who gave her the quest a minute ago. The girl calms down and immediately asks him for a favor. She wants the recluse to also call upon other people she is looking after. Yojin asks him to teleport these people just like he summoned her. When Jae-hyun asks how many people there are, she replies that there are 35. The recluse says it will be too difficult to move them. The protagonist states that it is impossible to summon them all even with his power. Yojin begs him to help her and her mother, whom she left among those people. The protagonist asks the girl to give him time to think. He reflects that he gave Yojin citizenship through her rat, which means there is a chance to help those people. The boy asks the Rat Queen if she is willing to do anything in exchange for his help. The girl thinks about his words for a moment, Gathering her courage, she replies that she will do whatever is required of her. Kim Jae-hyun says that she must trust him completely first. Not quite understanding what is happening, the girl exclaims that she trusts him and is ready to do anything to save her family. The system shows that Seo Yo-jin's trust has increased greatly, causing the recluse to register her as a vassal. Blue energy envelops the girl's body, filling her with new strength. The new tamer skill allows her to develop tamed beasts and improve their stats. Jae-hyun asks if there are any domesticated rats near her family. He asks her to send these rats closer to her family. Yojin concentrates on controlling the rats, continuing to glow with blue energy. Jae-hyun activates absolute sight and begins to observe the rat. A tamed level 2 rodent runs towards a group of people inside a dark room. People quickly realize that it is a rat sent by Yojin. Suddenly, a system window turned on by Jae-hyun appears behind the rat. It drops various food and drinks purchased by the recluse in the game store. Shocked people gather food and try to understand how Yojin could have pulled such a thing off. The protagonist watches what is happening with satisfaction through his skill. He thinks that the absolute sight is a perfect match for Yojin's technique, allowing him to see through the eyes of her rats. The guy is convinced that he will now be able to conduct reconnaissance of the surrounding areas much faster. He returns to the girl and asks her about the Nambu-Mindong area near Songdo Beach. She replies that she often visited that area, because her parents lived there. Jae-hyun thinks it would be wise to send her rats there to scout before sending Ha Dong-hyun's group. This way, the main character will be able to find out if his family is alive and send them essential supplies. Seo Yo-jin quickly agrees to fulfill his wish, wanting to repay him for helping her family. The girl is preparing to send a rat right now at the request of a new friend. Jae-hyun suggests sending the rodent along Busan's first subway line, which he plans to use to rescue survivors in the future. Yojin's face suddenly changes, and he yells at him not to even think about it. The recluse asks her, puzzled, about the reason, surprised by such a change in mood. The girl replies that a huge monster lives at Seomyeon Station. The boy asks Yojin to send a rat to this monster, wanting to see it personally. A small rat runs into Seomyeon Station and looks around nervously. Noticing something scary ahead, she stops and lets out a frightened squeak. In front of her, something huge is slowly swallowing the body of a dead orc. In the darkness, the outline of a giant snake with bright yellow glowing eyes appears. The snake throws its head back, trying to swallow the orc faster. Having devoured its prey, the huge monster notices movement ahead. A frightened rat hides behind a column, trying to escape the monster's gaze. The snake makes a sharp lunge forward and sees the rodent, opening its toothy mouth. The rat looks with fear at the huge fangs of the monster quickly crawling towards her. At the last second, the animal managed to jump to the side and avoid death. The rat quickly runs away from the clumsy monster, unable to turn around easily due to its large body. The snake calms down and decides not to waste his energy pursuing such small prey. Jae-hyun turns off the absolute sight after finishing his reconnaissance. The guy notes that the monster is simply huge, and its level is clearly above 40. Seo Yo-jin says that because of the snake's lair, Seomyeon Station cannot be used and they will have to find other escape routes. She suggests Pongmekul Station, which is one stop closer to them. The girl is confident that the recluse's strong comrades will easily be able to clear the station of weak monsters. The protagonist agrees with her, noting that fighting the snake is too dangerous for now. Kim Jae-hyun says that Yojin can live in apartment number 2701 for now. To the girl's bewilderment, he explains that the apartment will have all the amenities, but it needs a little cleaning. Watching Yojin's back as she left, the recluse thought that her plan was good, but they would still have to kill the snake in the near future. Returning to his chores, Jae-hyun activates the system and begins building a solar power generator. Solar panels are beginning to be built on the roofs of buildings inside the safe zone. The protagonist notes that the efficiency of solar generators is quite high, but even so, it still doesn't have enough electricity for almost 800 people. To collect taxes and create new buildings, he decides to create a 3-shift work system to increase the number of working hours. The guy makes the necessary changes in the safe zone and notes that it's time to assemble a team for the hunt. Hours later, Ha Dong-hyun's group escapes through a subway tunnel from an unknown threat. Having decided to give battle to the enemy, the hunters turn around and prepare for battle. Several huge bats fly behind them, making disgusting squeals. Hunters fire enhanced arrows towards the enemy. Arrows tear apart the bodies and wings of the screaming monsters, who fall in heaps to the ground. After finishing the battle, Kim Ga-eun inspects the team, trying to find the wounded. Hyun asks her friend about the snake from Seomyeon Station and doubts they can defeat it. Ga-eun replies that if the situation worsens, Jae-hyun can always call them to him. Dong-hyun agrees that there is nothing to worry about and suggests continuing on their way. Soon they approach Seomyeon Station, where the snake-like monster lives. At the entrance to the station, the team sees a terrifying sight before them. There is an overturned train and several corpses of orcs and goblins lying on the tracks. Hyorin is sick with fear, but Dong-hyun convinces everyone not to be afraid and to move on. Soon he notices with horror in the distance a huge monster that has made its lair at the station. The guy tells everyone to stop to look at the enemy and prepare for battle. The huge snake had already reared up in front of the team, having spotted new prey. A shocked Kandexo doesn't understand how they can take down such a colossus. Suddenly there is a loud roar and the tunnel begins to shake as if from an explosion. Dongyun protects Gayun and shouts to the others to duck and avoid being crushed by the collapse. Hunters cover each other with their bodies, protecting their comrades from stones. The noise in the tunnel dies down, and Hyun gives the team a group quest: kill a giant snake in 10 minutes. The team tries to figure out what happened, suspecting a sudden earthquake. Ha Dongyun sees Hyun's group quest and doesn't understand how they can kill the monster in such a short time. He turns his gaze to the enemy and notices something strange. The snake lies unconscious, and the floor of the tunnel is slowly stained with its flowing blood. Dongyun tries to understand what happened to the monster and slowly approaches the enemy. The monster's side is torn apart for an unknown reason, and he is temporarily unconscious. Dongyun nods to Yeonju, giving the signal to attack. The boy creates a spear with his skill, preparing to strike the enemy with one blow. With great force, he throws the projectile towards the monster, aiming for its head. The spear strikes him between the eyes, causing the snake to regain consciousness. A huge snake, while hunting, strangles its prey and swallows it whole, disintegrating the still living creatures inside itself with venom. But the snake only uses such methods against large prey. He decided not to waste his energy on a small rat. That's why, when a rat jumped in front of the snake a few minutes ago, he didn't strangle it. The monster swallowed the rodent in one motion, considering it not a serious threat, even if it scratched from the inside. At this time, Hyun observed the rat through the absolute sight and ordered the system to open the warehouse. A warehouse window appeared right inside the monster, where a still living rat was running around. First, the recluse released a large volume of flammable gas from the warehouse. He then caused several pieces of burning fabric to appear near the rat. A powerful explosion shook the insides of the huge monster, causing it to lose consciousness in front of the hunters. Seo Yojin felt the pain of a dying rat and cowered in Jaehyun's apartment. In response to the guy's concerns, she assured him that she was fine. She just didn't expect the rodent to die. The protagonist praises her for her work and tells her to rest while he deals with the rest. He activates the absolute sight again, returning his consciousness to Seomyeon Station. Kim Jae-hyun is sure that such a strong monster could not have died from the explosion, but he is weakened considerably, and now the vassal knights can finish him off. Dongyun and Yeonju see a notification about a group quest and head towards the enemy. The snake comes to its senses, not having died from a direct hit from Dongyun's enhanced spear. Yeonju begins her bear transformation by charging towards the enemy. Leaping high towards the ceiling, she prepares to deliver a penetrating blow with her entire body mass. The girl punches a hole through the monster's head, finally killing him. Yeonju lands and cancels the transformation as the snake's body falls to the ground behind her. The system reports the slaying of a level 40 giant snake, and the transfer of 1,812,000,000 won to the recluse's account. Kim Jae-hyun's registration skill reached level 15, causing him to feel the familiar pain of the expanding safe zone. The zone expands to neighboring high-rise buildings, where the system detects 200 survivors. Wincing in sudden pain, Jae-hyun orders the system to grant them citizenship. The population reaches 1,000 and all citizens receive the basic skill, increasing experience and money gained by 100%. Jae-hyun notes that the skill works on him too, which will allow him to greatly speed up the development of the zone. Seo Yojin calls out to him, breaking him out of his thoughts about the usefulness of his new skill. The girl again asks to bring here those people who were with her. After a short delay, the guy replies that he will definitely help her. Yojin happily thanks him, hoping for a quick reunion with his family. Jae-hyun asks her to take control of any rat in the subway again. The girl is ready to help as best she can, and the recluse tells her to take the hunters to her family. Meanwhile, at Seomyeon Station, Dongyun's team examines the dead snake. Seeing a squeaking rat, the hunters set off after it, following Jae-hyun's instructions. The rodent quickly runs forward while the others try to keep an eye on him. Soon, Dongyun reaches the tunnel where Yeonju, who had rushed ahead a few minutes ago, is waiting for him. The girl stands next to a pile of dead goblins scattered along the walls. When Dongyun asks, she replies that she didn't kill them and that someone else did it. The hunters understand that there is orc territory ahead and grimly await a new battle. The team continues to follow the rat, leading them to the survivors' rally point. Dongyun notes that with the snake dead, the main threat has disappeared, but there may be wandering groups of monsters nearby. The rat squeaks in his direction, demanding that he not stop and continue on his way. Daexo notes that the rat is very smart, and thinks that its behavior is also related to Jae-hyun's powers. The protagonist continues to remotely monitor the team, ready to help them in case of an attack. Having made sure that his comrades are not in danger yet, he decides to focus on developing his skills for now. From leveling up, he received 3 skill points that needed to be distributed. He spends his first point on Absolute Gaze, which immediately causes him to feel a new attack of pain. This time, pain pierces his eyes, filling with new magical power. With the updated skill, he can see the levels of goblins that the hunters are currently fighting in the subway. While Dexo scatters weak monsters, Jae-hyun notices that the system now shows him information about monsters in the skill's field of view. He looks at data on level 8 goblins, 103 centimeters tall, with basic intelligence and good night vision. The recluse notes that the ability to see the characteristics of enemies will greatly help him in the future. Next, the guy decides to level up the providing amenities skill, which returns utilities to apartments. He puts a point into the skill and suddenly hears a loud sound from behind, like a gunshot. Hyun realizes he heard it through the absolute sight. Goblins with revolvers appeared in the subway. Every pistol is loaded, and the monsters have already figured out how to use the weapons. Dongyun's group looks on in shock as the goblin bandits aim their guns at them. Coming out of their stupor, the hunters rush away down the tunnel, escaping from the pistol fire. The group manages to take cover at the station, but the goblins continue to shoot in their direction. Hyun cannot lean out to shoot his bow due to the continuous shelling. Moon Bencho uses the teleport skill and moves behind the back goblin. Bencho pierces the monster's chest with his spear, killing it instantly and forcing it to drop its revolver. Without giving the enemies time to come to their senses, the guy continues to swing his spear. The nearby goblins scream angrily and try to defeat him in close combat. The monsters further away turn towards him and aim their pistols at Bencho. Hyun takes advantage of the cessation of shelling and fires arrows at the enemies, knocking their pistols out of their hands. Daexo and Yeonju cover the archer, protecting her from bullets. The bear and the knight cover the distance between them and the goblins in 2 leaps. They rush into a crowd of enemies and begin to kill them with precise sweeping blows. Kim Gaeon and Yu Hyo-rin also shoot bows, supporting their comrades. Working together, the hunters finish off the surviving goblins without being shot. Kim Jae-hyun decides not to waste any time and quickly registers the abandoned revolver in his store. The system identifies it as a Smith & Wesson revolver, with a price of 476,000 won, and 100 rounds of ammunition for it for 158,000 won. Jae-hyun doesn't want to put it up for sale in the general store. With firearms, you can clear out monsters much faster. Even weak humans can easily kill orcs and goblins, but it is foolish to trust every citizen with a firearm. Jae-hyun did not check people when issuing citizenship. The recluse was always confident that he could deal with any rebels. Clearing monsters quickly will increase tax revenue, but it can lead to chaos when firearms are freely circulated. It is dangerous to trust ordinary citizens with guns. Envy, hatred, and jealousy can push them to terrible deeds, but resurrecting the dead is still too difficult and expensive. Jae-hyun decides that he will only give out weapons to trusted people, and he will determine them based on the fidelity indicators in the system. In the subway, hunters examine the bodies of slain goblins. Suddenly, new revolvers and cartridges for them appear in the air. Bencho takes the gun and mentally thanks Jae-hyun. The team arms itself and continues to follow the rat. Finally, they notice something unusual ahead. The hunters stand near the door, in front of which the rat continues to squeak. Behind the door is a group of trembling people, frightened by the visit of strangers. The action shifts to the street where Jae-hyun and Yojin are walking. Now the safe zone covers the area around the house. The system notifies the recluse of the arrival of strangers. Kim Jae-hyun immediately grants them citizenship. Yojin sees her mother and sister ahead, joyfully running towards her across the zone's border. The women hug, happy to see each other after several days of separation. The sister notices that Yojin no longer stinks, and she confirms that there is hot water. Jae-hyun watches the family reunion with satisfaction. He turns to Yojin and reminds her that he gave her the apartment, but the guy doubts that it will be enough for 30 people. The girl only notices how many people came with her family. The mother and sister look at Jae-hyun darkly, not knowing what to say. The recluse offers the girl 3 more apartments for her help in clearing the station. Yojin promises to continue working hard, and her trust increases. Jae-hyun looks at the system window and remembers something. He leveled up and got a new skill but didn't test it. The beast control skill allows him to keep up to 10 pets. 1 beast can be summoned for 1,000,000,000 won, which shocks the guy. Yu Hyo-rin approaches him and asks to talk alone. They enter the apartment, where the girl avoids his gaze and remains embarrassedly silent. She wants to tell him something, but she is too shy. Jae-hyun encourages her and advises her not to be afraid. Hyun says she wants to leave the hunting party. The protagonist is surprised by such a sudden statement and asks for an explanation. The girl says that her abilities have no place in the group. Jae-hyun asks her not to evade and to speak directly. Hyun screams that she is scared to death on every hunt. Even the goblins are terrifying, and she still hasn't recovered from the orcs and the huge snake. Tears well up in her eyes as she remembers the terrible memories of her past hunt. The girl apologizes for her weakness to the embarrassed guy. Hyun feels useless and unable to live up to his expectations. Jae-hyun thinks he's already guessed about her hidden fear. During the rescue of Bencho's grandmother, she was trembling in battle and could not shoot a bow. During the battle with the orcs in the metro, she ran from the battlefield in fear. And in the fight with the Crimson Tiger, she was literally on the brink of death. Even Jae-hyun agrees that she has little to offer the group right now. But it is her unsuccessful ability that is to blame for this, not herself. The poisonous fog has an area of effect and can affect allies, which is why Hyun couldn't use it in combat. Hyun risked herself just like the others, but she couldn't use her skill. The girl continues to cry in front of the confused recluse. He slowly tells her that they are currently short of workers. The protagonist reminds her about Kim Dabin from the 21st floor. She works alone, which is why she has been very tired lately. Jae-hyun plans to build common areas throughout the complex, and is looking for trusted people to maintain them. The guy offers the tearful Hyun a new safe job. Not hearing an answer, the protagonist tries to find the right words. Jae-hyun says that someone who is willing to move on cannot be useless, and her poison skill is very strong. but there is no use for it yet. If it is difficult for her to go outside now, then for now, she should work inside. The recluse bows to her and says that one day her skill will save them all. Embarrassed, Yu-Hyo-rin stopped crying and her loyalty increased to 100. She wipes away her tears and apologizes for her behavior. She gave in to fear and showed weakness in front of the leader. But from now on, she will work harder and give her all. After finishing the conversation, Jae-hyun returns to his apartment. There he ponders over the skill of summoning a beast for 1,000,000,000 won. The recluse decides to take a risk and try to summon a pet. 1,000,000,000 won is withdrawn from the account, and a bright light appears in front of him. The glow comes from the floor, illuminating the entire apartment. After a second, the light takes the form of a complex magical seal. Jae-hyun winces as the seal's electric charge hits his hand. In the middle of the seal, a large yellow egg appears, as if made of solidified magma. The egg begins to glow brightly from within, blinding the recluse. A crack appears on the surface of the egg and begins to grow rapidly. An even brighter light emerges from the cracks, coming from inside the egg. Suddenly the glow ends and someone crawls out of the shell. In the center of the seal stands a small black chick, looking intently at Jae-hyun. The boy activates the absolute sight and tries to learn more about the bird. This is a level 1 three-legged crow, a divine bird with enormous potential that grows from sunlight. Jae-hyun greets the cute pet, to which it caws cutely. The recluse is pondering a name for the little animal. After some thought, he comes to an obvious nickname option. The protagonist suggests the name Blake, much to the Black Raven's delight. The bird caws happily, to Kim Jae-hyun's delight. The chick continues to make noise and actively flaps its wings. Jae-hyun offers him food, which makes the crow caw even louder. A guy opens a bag of chips he recently bought at the store. The chick happily eats the crunchy treat. Suddenly he stops eating and falls asleep instantly. The cute chick falls to the floor right there and falls asleep. Jae-hyun is amazed by the bird's carefree nature, completely devoid of any sense of danger. Suddenly he sees a system message that the raven level has been increased, and the efficiency of the solar panels has increased by 100%. Excess electricity will be transferred to the hermit's cash account. The protagonist decides to build solar panels in 10 new buildings obtained after expanding the safe zone. Now it has become really profitable to keep them. The raven level increases again, as does the efficiency of the panels. While the batteries are being built, the guy goes to visit his neighbor on the same floor. Choi Hyojin opens the door and greets Jae-hyun. A recluse has an unusual request for his surprised neighbor. Jae-hyun wants to entrust his money to him. He then goes on to explain the financial situation at length. Mr. Choi is shocked by this state of affairs. Previously, the recluse decided to entrust the collection of taxes to a trusted person. Such a person will also pay more taxes from the new position. Hyojin is not happy about such a responsible promotion. Having received the first 1,000,000,000 won, the neighbor calms down. His loyalty reaches its peak, and Jae-hyun advises using money if necessary. Hyojin thanks his neighbor for such trust. Next, Jae-hyun goes to Kim Dabin. He introduces Yu-Hyo-rin to her as his new assistant. For helping with the newcomer, the recluse doubles Dabin's salary. The cheerful girl quickly agrees and promises to help Hyun. Dabin pulls her along with him, giving the first instructions as he goes. Kim Jae-hyun watches them go peacefully. He then goes to see Dong-yeon's group relaxing in their apartment. The hunters wonder why he came to them personally. Jae-hyun explains that after killing the snake, the surrounding subway tracks became free of monsters. We need to manage to capture the Pomnicol and Pommel stations while they are empty. The recluse remembers Hyun crying and suddenly realizes the people in front of him risk their lives every day for his quests. Without Seo Yo-jin's warning, the battle at Seomyeon Station could have gone very differently. Jae-hyun thinks about death and remembers his family. The recluse asks the team to go to Chegalchi Station tomorrow. A few hours later, he returns to his apartment. Blake is already awake and is now stretching sleepily. It gets level 5 and reinforces the roof panels again. The system notifies that Jae-hyun has received some of the beast's power in the form of basic elemental magic. The main character tries to test new abilities. A small clot of magical fire bursts from his finger. The feeling of fire is like using a passive skill. Now we need to test the skill in another place. He goes outside for a safe test of fire magic. The hero tries to focus on the energy within himself. Jae-hyun imagines himself releasing flames the size of a house. A raging ball of fire emerges from his hands. The recluse is not at all satisfied with the result. The fireball was too small to impress him. But if you combine it with the release of gas, you get a pretty big explosion. The damage is low now, but as Blake grows, his master's elemental magic should also increase. Then he decides to finish with the experiments for now and go eat. While he was gone, Blake had already developed to level 8. Solar panels provide a lot of energy and money to the hermit's account. Jae-hyun hears the sound of the front door opening. Seo Yo-jin, rested after yesterday, enters the apartment. The recluse notes the usefulness of her skill for scouting and killing enemies. Jae-hyun offers to work with him as a support force today as well. Ha Dong-yeon's group went to Seomyeon Station, and Yojin sent rats to help them. The girl says she can take the hunters to Choryang Station. It won't be possible to go any further due to a problem at Busan Station. She decides to show him everything in person, rather than explain it verbally. Through absolute sight, Jae-hyun sees the rubble at Busan Station, and the tunnels are partially flooded and at risk of collapse. The recluse returns consciously to the apartment with an unpleasant surprise. Yojin says that there is no way through this station, and she decided to send the rats to the surface. But then another problem arose. Jaehyun turns on the rat surveillance on the city street. It's a sad sight all around, emptiness and destruction everywhere. There is not a single surviving building near the metro, as if someone destroyed everything. The rat runs up to the large crater and catches Jaehyun's attention. The recluse looks in shock at the terrible picture in front of the rat. The crater is the footprint of an unknown monster of colossal size. Now it's clear why there is so much destruction in the area. A huge monster destroyed all the buildings and roads nearby. The recluse turns off the absolute sight and feels a strong vibration. It's as if the whole house starts shaking, like during a mild earthquake. The shaking intensifies, and Seo Yo-jin sinks to the floor in fear. Jaehyun thinks that if the vibrations get stronger, the entire complex might collapse. Suddenly the house stopped shaking. The recluse tries to calm Yo-jin, who asks about the source of the vibrations. Kim Jaehyun assumes the worst, remembering that huge footprint. Someone knocks on the door and demands that Jaehyun see it with his own eyes. The main character decides to figure out what is happening and opens the door. A frightened Choi Hyo-jin asks to quickly go to his apartment. In the hallway, Jaehyun remains hopeful that the giant hasn't come after all, and those tremors were just another earthquake. In the apartment, Hyejin points fearfully at the open window. A shocked Jaehyun sees something truly terrible there. A giant one-eyed monster is rampaging through the city, destroying buildings with its hand. The giant furiously strikes the ground, breaking multi-story buildings down to their foundations. The recluse summons all vassals at once. The puzzled hunters ask what is going on. Bencho suggests that the reason for the call is that earthquake. The next second, everyone sees a giant on the street and is speechless. The monster now looks straight towards the safe zone. He stops destroying the surroundings and heads straight towards them. Along the way, the monster continues to break everything, simply walking through the city. Hyejin notices where the giant is heading now. Jaehyun understands that he needs to be stopped immediately, but he doesn't know if he will be able to do this. He's not sure the safe zone's shields can withstand an attack from such a monster. Now they all really are on the brink of total destruction. Oh Yeonju asks to be allowed to fight this monster personally. The recluse looks at the young woman in surprise. He is impressed by her determination, but does not want to send the girl to certain death. Jaehyun wonders if she can defeat the giant. Yeonju replies with a gloomy face that she will do everything to make sure he disappears. The recluse gives her a quest, to kill the Cyclops within 24 hours with the reward of resurrecting her son for 1 day. Jaehyun then gives a quick briefing, laying out the battle plan. The vassals accepted his strategy and were ready to fight to the death. Oh Yeonju, Ha Dong-yun, Kim Daejun, and Kang Daexi will form the first group. Kim Ga-yeon, Moon Byung-cho, and Kim Gi-yeon will be part of the second group. Jaehyun and Seo Yo-jin will compete as the third group. The recluse and Yo-jin will remain in place, and the rest need to spread out into positions. Both groups run out into the street and rush to carry out the leader's plan. A breathless Yoo Hyo-rin runs up to Jaehyun from behind. She reports that she has gathered all the residents with military training at the main gate, and the rest are hiding in the underground parking lot. Hyun also wants to help in the fight and not sit in the rear. The girl is determined to fight and protect her home from a new threat. Jaehyun notices that her hands are shaking slightly, but doesn't focus on it. He asks if she can really handle it. Hyun replies that she is very scared just by looking at the monster, but she will definitely endure and help her friends achieve victory. Jaehyun tells her to come with him to the main gate. At the edge of the zone, he discovers a crowd of citizens who have come to fight. The recluse counts the frightened residents gathered here. In total, 101 people out of 1,200 inhabitants came. A guy from the crowd asks what they need to do. Jaehyun recognizes him and asks where Baek Sungyeob and the twins are. The guy hesitates, not wanting to answer the leader's question. The recluse realizes that the former hunters have hidden in the parking lot with the others. They pretended they knew nothing and ran away from the battle. Jaehyun begins to get angry at the cowardly egoists who are not ready to protect what is dear to them. The people gathered here understood that they would all die if they did not fight. Everyone is scared, but they came to protect themselves and their families. Everyone wants to escape, but there is no escape route left. The protagonist recalls the classic phrase that courage is not fearlessness, and the ability to not give up and act despite fear. Jaehyun thanks everyone who came to the main gate. For this battle, he decides to do everything possible to win. Therefore, the hero buys 101 revolvers and cartridges for them. All those gathered take up arms and listen to the leader's orders. Kim Jae-hyun is confident that this way they will have a chance to win and escape. The guy turns towards the approaching giant. The recluse activates absolute sight and notes that the enemy is very close. The roaring Cyclops quickly approaches the safe zone. Ha Dong-yun hides in a building as a giant passes by. Taking the spear in his hands, he carefully aims at the enemy's vulnerable spot. With all his might, the guy throws a sharp projectile at the colossal monster. The spear hits him in the leg, piercing the skin and causing bleeding. The Cyclops turns and roars, looking for a new enemy. A huge red eye quickly finds Dong-yun in the building's window. The spearman tries to move to the side, escaping from the enemy attack. Cycle raises his hand to demolish another building with one swing. Oh Yeonju, in her brown bear form, runs quickly towards him from behind. She slashes her claws at his other leg, trying to slow him down. The Cyclops growls angrily as he notices the second hunter appearing. Blood gushes from his legs, slowing his movements. The giant tries to give the bear a kick, but she manages to jump aside. The shockwave hits Yeonju, knocking her aside. At high speed, she flies into the building, breaking through the wall. A bloodied, unconscious female bear lies in a pile of rubble. The Cyclops comes closer and carefully examines the defeated enemy. He approaches the unconscious Yeonju, wanting to finish her off with a powerful blow. The monster is already raising his hand to attack, but suddenly hears someone screams. Dexo, with a megaphone, shouts insults at the Cyclops, distracting him. The monster studies the armored knight and notices the halberd in his hands. The giant looks down at Dongyun's similar spear protruding from his leg. Dexo realizes with horror how his opponent thinks. The Cyclops comes to the conclusion that the halberd and the spear are the same weapon. The monster stops thinking and turns completely towards Dexo. He begins to accelerate for a quick dash towards the new enemy. Cyclops runs towards Dexo, leaving behind a strong wind that lifts rocks into the air. The frightened knight looks at the running giant with horror. Having come to his senses, Dexo begins to run away from him towards the safe zone. Hyun at the main gate continues to watch remotely. He commands all citizens to get ready. The monster will arrive to them any minute. A running Dexo in armor runs out of the corner. He is being chased by a huge Cyclops, skillfully maneuvering through the wide city streets. A sweaty Dexo makes a dash towards the barrier with the last of his strength. He manages to run behind the shields, fulfilling his part of the plan. Kim Gyeon's Black Raven swoops down from the sky, catching the Cyclops off guard. It hits the monster in the eye, forcing it to close its eyes. Kim Gyeon appears on the roof of a neighboring building. With a determined look, she takes out her bow and aims at the enemy's head. A reinforced arrow flies towards the monster at high speed. She pierces his arm and eye, causing more profuse bleeding. Moon Bencho materializes before the monster's eyes. In his hands, he holds 4 Seo Yojin rats. The guy throws the brave rodents straight into the open mouth of the roaring monster. Bencho shouts to Hyun, alerting him to the rats entering the Cyclops' guts. The recluse summons flammable gas directly into the monster's belly. The Cyclops' eye widens, feeling a strange stirring inside. His belly is distended by a powerful stream of gas coming out of his stomach. Kim Jae-hyun focuses on the power of the fire element. Victory will require one powerful blow, capable of burning the enemy from the inside. A small clot of plasma appears in the monster's belly, igniting all the released gas. A powerful explosion fills the space, hiding the Cyclops in tongues of flame. Huge plumes of smoke rise into the air from the site of the explosion. Cyclops is still alive, and now he is close to the border of the barrier. Citizens begin to panic under the giant's intense gaze. Jae-hyun orders them not to panic and stick to the plan. The recluse believes that everything is going almost perfectly. Now the citizens will open fire on the monster that has fallen onto the barrier. The protagonist hopes for the citizens' success, but waits for Dongyun and Yeonju to arrive. A trembling Hyejin tells Jae-hyun to look behind him. The recluse advises him not to worry, because the monster will still fall behind the barrier. But when he turns around, he sees another unpleasant surprise. Cyclops survived the explosion and now looks angrily straight at Jae-hyun. The recluse is amazed at the strength of the monster, which has withstood such damage. The giant leans his hands on the barrier, trying to break through it. Having failed, he raises his huge hand to strike. With a furious roar, he delivers a crushing blow to the safe zone shield. The barrier withstands the first attack, and the system notes an attempt to invade the recluse's zone. Jae-hyun watches helplessly as the Cyclops unleashes its fury. The monster continues to look at the protagonist and prepares to strike again. Choi Hyojin orders the citizens to start firing at the enemy. 101 residents raise their revolvers and aim at the giant's head. A hail of bullets rains down on his face, but cannot penetrate the thick skin. Having received a bullet in the eye, the monster roars in pain and staggers back. Jae-hyun notes that the damage doesn't go away at all, and the bullets only make him angry. If his next blow breaks through the barrier, it will be the end of everything. The recluse decides to use another combat skill. He summons the invisible hand and activates the gigantism modifier. The guy received this skill boost as a result of a recent level up. The Cyclops raises his hand again to strike. Citizens run back, fearing the barrier will collapse. But the shield withstands the new attack without receiving any damage. Inspired residents continue to fire at the enemy. A new wave of bullets hits the huge monster. Cyclops does not react to the shots and looks gloomily at the barrier. Jae-hyun notices that their attacks still do minimal damage. They continue to create small cracks in his thick skin. A shining projectile flies behind the Cyclops at great speed. Ha Dong-yun's spear strikes the monster in the back, causing another painful roar. Kim Jae-hyun sees the hunters finally arriving at the battlefield. Dongyun, Yeonju, and Dajun stand in front of the Cyclops, drawing its attention to themselves. The monster lets out a loud roar and turns to face the new opponents. Jae-hyun uses absolute sight and opens the system warehouse. He hands Dongyun several shining spears for multiple throws. The guy gathers his strength, strengthening his body to the maximum. At great speed, he throws all the spears towards the enemy. Cyclops covers his face, not wanting to get shot in the eye. A hail of shining arrows falls upon the giant from above. Kim Gyeon fires at the monster, forcing it to completely block its line of sight. Taking a position on the roof, the girl continues to shoot endless arrows continuously. Suddenly, the system reports that Blake's level has increased and he has discovered a particle of the sun's power. The three-legged raven has detected an enemy intrusion into the area and is requesting an energy release. Hyun doesn't understand how a little chick will help them in battle. Casting aside his doubts, the hero gives permission, for which he is charged 300 million won. A bright light comes on the balcony of a multi-story building. The sun's rays spread from it towards the Cyclops. Hyun notices that the light is coming from his apartment. A small shining object flies out of the window. The outline of a black raven appears in the sunlight. Blake has suddenly grown and is now concentrating his energy in his beak. The divine bird prepares to fire with all its might at the enemy. The Cyclops notices the glow and turns to face the sun raven. Blake fires a huge beam of fire towards the enemy. A sunbeam pierces the monster's body, causing fatal damage. The Cyclops falls heavily to the ground. The monster continues to roar, clinging to life with its last strength. A brown shadow rushes past Donghyun straight towards the monster. The bear jumps high above the giant's head. In the last seconds of his life, the Cyclops sees Yeonju falling right on top of him. She delivers a crushing blow, killing a level 51 Cyclops. Hyun receives 31 billion won and a level up. Bent over in pain, he feels another expansion of the safe zone. The barrier now covers the entire residential complex number 1. The system allocates a construction grant of 10 billion won to the hero. Blake lands next to Hyun, who is groaning in pain. A contented raven salutes its master. The protagonist scolds him for suddenly losing 300 million won. But Hyun notes that it was his blow that proved decisive. He praises the three-legged raven and pats him on the head. The recluse notes that the summoned beasts seem to be able to act only within his territory. He thinks about calling the rest of the animals, since one can do so much good. The next beast will cost 10 billion won. Suddenly, he notices another system message. The guy remembers Yeonju, who completed her personal mission. The girl stands on the body of a defeated Cyclops. Tears stream down her cheeks when she sees the quest reward. The action moves to an unknown building where survivors have gathered. One of them can create water, which he uses to fill bottles. The girl thanks him for helping with drinking water. The guy with the scar on his face keeps filling bottles and thinks they're running out of food. Junhyuk can create water, but he has already run out of food from fighting monsters. Now they will have to leave their safe place and go out into the city streets. Suddenly, strong tremors shake the building. Junhyuk remarks that the only thing they need is an earthquake. His friend comes down the stairs and asks him to go up quickly. He announces the appearance of a huge monster that is destroying the city. The guys run out onto the roof of a high-rise building. Junhyuk looks around and sees the source of the underground vibrations. A giant Cyclops destroys the surrounding buildings with a loud roar. Junhyuk orders everyone to hide and sit quietly. He is sure that there is no way they can fight against such an enemy. Suddenly, a shining ball of light appears in the sky above the Cyclops. A beam of fire pierces the giant's body, causing him to fall to the ground. The guys watch the incredible spectacle in shock. Junhyuk realized what another awakened one with much stronger abilities than his had done. He turns to his friend Hyun-chan, quickly making the right decision. Junhyuk orders everyone to gather for the announcement. Hyun-chan can't believe he's actually going to the place where the Cyclops died. Junhyuk replies that to survive in this world, they need the power of the one who killed the monster. A couple of hours later, they are walking down the street and discussing the mysterious awakened one. Even if he turns out to be a bad person, they still need food. Soon, they come to the recluse's residential complex. Hyun-chan is surprised that the building is intact when everything around is destroyed. He comes across a transparent barrier that doesn't let him inside. The message "Access denied" appears on the barrier. The system prompts them to obtain permission to enter. They agree and go inside, receiving a quest to find the 30th floor of Building 114. There they meet Kim Jae-hyun, who already knows their names. The new arrivals look at the mysterious recluse with apprehension. Lee Junhyuk realizes that this is the awakened one. The water guy feels his overwhelming aura and enormous power. Junhyuk shakes his hand and bows, thanking him for the warm welcome. An embarrassed Jae-hyun says that he is also glad to meet them. The action moves to the apartment of a recluse, where Oh Yeonju is sitting. There are many different dishes on the table in front of her. The girl speaks in a soft tone to someone in front of her. Her resurrected son Shu sits at the table, tasting the food. The boy asks if today is someone's birthday. He doesn't understand why there are so many delicious dishes on the table. Yeonju replies that she prepared them all just for him. Kim Jae-hyun enters the room. When asked about the new arrivals, he replies that he helped them and gave them food for the first time. The protagonist sheepishly apologizes to Yeonju. Due to the nature of the quest, Shu is now unable to leave his apartment. Oh, Yeonju says that everything is fine, and now she can be with her son. Jae-hyun feels her loyalty increase to the maximum. He watches her sincere smile directed at her revived son. The boy asks to turn on the dino cartoon for him. The recluse turns on a cartoon for them on his laptop and TV. Yeonju and Siwoo spend time together, while Jae-hyun sits quietly on the couch. Watching them, he remembers his family. He wonders if they are alive and what they are doing now. A joyfully croaking Blake approaches the boy and his mother. Jae-hyun remembers that Siwoo only came back for one day, which his mother makes the most of. And right now, the rat Seo Yeo-jin is running towards his parents' house. When the rodent finds them, the guy will send them supplies. For now, he will simply watch Oh Yeonju's happiness. The boy continues to have fun, hugging his happy mother. Soon, Jaehyun tells Yeonju that she and her son can stay in his bedroom today. In response to her objections, he asks them to rest in comfort. The girl and her son thank the recluse for his kindness. They go to the bedroom, wishing him good night. Jaehyun watches them go, thinking about his family again. At night, he lies on the sofa and listens to Oh Yeonju's lullaby. She quietly sang a song for her son as he fell asleep. The recluse listened to her and remembered his mother. The next morning, he had breakfast with the girl and Shu. Then the three of them watched cartoons. During breaks, the boy bothered the tired Blake. By lunchtime, they all decided to take a nap after long games. The boy managed to draw them all on paper. Sunset was approaching and Shu's time was running out. After all, he was resurrected only for one day, and not forever. In the rays of the setting sun, a tearful Yeonju hugged her son. The girl asks the boy not to look at her tears, but he still tries to comfort her. Shu wipes away her mother's tears, urging her to calm down. Yeonju says she's scared to live in a world without him. The boy hugs the crying girl tightly. Shu says he is here, next to her. The mother continued to cry, holding him tightly to her. Suddenly, the boy pulls away and steps back. He says he will always be there for her, and she knows it. Shu slowly walks towards the balcony to watch the sunset. The boy smiles at his mother for the last time as he disappears into the sunlight. Before leaving, he manages to tell her that he loves her. Oh Yeonju looks helplessly at her disappearing son. She says that she loves him too, smiling through her tears. The boy also cries, saying goodbye to her for good. A tearful Yeonju fell to her knees, once again experiencing the grief of separation. She continued to sit there until the last particles of Shu's warmth melted into the air. Jaehyun and Blake watched them with tears in their eyes. The recluse thinks about the cruelty of life that has given birth to such a terrible world. He tells the girl that they will definitely meet again, filling her with hope again. Yeonju asks if this is really possible. Jaehyun promises that he will do it if he gets the chance. Meanwhile, somewhere in the safe zone, Songyeob is screaming in indignation. He complains to the twins that his entire supply of spears has disappeared. All his equipment was taken for the battle with the Cyclops. The first twin also lost all his things. The second one says that their cases are not the only ones, and they all have one thing in common. All of them did not come to Jaehyun's call to the main gate. The twins are sorry that they didn't go when they should have. Songyeob grabs the guy and asks if he blames him for what happened. Songyeob shouts that they themselves agreed to go with him and hide. The frightened twin quickly agrees with him. Songyeob lets him go and thinks about the future. They might just be thrown out of here, just like they did with that guy who tried to seduce a minor. Songyeob realizes that if he continues to go against Jaehyun, he might be the next to die. His situation has now worsened significantly. But Park Sungmin then went to the gate and even received a revolver as a reward. Kim Jaehyun watches them remotely. The recluse intends to punish the traitor even more severely in the future. He gives Songyeob a quest to kill 20 goblins in 24 hours. The penalty for failure is 1 minute of severe pain. The hero then remembers the primordial energy skill that Oh Yeonju received, a high-level skill that speeds up her regeneration depending on the injuries she received. Due to the girl's extreme loyalty, Jaehyun also received this skill, but now he can't leave the safe zone to fight. He is more interested in the skills obtained for reaching the highest level of loyalty. He is especially attracted to Teleport Moon Bencho, whose loyalty is almost at maximum. With teleportation, he will be able to move instantly, and through the Absolute Sight, he will be able to visit the outpost. This way, he will be able to temporarily leave the residential complex. Jaehyun decides to pump up his mental energy more for skills. Oh Yeonju comes into the room and calls out to him. She says she is ready to personally go and save his family. The girl notices that the mission was postponed due to the resurrection of her son. She thanks the recluse for giving her time to be happy, but now she wants to repay the kindness shown. The protagonist understands the truth of her words. He shyly thanks her for her kind words. Yeonju replies that she understands his feelings now. For her, family has always come first. Jaehyun notices that she has become softer since meeting her son. Now the girl is ready to help him get his family back. The recluse thanks again for the kind words. He asks Yeonju to join Dongyun's team. After she leaves, Jaehyun thinks there's a reason why he didn't send them to Seomyeon Station straight away. Due to the Cyclops rampage, part of the paths collapsed. Now we'll have to plot a new route. Seo Yo-jin sent the rats to scout the surrounding area. The protagonist activates Absolute Sight and searches for rodents. Suddenly he notices that Yo-jin's power has changed. The rat has reached level 7 and has become much larger. Jaehyun realizes that the rodents are evolving under her control. Her skill has developed since she became a vassal. The guy notices that the rat is running away from someone. Behind her comes a group of zombies ranging in strength from level 9 to level 13. The recluse sees for the first time monsters emerging from the bodies of people. Once surrounded, the rat turns towards its pursuers. Zombies rush at her from all sides, cutting off her escape routes. Jaehyun watches the rat's final seconds of life with a grim expression. He thinks about calling on gas and blowing up all the zombies on the tracks. Suddenly, the rodent cleverly avoids capture by jumping quickly. He confidently maneuvers past enemies, evading grabs. The rat successfully escapes to the station entrance, casting one last glance back. The rodent runs down the stairs, almost reaching the surface. But on the street, she catches the eye of another huge monster. The toothy monster quickly notices movement near the station. Jaehyun watches the new enemy grimly. A level 23 land shark instantly kills a rat. The recluse turns off the absolute view. He comes to in his apartment and tries to understand where the shark came from on the street. The boy remembers that his parents' house is not far from this station. There are probably many similar monsters near their house. Kim Dabin unloads boxes in the hallway. Hyun greets her and thanks her for her work. The girl asks why he came. The recluse hesitates, choosing the right words. Dabin notices his doubts and assumes something terrible. He asks to borrow Rin for a while. Dabin understands that she will be working alone during this time. Hyun says it's only for 2 days. Dabin demands that he pay for the overtime. The recluse agrees to pay double. Kim Dabin agrees, always willing to help for an extra fee. Rin uses her poison mist skill and places the gas in the storage. The girl stocks up on gas in preparation for the upcoming battle with zombies. Some time ago, the hunters gathered at Ha Dong-hyun's apartment. Kim Jae-hyun announces the start of the mission meeting. He explains that due to the giant's appearance, passing through Seomyeon Station is now too difficult. He then hands the floor over to Seo Yeo-jin, who explains that the subway remains an important way to get around the city. The tracks from Pomnagol Station to Choryeon Station are still intact and uninhabited. She shows a drawn map showing the intended route to Pomnagol. The hunters look at the crookedly made map in bewilderment. Kangdek Seo compliments Yeo-jin on her drawing skills, breaking the tense silence. The protagonist asks not to be distracted and to continue the briefing. Seo Yeo-jin explains that the main problems may start before entering Jeonpo Station. There is a huge market there, which is overrun with orcs. There are at least 500 of them there, which is why Dong-hyun wants to avoid a fight. Yeo-jin agrees with him and says that their main goal is to get to the subway. With the help of the rats, she had already found a path free of orcs, but there would be a few monsters there too. Jae-hyun thinks that before the battle with the giant, he invested all the money into improving his hunter skills. Now almost everyone is at level 30. The only exceptions were Choi Hyojin and Yoo Hyorin. For Dong-hyun's team, the goblins no longer pose a threat. Yeo-jin continues that after going down to Choryang Station, they need to follow the tracks to Busan Station. Dexo nervously asks if there are giants there, but Yeo-jin is sure that there are definitely no monsters of that strength there. The problem will be the tracks themselves between Choryang and Busan stations. The tunnels are teeming with hordes of zombies filling all the tunnels. They need a way to quickly destroy multiple enemies in a tight space. The hunters turn their gaze to Yoo Hyo-rin. The girl looks scared and tries to pluck up her courage. Finally, she says that her poison mist ability might come in handy. The scene returns to Yoo Hyo-rin filling the storage facility to the top with gas. Jae-hyun and Yeo-jin enter the room and praise the girl for her hard work. The recluse inquires about her well-being. Hyerin replies that she feels good and even feels a surge of energy. Jae-hyun leveled her up a few minutes ago, not wanting to look at her tired look. The protagonist is confident that spending money on her was the right decision. He convinces Hyerin not to go with the guys, but to simply fill his storage with fog. The recluse announces the beginning of the operation. He activates Absolute Sight and shifts his attention to the hunters. A group of zombies wanders through a dark subway tunnel. Suddenly, one of the dead men notices movement on the tracks. There's a huge rat running around there, controlled by Seo Yeo-jin's skill. The zombies growl angrily and rush towards their new prey. Kim Jae-hyun opens the vault as the rat approaches the crowd of corpses. The storage window sprays a toxic mist along the rat's trajectory. The rodent maneuvers deftly, dodging the attacks of the clumsy zombies. A minute later, he runs through the entire crowd, leaving behind a cloud of poisonous fog. Yoo Hyo-rin's gas has a paralyzing effect that even affects monsters. After inhaling, the zombies' movement slowed down and their bodies became paralyzed. Living creatures would have died from suffocation due to paralysis of the diaphragm, but zombies simply fell to the ground. Another plan involving Seo Yeo-jin is developed to destroy them. A multitude of glowing eyes appear in the darkness of the tunnel. Dozens of rats run out from there, heading towards the paralyzed zombies. Rodents begin to kill monsters that are unable to move. Suddenly, Yeo-jin reports a new problem. Some rats have turned into monsters and are behaving strangely. They became infected with the virus and turned into giant level 9 zombie rats. Jae-hyun notes that if zombie blood comes into contact with someone, they will become infected. This is especially dangerous for Oh Yeonju, who fights with fangs and claws. Yeo-jin confirms that the mutated rats still obey commands. Although they look more aggressive and frighten uninfected rodents, the recluse calms down, believing that everything is going as planned. Suddenly, the system reports an attempt to enter the safe zone. 157 people ask to enter, and the protagonist grants them citizenship. The number of citizens reaches 3,000, and the hero receives the skill subsidies for economic activity. This skill allows you to assign paid positions to citizens: general manager, worker. Jae-hyun is considering making Kim Dabin, the commander of the resource management group, general. But now her team will have to be significantly expanded. The skill eliminates the need for the hermit to pay workers from his personal account and saves a lot of money. At its maximum, the skill can generate a salary of 50 million won daily. Jae-hyun thinks that roles should be assigned as advantageously as possible. Workers needed in the service, cleaning and security sectors. Security can be handled by those already on duty at the main gate. Kim Dabin has been named general manager. Her group also includes Choi Hyojin and Yoo Hyorin, who are suitable for deputy positions. Meanwhile, Kim Dabin's trust reaches its peak. Hyun wants to know what special skill she got. From the sofa, the quiet snores of Rin can be heard. The girl got tired of releasing the poisonous fog and lay down to rest. Confused, Seo Yojin suggests waking her up. Hyun says not to touch Hyorin, who has already completed her duties. He understands that the girl has worked herself to the point of exhaustion and deserves a little rest. The recluse activates the invisible hand and lifts the sleeping girl. He carries her into the bedroom and covers her with a blanket, leaving her to sleep in silence. Seo Yojin notices in the living room that Hyorin is very tired. Kim Jae-hyun inquires about her condition after managing so many rats. Yojin claims that she doesn't get tired of her skill and is ready to continue. Suddenly her face changes, sensing something is wrong. Jae-hyun quickly asks what happened. The girl replies that she has lost contact with all the rats in the subway. The protagonist wants to know how this could happen. Yojin concentrates on using the skill. Soon she opens her eyes and says that the rats have run too far. Her ability has a range, beyond which the rodents become free. Now she can only take control of them if she is nearby. Jae-hyun is shocked by his partner's sudden failure. He wanted to conduct reconnaissance with a rat near his parents' house, but now it is impossible. He asks her to take control of some rats nearby and send them to Donghyun's group. The girl immerses herself in concentration, searching for the nearest rodents. Meanwhile, rat zombies, freed from Seo Yojin's control, run rampant through the subway. The recluse hopes his parents will be safe until the group arrives. The action shifts to Donghyun's team, who have reached Choryang Station. The hunters come to the surface and look around. The sight around the station horrifies the group members. All buildings are destroyed after the Cyclops' recent rampage. There are still huge traces of it left on the ground. Gayun asks Kim Gaeon to begin reconnaissance. Jiyeon sends a raven to survey the surrounding area from above. The guy looks through the eyes of a bird and reports that there are no monsters nearby. Dexo sighs that there aren't even any goblins around to train with. Jiyeon says that because of the Cyclops, no one will come here. Kim Dajun notices that it is already getting dark and suggests looking for a safe place to spend the night. Kim Gayun is confident that they have nothing to fear at night, because goblins are cowardly and operate only during the day. Dongyun is determined to move on and says that Jaehyun will call them if there is any danger. A small rat runs up to them and starts squeaking loudly. The hunters identify her as the rodent Seo Yojin, who demands to follow him. After some time, the team walks through the city at night. Jiyeon notes that Busan now resembles a huge lake due to the giant's rampage. Gaian says that the Cyclops created many large craters, which have now become new ponds. Suddenly someone appears from the small lake. A dark figure emerges from the water. Jiyeon notices movement on the right and tells his friends about it. He points to a mysterious creature hiding behind the remains of a building. From a distance, they mistake the creature for an ordinary woman, but they quickly notice her fishtail and scales. The siren opens its yellow eyes and examines its prey. She makes a loud cry that forces hunters to cover their ears. The awakened ones cannot move, numb from the sound vibrations. The siren continues to wail continuously, trapping people. The screaming continues, forcing everyone to stand still. Suddenly, Kang Dexo feels a strange energy engulfing his body. Oh Yeonju feels the same way. Their bodies begin to move on their own, under the control of the siren. The boy and girl suddenly rush into the water to meet the monster. They fall into the pond and begin to drown. Dexo and Yeonju go into the deep end, choking on water. The girl regains control of her body and tries to swim, but someone's scaly hands begin to pull her back. Several fish-like monsters drag her down, not allowing her to breathe. On the surface, the hunters still can't break out of their stupor. Kim Dajun activates his skill with the last of his strength. She gives magical armor to Donghyun and Gion. The armor protected them from the siren's voice and restored control over their bodies. Kim Dajung collapses from fatigue and asks to quickly save the drowning people. Suddenly she notices something scary ahead. The ugly face of a monster appears from the reservoir. Several underwater monsters with tridents appear near the siren. The monsters scream loudly and rush at the hunters. In water, they become especially fast. Donghyun orders the team to prepare for battle. Fishmen jump out of the water and attack the hunters. Donghyun fends off the attack of a nearby monster. Kim Gaian kills the enemy in front of him with a powered arrow. Other fishmen emerge from the pond and a battle begins. The team is using its last strength to hold back the enemy's advance. Soon the monsters surround them on all sides, cutting off their escape routes. Donghyun is feverishly thinking about how to get out of the encirclement. We also need to save our drowning friends before they drown. A dark figure jumps out of the pond, scattering the fishmen. The mother bear lands on her hind legs, holding the unconscious Dexo in her forepaws. The guy coughs, spitting out water from his lungs. The team is glad to see their surviving comrades. Dexo thanks Yeonju for saving him from certain death. The fishmen attack again, interrupting their conversation. Kan Dexo summons a knight armor and a halberd. He swings his weapon in all directions, cutting down nearby monsters. Oh, Yeonju sends the enemy flying with a powerful claw strike. The fishman flies back and collides with a stone pillar. At the top of the cross-shaped pillar, a figure of a tied goblin can be seen. Daexo and Donghyun call for everyone to retreat while continuing to hold off the enemies. The cracked pole falls to the ground with the tied body. The hunters look at the victim on the cross in bewilderment. It turns out to be a dead goblin who died of exhaustion. Jiyeon recalls that there are several more such crosses nearby. The team looks up and sees more examples of the monster's cruelty. Several more bodies are tied to dozens of crosses. Dong-hyun realizes that he didn't even notice them during the battle. There are several dead goblins hanging from the poles. Suddenly, Kim Gaeun drops his bow after seeing something terrible. She looks in shock at one of the bodies tied to the crosses. The girl recognizes him as her father, who disappeared on the day of the end of the world. A fishman with a spear rushes at the shocked girl. Ha Dong-hyun yells at her to dodge, but it's too late. A revolver shot saves the stunned girl. The bullet pierces the monster's chest, stopping it in its tracks. The other fishmen gather in a group for the next attack. Moon Bencho continues to hold the gun, covering Kim Gaeun. Dong-hyun thanks him for his quick response and tries to understand what happened to his friend. Gaeun falls to her knees, inconsolably hiding her face in her hands. Kim Gaeun reports his observations to Dong-hyun. During the battle, he watched the siren through the crow and noticed something interesting. According to Gaeun, it is she who controls the actions of the fishmen. Every time she speaks, her words are reflected on the monsters. The fish heads make warlike cries and begin to attack. If you kill the siren, there is a high chance that the enemy will retreat into the lake. With no other options, Dong-hyun is willing to give it a try. But the fishmen block their path, protecting their mistress. Kang Daexo says to leave the siren's killing to him. He is confident that he can kill this creature with one precise blow. The siren watches the hunters and gives the order to the fish heads to attack. The monsters approach the team, simultaneously covering the hostess. Jian notices that the siren has figured out their intentions and has protected itself. Dong-hyun asks Daexo how he plans to get through the crowd of enemies. Daexo asks you to trust him and just clear the way for him. Kim Da-jun hugs the trembling Ga-yoon and promises to take care of her. Dong-hyun, Bencho, and Jian break through the fishmen, opening the way for Daexo. Dong-hyun wields the spear while Jian and Bencho cover him with pistols. After a few seconds, they manage to clear an area in front of the lake. Dong-hyun calls out to Daexo as he continues to push back the fish-headed monsters. Kan Daexo grips the halberd like a spear and aims at the siren. With great force, he throws the weapon straight at the head of the main enemy. The siren notices the projectile and prepares to move aside. She dodges to the left as the halberd slices through her hair to the right. The guys look in bewilderment at Kan Daexo, who missed and was left without a weapon. The siren laughs loudly at the hapless knight who wasted his throw. The fish heads also begin to laugh, temporarily stopping their attack. But Daexo smiles and reminds that the best way to catch fish is with a hook. He summons the thrown halberd, which begins to fly back towards him. With its sharp end, it pierces the chest of the laughing siren, killing her on the spot. The 33rd level siren lets out a final, piercing scream before dying. The defeated enemy falls into the lake, and 350 million won is credited to Jaehyun's account. The fishmen look at each other in bewilderment, left without a commander. After a few seconds of thought, the monsters turn around and run back into the lake. Ha Dong-hyun runs to Kim Gaeun, wanting to find out what happened to her. Kim Da-jun looks at him helplessly, not knowing what to do. Gaeun quietly tells Dong-hyun that her dad is hanging upstairs. The shocked guy turns sharply and looks at the bodies on the crosses. A trembling Kim Gaeun asks her friends what she should do now. Dong-hyun notices the body of her father, whom he had met before, on one of the pillars. Jian and Dong-hyun also kneel down, trying to comprehend the situation. On the cross hangs Gaeun's father, sacrificed by the fishmen. In the safe zone, Kim Jae-hyun tries to give Gaeun a quest with the reward of resurrecting her father. Seo Yo-jin watches his partner helplessly, not knowing what to say. The system reports that those who died outside the recluse's territory cannot be brought back to life. The protagonist thinks that he truly believed in his comrades. He was confident that in case of real danger, he would be able to quickly call them back. But he didn't do it now, not wanting to start the operation over again. Because of him, Yeonju and Daexo almost died when they were dragged underwater by the fish heads. And now Kim Gaeun has found her father, who died a painful death. Jae-hyun realizes that each of his comrades also has families they dream of seeing. But the recluse thought first and foremost only about his family, and put his friends in danger. But his comrades trust him, and now he will continue to play the role of their leader. The protagonist gives the team a group quest: build a grave in 1 hour. Kim Gaeun sees the notice and continues to cry, mourning her father's death. Ha Dong-hyun tries to console her, but he can't find the right words. Kim Jae-hyun turns off the absolute view, doubting the correctness of his decision. An hour later, the hunters build a grave with a wooden cross. Kim Gaeun stands silently in front of her father's resting place, paying his last respects. Dong-hyun carefully asks her if she is sure about her choice of gravesite. Gaeun replies that his father would definitely like it here. He was always a workaholic and wanted to be buried next to the railroad tracks. Previously, the girl considered this ridiculous, but now she fulfilled his wish. Jae-hyun watches the funeral remotely and reminisces about his family. He hopes that this doesn't happen to them, but he will be prepared for anything. To survive in the new world, he needs more strong people willing to fight for what is dear to them. The recluse remembers a newcomer with enormous potential. He looks at Lee Junhyuk killing goblins with his water skills. His loyalty increases to a level that allows him to become a vassal. Junhyuk's friend calls out to him with a worried look. He glows with blue energy and gains the status of a mage, as the only awakened of level 40. He gains 2 skills, Water Bomb and Water Control, which allows him to manipulate created water using his spirit. Lee Junhyuk immediately realizes that it was Jae-hyun who gave him new abilities. He gets a new quest, to use water bomb and water control within 10 minutes. Junhyuk smiles, ready to fulfill the will of the mystical recluse. He chooses goblins as targets for training. The guy forms a small ball of water in his hand. The ball quickly grows in size, turning into a raging sphere of water. The goblins stop and try to understand what is happening. Junhyuk uses water bomb, killing all enemies in front of him at once. The skill not only kills goblins, but also destroys the ground beneath them. Next, Junhyuk decides to try out water control. With a movement of his hand, he stops the raindrops, causing them to hang in the air. His partners look in shock at the frozen raindrops. Junhyuk's friends ask him where he learned such tricks. The boy laughs loudly, pleased with his new powers. He falls to his knees and bows, offering praises to Hyun. His friends assume that their leader has gone completely mad due to his newfound power. The recluse is surprised that a newbie was able to awaken an S-rank skill so quickly. Besides him, only Oyonju has an ability of this level. However, his first water control skill was of an intermediate level. Hyun speculates that this increase is due to Junhyuk's high level. The protagonist thinks about where to appoint such a strong man. He immediately dismisses the option of transferring to Donghyun's group. The hunter team is already balanced, he will only get in the way there. And Junhyuk's group is formed around him and will fall apart without a leader. Hyun decides to leave everything as is for now. He notices system reports that other citizens are also killing goblins. Suddenly he feels the familiar pain of leveling up. The recluse reaches level 20 and his domain begins to expand. The protagonist screams from the pain tearing him apart from the inside. A confused Seo Yojin screams in fear, not understanding what is happening. The safe zone is quickly expanding into neighboring streets. Hyun loses consciousness from severe pain and hears Yojin's screams through the haze. The girl shakes him in fear and notices that the guy has stopped breathing. After a few seconds, Hyun slowly regains consciousness. He opens his eyes to see Seo Yojin's lips reaching out to him. The girl leaned over him, getting ready to kiss him. The recluse asks what she is doing here. A confused Yojin explains that she wanted to give him CPR. A frightened Blake croaks behind him, alarmed by his master's condition. Hyun pats his head and reassures him that he is okay. The recluse turns on the absolute view and examines the area. The territory became simply enormous, spreading over a radius of 1 kilometer around the residential complex. That's why he lost consciousness from the pain. The zone hadn't expanded that much before. The tired hero looks at his page in the system. He has 3 skill points to distribute. First of all, he decides to increase the level of absolute view. The 4th level of the skill adds the multitasking feature to it. The black sclera of the boy's pupils change, turning into something like stars. Now he can monitor several citizens at the same time. Jaehyun sees a happy Junhyuk and a working Kim Dabin. He also looks at Gayun, who is mourning the death of her father. While the protagonist can currently maintain 3 images at once, even this becomes very tiring. Next, he decides to level up the status maintenance skill and receives the mystical random option. He receives 300 crystals, which is enough for 1 mystical random summon. Jaehyun decides not to refuse and try his luck. A glowing seal appears on the floor in front of him. Yojin asks what's going on, and Blake winces and croaks. A glowing ball flies up to the center of the room. Inside it is a communication ring, allowing the recluse to communicate with his subjects at any distance. The main character puts a ring on his finger. He thinks his features would be perfect for Kim Dabin's job. He opens her page in the system and notices something new. Dabin has gained a telepathy skill that she hasn't talked about yet. Through the absolute sight, he sees Dabin being scolded by the man at the head of the crowd. He demands that each family be given a room, rather than housing 50 people in one apartment. The crowd cheers him on, and Dabin falls silent, confused. Jaehyun looks angrily at the provocateur. He activates his new skill, Recluse's Door, which connects any doors within the zone with a portal. A second later, he walks out the door and finds himself in the hallway with Dabin. The man shouts that they simply seized someone else's house and have no right to dispose of it. Jaehyun intervenes in the conversation and states that he is the one who took over this house. The guy says that if anyone doesn't like his rules, they can leave. The man demands that the boy speak more politely to his elders. The recluse does not let him finish and expels Sun Young-shik. Young-shik disappears after finding himself outside the safe zone. Jaehyun asks the crowd who else has complaints. No one dares to object to him. As punishment, he deprives everyone present of water, gas, and electricity. In response to the grumbling, Jaehyun demands to look at the situation realistically. All these people came here after their victory over the Cyclops. They joined to protect themselves from monsters, and now they are asserting their rights. The recluse declares that hundreds of such people will continue to come to him. If we give everyone housing, we will quickly run out of apartments, and the old residents will begin to resent the insolence of the new arrivals. But if their wishes are fulfilled, the demands will only continue to grow. Jaehyun claims that no one here has basic rights and social security. The government fell, and now there is a different system. The protagonist is willing to play the role of a tyrant if it helps establish order. He tells people to first prove they are worthy of privilege. Other newcomers endure hardships and do their best to help each other. And they don't forget to take care of children and the weak. And then a crowd of newbies demanded everything at once. Kim Jaehyun demands that they return to their apartment. Otherwise, he will punish them even more severely. The frightened people leave, looking nervously back at the domestic tyrant. Jaehyun and Dabin watch them go silently. The girl breathes a sigh of relief and thanks him for his help. The recluse mentally replies that he is only doing his job. Kim Dabin is surprised how he can speak silently. He claims that she is capable of doing this herself. The guy explains the skill of telepathy to her and asks her to try it. Dabin quickly masters the skill and begins to mentally communicate with the recluse. She thanks him for his help, but doesn't yet know where to use telepathy. Suddenly, a trembling man approaches them. One of the group of departed newcomers calls out to the protagonist. He apologizes and asks to speak. Jaehyun asks what he wants to say. The man asks to give Sun Young-shik another chance and bring him back to the house. The recluse asks why he should do this. The man says that even though he shouted the loudest, he was voicing the opinion of the crowd. It would be unfair to let him suffer alone. Jaehyun thinks that he just wanted to get Young-sik back. Luckily, he didn't leave and continued to bang on the door. The protagonist addresses a man who calls himself Han Kyung-hoon. The recluse agrees to bring back Sun Young-shik. He will also return their electricity and water, but will not connect the gas yet. Jaehyun says he forgives them once, but don't test his patience. Han Kyung-hoon thanks him for his mercy and runs off to join his comrades. Jaehyun would like to give them back the gas too, but then they wouldn't get punished at all. They need to feel at least a little discomfort from their behavior. Kim Dabin says he really has a kind heart. The recluse is surprised by her sudden praise. He sheepishly thanks her for her kind words as Dabin continues to laugh. Jaehyun says 3 pickup points aren't enough. They need at least 25, 1 in each house. Yoo Hyo-rin dejectedly replies that she only has 15 people on her team. The protagonist proposes to assemble 100 people into a resource management group. Dabin is confident that with such support, her work will definitely become easier. On the 21st floor, an unknown person approaches them. He greets the couple and wants to talk. The man in glasses has arrived recently and wants to offer his services. He and 2 assistants are ready to become a team of doctors. Lee Sungmin previously worked as a doctor in the Department of Neurology. After the doctor leaves, Dabin and Jaehyun discuss his proposal. They decide to allocate him space to create a hospital. Dabin is ready to take care of this while the recluse continues with his hunt. Jaehyun returns to the apartment where Seo Yojin is waiting for him. In response to her question, he replies that he has already finished with all his business. The protagonist turns on the absolute view. Donghyun's group continues moving towards Chegalchi Station. While they are walking, he decides to spend his last skill point. The guy decides to upgrade the storage. The new save feature allows you to save the appearance and state of placed items. A brilliant idea comes to Jaehyun's head. He buys a revolver and 100 rounds of ammunition for it in the store. Next, he decides to try to carry out his plan with bullets. The recluse aims his pistol in front of him. The guy asks Yojin to cover her ears for a couple of seconds. The girl asks him again, puzzled. She notices the gun in his hands and starts to panic. Jaehyun fires several shots in front of him. Bullets fly straight into the vault window. Next, he goes out onto the balcony and looks at the night sky. Seo Yojin demands to know why he did it. The recluse opens the vault and fires all the bullets stored there. Now he had a new way to fight monsters from a distance. Meanwhile, Donghyun's group arrived at Chegalchi Station. There they encounter a company of goblins. Hunters easily kill weak monsters while they scatter. The goblins flee into the tunnels, away from the powerful awakened. Dongyun announces that they have finally arrived. Kim Jaehyun watches them from his apartment. He contacts the hunters through a communication ring. Dongyun confirms that he hears his voice in his head. Jaehyun tells the hunters to go to the second exit of the station. The group rises to the surface and looks around. The landscape in the surrounding area is quite typical for a destroyed city. There are rubble of buildings, abandoned buses, and broken cars everywhere. Jaehyun notes that from now on they are in uncharted territory. Seo Yojin tried to reconnect with the rats, but to no avail. This time the team will have to go in blind, without prior reconnaissance. The recluse uses telepathy to explain to them how to get to his parents' house. Suddenly they hear a crash from behind the pile of rubble. A huge monster with big teeth runs quickly towards them. A land shark attacks the group members, but Dongyun manages to dodge it. The team prepares for a new battle with the sea giant. The shark grins angrily and examines potential prey. Dongyun moves closer to the enemy, hoping to delay the beast. Jian and the others shoot her from a distance. The bullets hit the monster in the eyes, forcing it to stop and back away. Dongyun delivers a powerful blow to his opponent with his spear. Oh, Yeonju jumps up in the form of a bear. She falls with her entire body weight on the shark, piercing it right through. Dongyun asks Kim Gaeon to scout out the area. The guy sends a raven into the sky and surveys the area from above. Jian quickly notices new monsters approaching them. He tries to warn his friends, but a loud noise comes from around the corner. A huge crab jumps out from there, snapping its claws. Jian says there are still plenty of them in the area. Kandexo warns of a new aerial threat. Several winged fish with sword-like noses fly towards them. The monsters are quickly approaching, diving towards the people. Dexo stands at the front of the group, ready to take the hit. The guy summons a halberd and swings it towards the enemy. Before impact, he summons armor for additional protection. With a sweeping blow of his weapon, he cuts the sky-blue Marglin in half. The rest begin to fire at the monsters from a safe distance. Kim Gaeon's arrows hit the fish's eyes precisely, killing them with accurate shots. The girl notices that there are too many enemies. She hears the screams of Kim Da-jung, who does not know how to handle a weapon. Suddenly, bullets from Jaehyun's storage appear in front of her. A hail of bullets hits the Marglin at close range. The recluse notes that outright murder does not give him more money. He turns to Seo Yojin for help. The guy asks her to take the gun and shoot for him. The girl asks why to do this and where to aim. Jaehyun tells her to shoot anywhere. A frightened Yojin fires several shots. The recluse takes them to the vault and tells the girl to continue shooting. Thanks to her, he can now concentrate only on his skills. He summons multiple windows at once and fires bullets from them towards the Marglins. A swarm of flying birds perishes under Jaehyun's continuous fire. Yojin shouts that more bullets are needed. Yoo Hyo-rin bursts into the room and asks what's going on. She sees Seo Yojin shooting at the system window. Seeing the strange sight, Hyorin thinks that she is still sleeping. After the death of the Marglins, the hunters continue the fight with the crab. The huge monster confidently walks straight towards them, ignoring counterattacks. The monster continues to strike with its claws, forcing the hunters to scatter. Oh Yeonju runs towards the crab, raising his clawed paw to strike. Kim Da-jung manages to cast body-enhancing magic on her. The bear pounces on the crab's leg and grabs it with her paws. With some effort, she tears off his leg, limiting his mobility. Dongyun runs towards the enemy, summoning a new spear as he goes. He throws the weapon forcefully into the opponent's face. The spear hits the crab's snout and gets stuck. Oh Yeonju climbs onto his back and delivers a series of claw strikes. But her attacks leave only scratches on the crab's tough shell. Moon Bencho teleports into the air above the sea monster. He shoots him with a pistol, aiming at the eyes and head. The bullets simply ricochet off the crab's shell without penetrating it. Donghyun is frantically thinking about how they can defeat such an enemy. Jaehyun realizes that it will take a powerful blow from a blunt object to penetrate the shell. His attention is transferred to the gym of the residential complex. Next, the recluse tells Yeonju to climb onto the crab's back on cue. Jaehyun summons a heavy barbell into the sky above the 30th floor. The bar begins to fall down quickly. The protagonist mentally apologizes to his brother Kim Dabin, promising to buy him new equipment. The barbell flies rapidly towards the ground, accelerating under the influence of gravity. In this state, the recluse places it in storage. Next, he opens a vault window high above the crab. The barbell falls at great speed onto the monster's head. The heavy projectile pierces the crab's shell, splitting it into pieces. Oh Yeonju jumps onto the monster's back at the leader's signal. It breaks through a hole in the shell into the enemy's guts. The she-bear kills a level 35 giant crab, which is worth 930 million won. The team then continued on their way, but encountered other sea monsters. Opposing them were humanoid fish, similar to those siren servants, and huge crustaceans that have emerged from the waters to hunt. Jaehyun notes that without his help, the guys could have died long ago. Even Dongyun's team is having a hard time clearing this area. Just a kilometer of travel led to a series of fierce battles. Jaehyun's family's chances of survival are slim to none. The closer the hunters get to his home, the more fear grips him. Soon the team comes to a large branchy tree. Jaehyun thinks there's only one alley left to his parents' house. Suddenly his attention is drawn to a tree in the middle of the road. He mentally orders the hunters to stop. Kim Jaehyun grew up on this street and remembers it well, down to the smallest details. Therefore, he easily identifies the tree as a giant tree of the 38th level. The recluse tells the hunters to look closely at the tree ahead. Jaehyun warns that it is actually a monster. The group members prepare for a new fight and take out their weapons. A large red eye appears in the tree trunk. The giant tree opens its mouth and lets out an angry roar. Kim Gaeun fires a powerful shot from her bow. The arrow punches a hole in the tree monster's bark. The giant tree emerges completely from the ground, revealing huge wooden paws. Ha Dong-yeon forcefully throws the summoned spear at the enemy's face. The projectile pierces the tree bark, but the monster remains on its feet. The tree begins to slowly approach the hunters. Moon Bencho teleports behind him with a gun in his hands. He starts shooting, but the bullets cannot penetrate the enemy's tough bark. Oh Yeonju runs towards the tree to launch a series of attacks. The bear dodges the many tentacle roots released by the monster. New roots emerge from the ground and grab it in flight. The hunters notice what happened and rush to her rescue. The tree continues to squeeze the bear in a strong grip. Suddenly another tentacle appears, ready to pierce Yeonju. Moon Bencho appears in front of the root, ready to cover the girl with his body. Suddenly the tentacle stops a couple of centimeters from the guy's face. He takes advantage of the delay and teleports away with Yeonju. Jaehyun wonders why the tree suddenly stopped attacking. Following a sudden hunch, he tells Yeonju to retreat and the others to continue fighting. Dongyun decides to trust the recluse's instincts and carry out his orders. Yeonju retreats and transforms back into a human. Kang Daxo steps forward, preparing to fight the tree. Suddenly, the giant tree turns around and walks away. Dongyun asks in confusion why the monster stopped fighting. The tree returns to its place and calms down completely. Jaehyun understands that it doesn't attack people. The tree only became aggressive after Oh Yeonju's transformation. Suddenly, the tree went into combat mode again and dug itself out of the ground. From across the street, a land shark runs towards him. The tree grabs the shark and impales it with its tentacles in a couple of seconds. The recluse is once again convinced that the tree attacks only monsters. He orders the hunters to move on, since the tree is no longer hostile. They pass by a tree that pays no attention to people. Beyond the alley, Dongyun sees a strange sight and contacts the leader. Jaehyun sees it too and can't believe his eyes. There is now a huge tree on the site of his parents' house. There is no mistake, this is where his family used to live. The enraged recluse wants to destroy this cursed tree. He wants to fill the barrel with gas and blow it up. Suddenly, a system message reveals that a relative of the absolute recluse is nearby. At the same time, someone starts yelling at Dong-Yun's group. Unknown people blind them with flashlights and demand that they identify themselves. 3 elderly men stand in front of the hunters, demanding that they stop abusing their little Poppy. The old men look dissatisfied and clearly not in the mood for contact. They pass by the group and inspect the wounds of Poppy's tree, which is dug back into the ground. The hunters listen to the old men's grumbling with embarrassment, not wanting to get involved in their conversations. One of them demands that the young people explain why they did it. Dong-Yun's group apologizes for the misunderstanding with the giant tree. Someone invites a disgruntled old man to look at something interesting. Another old man shows the corpse of a huge shark, which they will be able to eat thanks to Poppy. Dong-Yun and the others watch silently as the survivors attempt to cut up the shark. The old people complain about the unpleasant taste of shark meat, but are grateful for any food at such a time. Hyun began to guess what was going on here. Now it became clear about the tree monster that does not touch people, and a huge tree on the site of his parents' house. The recluse remembered his grandfather, an ardent gardening enthusiast. After retiring, he set up a real farm on the roof of their house. He must be the awakened one who can control plants, and so he was able to survive and protect the people around him from monsters. The realization of the situation brought a long-awaited feeling of relief to him. Now Hyun is sure that the huge fish monsters were not able to eat all the inhabitants of his home. Seo Yojin asks why he looks so happy. The recluse replies that he is simply glad that everyone is safe. Meanwhile, Ha Dong-Yun agreed to help cut up the dead shark. He completed the job quickly, earning the approval of the tired old men. Hyun mentally asks Dong-Yun to find out the name of their village chief. Dong-Yun passes the question on to his new friend from the fishing village. The old man calls out the name of the headman. It is Lee Bong-yul, the same grandfather of Hyun. The hunters follow the old man to his village. Soon they reach an industrial area where many people live. Some carry body parts of sea monsters. Others simply chat with each other while sitting on fish boxes. A pleasant smell of fried fish comes from the kitchen. The hunters are amazed by the sight of peaceful life in the middle of a neighborhood teeming with monsters. Hyun notes that there are at least 100 people in his field of vision. It even seemed to him that he was standing in the middle of the bustling Chigalchi market. The group approaches a bald man slicing fish. He asks about Poppy and the huge shark killed by the tree. Having received the answers, he agrees to treat the guests to sashimi in exchange for their help in cutting up the carcass. Soon he hands them a plate of perfectly sliced sashimi. The hunters look at the thinly sliced fish with hungry eyes. Gaeun asks for chopsticks, but Pak replies that they don't have any more. The next second, Jaehyun sends a pair of sticks to each of the hunters. The old people look in amazement at the things that appear out of thin air. Kim Gaeun tries the sashimi and comments on its excellent taste. The others also try the fish and begin their meal. The protagonist watches them and decides to give them a gift with the fish. He sends them bottles of soda to drink. The old people are shocked again by the appearance of cola and Sprite. Dong-Yun offers to share sweet drinks with them. Suddenly, new things start appearing on the earth. These include toilet paper, laundry detergent, dry ramen, drinks, and canned goods. Dong-Yun says that Jaehyun gave them a small gift. Park suggests that Jaehyun is some kind of deity. Suddenly, someone loudly asks them what the noise they were making was. The village elder descends to them from the roots of a huge tree. It turns out that he is indeed Jaehyun's grandfather, who possesses the mythical skill Guardian of the World Tree. An elderly man of level 55 holds the titles of Druid and Family Member. With dexterous movements, he quickly descends from the tree root. Lee Bong-gyul lands on the ground, showing unusual agility for a man his age. Jaehyun also notices that he has started moving much faster. Previously, his legs couldn't support him at all due to his age. But after the awakening, he seemed to have gained new powers. The recluse addresses all hunters through the ring. He says that this headman is his grandfather, and asks to greet him on his behalf. Ha Dong-yun greets Lee Bong-yul. The mustachioed old man says that beginners can create things out of thin air. Bong-yul notices water and boxes of food. He says that the village is just starting to have problems with drinking water. The village chief thanks Dong-yun for his help, but the boy says that the gratitude is not intended for him. Dong-yun replies that Kim Jae-hyun sent them here. Lee Bong-gyul's expression changes upon hearing his grandson's name. Dong-yun explains that they came here at his request. The village headman cannot believe that his grandson is really alive. He asks Ha Dong-hyun again. The guy confirms that this is the same Jae-hyun who lives in Seomyeon. Convinced of the truth of their words, Bong-gyul tells them to follow him. The hunters look after the old man in bewilderment. He begins to quickly climb the roots of the tree, moving towards its center. Soon they climb up the roots and go to the hollow area of the tree. Dong-hyun's group carefully walks along the steep roots. Jae-hyun thinks that he will be able to reunite with his family very soon. But first, he needs to finish building the outpost. And after meeting with grandfather, a new structure became available. The 10 billion won annex is a shelter outside the residential complex, growing in size along with it. The recluse wonders if the extension can be destroyed, or if it is the same as the safe zone. In addition, he still has 7 billion won left in construction grant. The protagonist decides to build an extension after all. Suddenly he sees a bright light and mentally finds himself in another place. A guy stands at the top of a tree growing higher than the skyscrapers in the middle of the city. Far below, Jae-hyun can see the outlines of houses and streets. He studies the approximate size of the building. It is similar in scale to the residential complex and will expand along with it. An extension will be much more profitable than an outpost with its fixed territory. The construction will last 7 days, and Grandpa must not leave the extension area. Suddenly, Jae-hyun sees a message about the arrival of another relative. An absolute look shows his grandmother Kim In-sim sleeping on the bed. Lee Bong-gyul left her inside the tree where he brought Dong-hyun's group. A man tells his sleeping wife about the latest events. He says that people from Kim Jae-hyun came to them. Their grandson survived and was able to become much stronger. The recluse watches what is happening gloomily. Through telepathy, he asks his grandfather to find out what happened to her. Oh Yeonju asks him a question on behalf of Jae-hyun. To his bewilderment, she explains that his grandson can see everything here through their eyes. Bong-gyul tells her grandson that she will not leave her grandmother no matter what, but she just takes everything too seriously. Yeonju asks how long she has been unconscious. The old man replies that his wife fell into a coma on the first day of the end of the world. Then she couldn't bear the terrible sight and simply fell asleep. This is the first time Jae-hyun sees his grandfather in this state, but he is glad that he and his grandmother were able to survive this hell. Grandma has been in a coma for a month but looks very healthy. The recluse thinks that this is thanks to his grandfather's abilities. And he can't give healing quests to family members. Kim Da-jun tries to cure his grandmother, but fails. Jae-hyun notices that it is too quiet in the tree and no one else has come out to them. Oh Yeonju asks the class president where Jae-hyun's parents are now. Bong-gyul decides to appeal directly to his grandson. He says that on the first day his mother went to work, and his father went to work part-time. It is unknown where they are now, but the grandfather is sure that the two have found a safe place for themselves. Jae-hyun could tell from his tone that his grandfather didn't believe his parents would survive, which is logical. Without awakened skills, their chances of survival are 0. The recluse announces to the team that next time they will go to the Yuhwan nursing home. He hopes to find his mother, who worked there. Suddenly, the guy receives a new message about the close presence of a relative. Jae-hyun asks Yojin to send rats to scout out the area. She needs to find all the survivors in a certain area on the map. It was from that side that the notification came to him. He knows that his parents are approaching the safe zone. The action moves to the fishing village of Bongyeol. Suddenly, residents notice a frightening movement in the sky. Dozens of flying monsters appear over their village. An alarm is sounded in the camp and everyone runs for shelter. They carry the food to the seafood warehouse and close the gate. One of the men ran to the headman and informed him of the problem. Lee Bong-gyul goes to investigate what's going on. A huge crowd of ground and flying monsters is quickly approaching the village. The headman stands before the army of monsters. Ha Dong-hyun doesn't understand why there are so many monsters here. Bong-gyul raises his hand, using one of his skills. Several giant trees are dug out of the ground and come to the aid of the owner. The old man casually asks what happened to Poppy. Dong-hyun offers to help, but his grandfather orders him to stay put. He advises young people to take a closer look at monsters. They don't attack, but rather run away from something. Bong-yeol summons massive tree vines in preparation for battle. Dong-hyun notices monsters flying past. He understands that they really don't want to attack, but the land animals will definitely have time to destroy everything, so they will have to be killed. Dong-hyun offers to help again, but Bong-yeol refuses him again. The old man hits the ground and huge vines kill enemies en masse. The hunters watch Bong-yeol's exploits in shock. No monster can pass by its vines. The village chief uses another skill, emitting powerful blue energy. Monsters die when vines pierce their heads. The bloodline title increases the old man's stats and gives him increased money and experience gain. Bong-yeol looks at the system window where his awards are marked with bewilderment. Jae-hyun saw the power of the 55th level, capable of single-handedly destroying an entire army. With such monstrous power, he really doesn't need support. For multiple kills, the recluse skill level increases again. A strong pain once again penetrates Kim Jae-hyun's entire body. The safe zone area expands even further. The protagonist notices that the pain becomes stronger each time. Because of this, he still can't get used to her. A new message notifies of the appearance of creatures that can be granted citizenship. When relatives appear, special notifications should appear. And he doesn't find the names of his parents on the list of newcomers. Seo Yo-jin continues to search for survivors, and will let you know when he finds someone. Jae-hyun activates Absolute Sight and returns his attention to his grandfather. Bong-yeol notices something strange after the battle ends. Still shocked by his power, the hunters ask what's wrong. The elder replies that previously, after killing monsters, corpses remained. But now they have begun to disappear completely. Dong-hyun says that it is Jae-hyun's influence and the monsters he killed also disappear. Bong-yeol is once again amazed by his grandson's abilities. Next, the old man says to bring several people from the warehouse to cut up the remaining corpses. Jae-hyun had never thought about the disappearance of monsters' bodies, or the consumption of their meat before. He sees the corpse of a large fish and decides to try something risky. The guy adds a fish carcass to the store. The system completes scanning, and a new product appears in the store. Suddenly, Seo Yo-jin announces that she has found survivors. A kilometer from the safe zone, a group of people moves towards a residential complex. They are led by Kim Jae-hyun's parents, who have decided to go to their new apartment. Lee Ji-suk's mother has reached level 50 and possesses the skill She Who Rules. And Kim Dong-yuk's father is level 42 and has the skill Protective Aura. Jae-hyun goes to meet his parents with tears in his eyes.